Yo, we got the NBA Finals. I'm so excited, fellas, because, well, ladies and gentlemen, basketball lovers, casual fans, salty New York Knicks supporters that are recovering from this past weekend, welcome to the show, welcome to the panel, and welcome to the 2025 NBA playoffs, fellas. We finally made it. The confetti's all swept up in Oklahoma City and in Indiana. The lights are turned off at the Garden, and the whole state of New York is silent. And rising from the Eastern Conference Finals, like the Midwestern Miracle, we got the Indiana Pacers, fresh off snatching souls in New York. Tyrese Halliburton, ice cold. Pascal Siakam, Eastern Conference Finals MVP. And they both were leading the number one offense in the entire NBA. But standing across from them, Chilltown, in the Western Conference, Penn, we got a juggernaut. We got the Thunderstorm, the team that's been bullying everybody since October, all the way up to right now. The Oklahoma City Thunder have been dominant all season, unshakable in the playoffs, and they are anchored by the number one defense. And also, of course, led by the MVP, young superstar who just quite simply plays at a pace that's unmatched. We got Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Penn, this finals is not just offense versus defense. It's art versus war. Buckets versus lockdown. Two superstar point guards. Yes, two superstar point guards, Mars. Halliburton versus SGA. Two of the coldest young point guards in the game right now, battling for the crown. The Pacers want to run and gun. They want to drop 130 points a game, and they do it in a casual manner. The Thunder want to clamp, control, and turn every possession into a chess match. So something's got to give, y'all. And the question is, with two franchises that have yet to bring a championship home to their small market, who's going to write their legacy and stamp their logo in history, NBA history? Will Indiana complete the fairy tale? Or will Oklahoma City Thunder complete their dynasty in the making? Well, the start of their dynasty in the making, and grab the throne early. One thing is for certain, fellas. It's going to be a thriller one way or another. So let's go ahead and get into it, y'all. First, I do want to start out with what happened in the Eastern Conference Finals. Game 6.
I think what happened was what was happening the whole series. The Knicks couldn't slow down Indiana's transition. Indiana wanted the game out of control. Indiana did everything that they could to keep the game at a high pace. I saw Mitchell Robinson walking up the floor more than once. With him doing that, I mean, they did everything that they could to basically run him into the ground. The games that Indiana won, I mean, 138, 130, 125. I mean, the Knicks can't play at that pace. The Knicks couldn't play at that pace. And I think that was the difference in the game. I thought they did a good job in getting Pascal Siakam, not just out in transition, but I thought they did a good job getting him in spaces where he was the most effective in that mid-range and at the nail. Cat did whatever he could to take advantage of Miles Turner throughout the course of the series, but I just feel like they wore him down. I feel like they wore down the Knicks, and I think that it was too late for Tibbs to go into his rotation like he did. I mean, guys like Wright, not just guys like Wright, guys like Shamet, they hadn't really played that many minutes the entire season, and the fact that they playing these many minutes in this series is a testament to how stubborn Tibbs could be with his lineups, and I think that was the difference in the series. So I'm not surprised that Indiana won, but I'm surprised that they won at the pace that they did.
Mars, thoughts and comments on that last game?
What, just game 6?
You could talk about the whole series if you want. Game 6 was the most recent.
No, I think Chill's right. The transition stuff was the biggest deal. It's funny, for like 2 years now, we've been hearing, oh, you just beat Indiana by slowing them down. And 6 series later, no one's been able to slow them down. Now, they lost to Boston last year, but I can assure you Boston did not slow them down. So maybe this team is just really good at speeding the game up. I don't know. Maybe they should get some credit for that. But I did my due diligence. I looked at some numbers because that's what I'm good for. The Pacers had a 148 offensive rating in transition against the Knicks. The Knicks had an 148 offensive rating in transition against the Knicks. The Knicks had an 88 offensive rating in transition.
That's almost double.
Now, for the people in the back row, what does 148 translate to?
Hold on, let me bring in somebody from the back row. Go ahead.
Oh, hello, Swiper.
Oh, come on.
Hello.
In theory, if there was 100 transition possessions a game, the Pacers would have scored 148 points in that game, and the Knicks would have scored 88.
Phrased differently, they scored 1.48 points.
Yeah, they scored 1.48 points per possession. Yes, they did. In the half court, they still executed well, which is like their half court offense is still elite. They produced 1.01 points per possession in half court. For reference, the Pistons scored 0.90 and the Celtics scored 0.93. So they've still done better against the Knicks in the half court than anyone. But their ability to control the transition game is funny because that's what OKC does as well, just in a different way. But like that's why they're here. It's because they are able to speed the game up and they're also able to slow you down. When you're an elite transition offense and you're an elite transition defense, you give yourself a larger floor, a larger margin of error. And that's what Indiana does. Halliburton had a really good series. Siakam had a really good series minus game 1. No one played well in game 5, but Halliburton played really good in 4 of the 6 games. Siakam played really good in 4 of the 6 games. I would have voted Halliburton Conference Finals MVP personally, but it doesn't really make much of a difference to me.
Oh, we'll get into that in a second, Mars.
Yeah, it doesn't really make much of a difference to me.
That's going to get nasty.
But Indiana deserved to be here. They've been the best team in the Eastern Conference playoffs. They deserve to be here. And I'm happy they're here. I think a team that plays like Indiana, this is what the NBA should be promoting as their product. A team.
Mars, can we make an argument that Indiana's been the best team in the Eastern Conference?
You don't have to make an argument. They have been the best team since January.
I mean, since they turned their season on, because we know they started slow. All the Tyrese Halliburton conversations. That I was definitely a part of, because Halliburton did not look like himself to start the season. But since that turnaround, since that point, they have been maybe the best team in the Eastern Conference. Since January 1st, I think they were like, record-wise, I think they were the 3rd best team in the East behind Boston and Cleveland. Mm-hmm. But then I think once you start making the sample smaller, and Halliburton's getting better and better as the season goes on. And when Halliburton plays, I think their record was like 41-13 or something. Mm-hmm. Like, in 2025, they maybe have been the best team in the East, especially when you start factoring in the playoffs into it as well. Like, this finals might just be the 2 best teams in each conference going against each other. So it's gonna be a good series.
It sounds to me like the 2 best teams in the NBA. That's what it sounds like to me.
It's definitely not the 2 best teams in the NBA.
Maybe the West has like the 3 best teams in the league. I don't know, but the best team in the East against the best team in the West.
Indiana would be better in the West.
If Indiana played against Minnesota, they would smoke them. I'm saying it.
Well,
they would smoke Minnesota. They would smoke Minnesota if they played them.
I don't think Minnesota is the 2nd best team in the West.
Oh, hell no.
I think they would smoke Minnesota if they played.
Hell no.
I
don't think Minnesota is the 2nd best team in the West. So even if they'd
smoke Houston too.
Would they
I don't think Houston's the 2nd best team.
I think Denver would give them a lot of trouble just off the strength of Joker. I think that Cat. I feel like Cat. Not Cat. I'm sorry. Yeah, I feel like Cat kicked Turner's ass, and I think Joker would do the same thing with him. I think that the way that offense was ran, the biggest problem is Denver not making shots. That I think that was the biggest problem. Their offense wasn't the issue in terms of action. It was them missing shots. MPJ couldn't make a shot. I think that was their biggest. I think that was their biggest problem. But Indiana speeding them up, I think that would cause a major problem for Denver.
Well, Indiana doesn't play well versus Denver historically, though. Like Denver kind of beats them up. Well, they played for the last several years.
Historically.
Well, I think for the last few seasons, I think Indiana's beaten Denver once. I think in the last 4 years.
If I remember, I'm not doing that. The reason why I'm
not even done. I didn't cut y'all off. Shut up, both of y'all.
Well, they only played twice.
They only played twice. I'm trying to get some context.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. All I was gonna say is just that because Denver, one thing that Halliburton has struggled with is when they blitz Hali. In particular, he has not performed as well, and they shut him down for the most part. I think in the first game this year, the last one was that was the last Malone game if I remember correctly. I can't remember exactly when that was.
Mhm.
Jokic had like that 42, 13, 15 game, and they lost. I can't remember what
That
happened.
was the last Malone game, like the last
Might have
game
been
he coached.
that might have been the last. That might have been the last one. I think
I
that
wonder
like.
why.
Oh man.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's several reasons why, but
You
I
wanna
don't.
get
I
nasty?
didn't.
I can get nasty.
Didn't want to talk about that.
Hali packed them up.
So we really gonna talk about the Nuggets before we talk about the Knicks? That's
No,
awesome.
I don't think that
Okay,
was happening
cool.
at all. I think someone was simply. This is what I'm saying. Like, y'all just weird about the Denver team. I think somebody just brought up like, who's the second best team in the West? And then Mars said not Rockets. Then he said not Wolves, and I think he thinks it's Denver. But that's all. That's the
Is
conversation.
that what you think,
It's all-
Mars?
I do. I think Denver probably are
God.
the second best team in the
All I
West.
was gonna say is
In a
that
playoff setting, anyway.
In a playoff setting.
Yeah.
to keep it to the Pacers, they're 41-13 with Halliburton in the lineup since January 1st, which is spectacular. Chill. We've had a conversation about them for months now, man. I'm really proud of them. Really proud of how good they looked. Neesmith's been incredible. Nembhard's been incredible. Honestly, like they just did everything they were supposed to do all the way around. Like it's just a really, 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 really well built team. Rick Carlisle's a genius. Buchanan, like the GM for the Pacers, I think has done a stupendous job. Obviously, Penn, as somebody who's covered the Raptors for the better part of his life, has not had a lot to look forward to in the last 6 years. But I think OG Anunoby, Pascal Siakam, Scotty Barnes, like those kind of players that have been built in-house with Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think getting Pascal Siakam off your books for the deal they got him for, Ron, is just insane to me. I still can't believe that Bruce Brown and a couple throw-ins got an all-NBA player on the roster. And
That's a
Eastern
bucket of
Conference
extra
Finals
crispy in a
MVP.
six-pack.
But he's been crazy. Last year in the
six-pack.
playoffs, he was really good, especially in the first round.
Mhm.
This year, he was great
Yes.
all playoffs, except for maybe 3 full games, wire to wire. Man, he legitimately has been everything that you could have asked him to be. He's the perfect complement for a player. He's super unselfish, perfect complement to a player like Hali. He doesn't need the ball. He doesn't ask for the glitz and glam. He's a star who doesn't think of himself like a star. He
Mhm.
works hard. He shows up every single day, and he does his job. And you got a bunch of guys, I think, on the Pacers that do that. I think Miles Turner being there for 10 years, some of the pictures chill going around of him playing versus Tim Duncan back in the day. Like, you realize how long he's been in the system.
10 years he's been there, yep.
Neesmith being a throwaway for the Boston Celtics and turning into this caliber of player.
Mhm.
I mean, for a guard chill, I mean, if Caruso is like at the top, it was tier 1, and like Aaron Gordon's tier 1 in terms of role players. Like, is Neesmith tier 2? Like, in terms of like just how
No.
good he is?
It's
You think
a
he's
big
higher?
gap between tier 1 and 2, though.
Well, I'm saying like this. I think he's close to that for me. Not close to 1, but I think he's solidly in tier 2 of like the players you would want on a roster that you can just really help you win a ring around players like Hali and all that stuff. And then Nembhard.
Swipe.
Crazy. Go ahead.
Oh, you about to get to him? No,
Yeah.
you about to get to him. Because I think Nembhard is personally the third most important offensive piece, and he didn't even play good in the Knicks series.
That's fair. The initiation.
He's the most
initiation, all
important defender. So, I mean,
I think he did
Is
play
he?
good,
Is
Ron.
he-
He might
is
not
he-
have shot. He might not have shot it as well as you would like him to shoot it, but I think he played good. I think he caused a lot of trouble. I watched John Starks get tossed in 1993 and 1994 for headbutting Reggie Miller. Meanwhile, Brunson does that and it's nothing. And he did it right at midcourt. I watched John Starks get tossed, chase down Reggie Miller and headbutt him. But Jalen Brunson, Nembhard has him so frustrated that he does the same thing to him and nothing happens. But to your point, Swiper, I mean, when I think about Pascal Siakam over his last 3 playoffs, he's actually been really good. Really good. And I'm on record
22
saying,
as well.
Has he?
he's actually
Let
been
somebody tell it. Let
Yes,
somebody
he's been-
tell
yes.
it.
since he was egregious in the bubble, I think Pascal's
Since-
improved a lot
that's
and
what
been
I'm
a
talking
good
about.
player in the
That's what I mean.
How
Mars.
was he the playoffs before the bubble though?
What, when they won the chip? Yeah, he
Well,
was
he
good.
Oh,
he was
amazing.
super young.
He
He was
balled
really
out.
good.
No.
He was amazing.
How good was he?
Draymond
good.
said he kicked his
The
ass.
Raptors won a championship that year.
Oh.
He was getting
out,
compared.
Ron.
He was getting compared to Scottie Pippen. That's how good he was.
So what you mean to tell me is it's only been one playoffs that happened to be in a secluded location that was controlled by a man who has a son that's in the NBA, but that's neither here nor there.
No,
It was in a
I
secluded
think Pascal struggled in the playoffs because he was the focal point of the Raptors' offense, and he wasn't good enough to be the focal point of a team's defensive game plan.
Who did
And
they play
since then, he improved.
Philly.
They played in the first round in the bubble. They played.
Oh, you're talking
the
bubble.
Nets. Yeah, in the first one they played the Nets, if I remember correctly.
He
Handled them.
struggled,
And then they
immensely,
lost against the Celtics in 7.
and he got shut down by Jaylen Brown.
But since that moment,
He's not the only one to get shut down by Jaylen Brown.
I
Okay,
think he's improved immensely, and
That was
I think
5
he
years
deserves a
ago.
lot of credit.
there was an entire thing about him not picking up a basketball for 4 months because there was lockdown and he didn't practice. He came in out of shape. The next year he ended up getting COVID, so he lost like 15 pounds, and then he walked into the Philly series. I thought, he relinquished some of those demons. I think, for the people who were like, how is he going to look as a first option now? You don't got Kawhi night, and it was much better. I think he looked much better. And I'll remind you that Raptors team was very injured.
They
Fred, Gary. So he had to carry a very, very, big load of the offense. But then the very next year, I believe they struggled immensely. They add Jakob Poeltl. Scotty Barnes is struggling. And then they go into the play-in and they play the Chicago Bulls and they get bounced by a little girl.
Well, I mean, but the Bulls also just played well that game too. But don't you think that's like a product of the play-in? Like, it's such a short sample size that
no, I agree.
The free throw shooting down the stretch cost.
Sure. 7-game series. I definitely think that team had turned a corner, but they also took a lot of wins against really trash teams down the stretch. They were beating the shit out of Charlotte and whatever, but when they went up against good teams,
they should have.
So I think Pascal is in a perfect role. And earlier in the season, when the Pacers were struggling, I felt like he didn't mesh too well with their transition offense. He wanted to slow things down. Hali wanted to speed things up, but now he's back to being a gazelle, right? He's being very opportunistic in transition. He scored 40% of his baskets in transition in this series. That's crazy. 60 points, 60 freaking points in transition is nuts, right? So he just exploited them, and I think, as much as you want to credit the Indiana Pacers for being a really good team, I think the Knicks had a really bad game plan. I'm going to be honest. I think the Knicks had a really bad game plan. Starting Mitchell Robinson made sense from the perspective of we want offensive rebounds. We want to overwhelm them with size. But their speed beats your size every time when you can't make buckets.
And
right?
Ron, when we talk about a team that's good at one thing, the other team is good at that thing too. Because, Oklahoma City had the second best transition offense in the game. And their transition offense was created off their defense. They turn they turn turnovers into points, and they do that fast, right? So, with that being said, Penn, to your point, I think that if Leonard would have stayed, I think that you were at least, at minimum, are in the finals in 2020 with Pascal Siakam.
They were on pace to win more games the year after Leonard left. Their defense improved the year Kawhi left.
Yeah.
I don't think people realize how good that team was.
Yeah.
And was the defense better, or just improved number wise, or if you put this team on one court and this team on one court, which team has a better defense? I'm not talking about chart per chart, pace per pace. I'm talking about this team and this team. Which team has the better defense?
I think because that first team had Kawhi to adjust into the lineup, plus they added Marc Gasol, their defense might have taken a hit on the numbers because they had to implement new pieces. The second year, that team just had more continuity, plus they had OG, right? They had OG fully healthy, and he stepped into the starting lineup for Kawhi, and I really thought...
He was a pup, but okay.
He was
4 years, 3 at that point. Year 3, year 4.
Yeah, young boys still be playing.
He was
defense.
good. He started.
I know. OG was dope then. I'm not saying he wasn't. I'm just saying that.
And Pascal also,
do you think that functionally that the 20 defense was better than the 19 defense, beyond the numbers?
I think it's hard to make the case.
Ass wiper.
Well, no, but he said that the defense was better next year. So I'm saying, how much did he?
They went from the 5th ranked defense, I believe, to the 3rd or 2nd ranked defense.
But
and
I think a big part of that is Marc Gasol coming mid-season in 19.
Yeah, that's huge
because the entire season is way different.
Exactly. So if we play out the entire season and half the season,
let's go. When did you get there?
Jonas Valanciunas.
February, right?
Yeah, let me go to
you want to look their defensive rating after they got Gasol?
Do you remember when it was pinned the trade?
I'll find it.
It was at the trade.
No, I didn't ask you, Mark. I can do it myself.
It was the trade
deadline.
deadline.
No, I'm gonna find it because I'm just good at
trade
this.
deadline.
Trade deadline. What was the trade deadline? 2019-20.
Same as it is every year. It's from the middle of February, like the 12th.
Well, I don't know,
like the 10th of February.
Just look up Marc Gasol traded to Toronto and just look at the date on the article.
Bro, can you believe this, man?
I'm just good at what I do, man. I'm sorry.
Why y'all race for that real quick? I just want to say, Penn, I agree somewhat, but I don't think playing Mitch was the problem. I think playing Mitch to the point of exhaustion and then playing him 3 minutes after he's already holding his knees and walking up the court. I think that was the problem. I think the fresh Mitch minutes, like I think if you play Mitch for a quick 5, get Josh in there, bring him back to close the quarter.
They were third in defense after the Gasol trade.
Tibbs playing Mitch 10 straight minutes. I think that's the issue.
You fight that, Swiper? Because I see you just scrunch your face up.
Well, I was no, that was
So
looking
they
at
went from third to
I think it's on the numbers.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because what Ox said, we were on playback watching it. Mitch is walking up the floor while they're trying to get back on defense. Cat is getting blown by in transition. Like he's and I can appreciate Tibbs' rotations as the playoffs had advanced, but I mean Mitchell Robinson, he's on the glass. He's an energy guy. You can play him 5 minutes, sit him, get him out the game for 3 minutes, then put him back in the game. You can do that.
In fact, Chill, that's what you're supposed to do. He's supposed to just be alternating them two all game.
100%
3 to
work.
4 minute stretches. Come on,
do that.
let's go.
Yeah.
On top of that, you got Precious.
Mars,
Now, look,
Precious
I'm
can
not
give us
saying-
6 minutes, Mars.
That's it.
I mean, you ain't got much
just
choice.
give
I'm
me
watching
some
Mitchell
reason.
Robinson die trying to get up and down the court. You ain't got much choice.
When I said Precious Achua needs to play, you and Pat Beverly about jumped me and told me that he can't play at all this series.
I mean, I don't think he's good enough to play, but if
Ron, they
Mitchell
lost
Robinson's
it,
dying
Ron.
on the court,
They just
yes, and I
lost
still
it.
stand by that.
Mars, again,
If the only reason Precious Achua has to play is because Mitchell Robinson is dying on the
That's
court,
all
then
I was
I still
saying,
don't think
Mars.
he's good enough to play. Like
That's all I
he's
was
out
saying.
there
But that's-
because Mitchell
I think
Robinson's
that's-
dying.
That's part of a game plan, though, Mars. Having somebody that can give you guys some breathers.
Yeah, then
I personally don't think Tibbs
I'd
can coach his way out of
rather just play
type of
Cat in
game.
the minutes that Mitchell Robinson's dying. Like I don't want
could
to have
answer
to
his
throw
Cat's
out
dying
there.
too himself.
Right.
And that's the issue. Like, I'm sorry if neither one of you can stay on the court because you're both tired against the Pacers. Then that's a
They
big
gotta get
issue.
better
Mars, you're
Yeah,
right.
like,
But
I'm
gotta-
sorry,
they gotta
I
get
don't want to have
better
time to
type
go to
game,
Precious Achua. Like Precious Achua is
Mars,
not
but look
good.
at the other side, though. Look at the other side. Look what Rick Carlisle was willing to do.
What, go to Tony Bradley?
He went
Yeah,
all
bro,
the way to
son.
Tony Bradley. He played
him
Tony
die.
Bradley until Tony Bradley broke down. Thank you, Tony Bradley. You
Straight up.
you
That's what he here
extended the
for.
longevity of Miles Turner, and on top of that, you made Thomas Bryant have to stay on his game. Thomas Bryant came
Hey.
back, and he was like, "I can't bullshit. I
He was
got
huge in that game 6. He was huge.
Yeah,
Huge in
talk
that
about
championship
DNA.
Hey, Mars, you call Dub and tell him Thomas Bryant a real shooter.
I'm not gonna do that, but
Okay,
Tony Brown was
okay,
hooping.
come on,
Tony Brown was-
Mars.
Ron, hey,
Hey,
Ron,
let bygones be bygones."
Call Dub and tell him Thomas Bryant a real shooter.
Actually,
Mars,
right quick, chill.
Best Brian I've ever seen in NBA history.
Stop,
All right, chill.
Mars. Stop, Mars.
Carter Bryant
Anyway,
exists.
Ron,
Carter
sure.
Bryant exists.
All right.
And in the
chill.
NBA. In the NBA.
Chill. No, since Mars wants to do this, can you
What?
ask him that one question about that one guy that he used to?
I
do
ain't
the show?
never seen any other Brian hoop in the Eastern Conference Finals like that. I ain't never seen it.
That is
Mars.
fair.
Yes or no?
Bro, go host the show.
So
I'm
Mars,
hosting. Yes or
Mars,
no?
the
we
reason
got
why
Superchats, we got conversations to have.
Mars, the reason why I brought up Precious Achua is because I've seen teams and I've seen teams deploy just bigs to foul Shaq. I've seen that. They aren't good, right? But their bodies to supplement guys for minutes, their bodies to maybe get a couple of rebounds. Precious Achua being on this roster, I ain't asking Precious Achua to get 15 rebounds. I ain't asking Precious Achua to give me 20 or 25 minutes. What I am asking him to do is I'm asking him to give a guy a breather for 5 or 10 minutes. That's more than enough for a guy like Mitchell Robinson, who I get him off the floor for 3 minutes, put him back in the game for 5, get him off the floor for another 2 minutes, and I can create a lineup between him, Cat, and Mitchell Robinson, where these guys aren't dead in the water when we come into the fourth quarter. Mars, I'm watching Mitchell Robinson walk up the floor.
Yes.
He's walking because he's dying because Indiana, they're running these guys into the ground. So I look down that bench and I see a 6'8", 6'9" Precious Achua. He can get out there and give him a break, even if it's only for 5 minutes at a time. I'm comfortable with that because I've seen teams deploy players. Just off the strength of them just supplementing minutes. And I don't think you're going to lose those minutes. And the reason why here's why I don't think you're going to lose those minutes, Mars, because I saw a lineup, right? I saw a lineup of Hart, right, Mitchell Robinson, Shamet, and Miles. And I saw them go on a 5-0 run in a matter of 3 minutes. Okay, I'm not losing those minutes. That's working. That's the same logic I feel with Precious Achua. He can finish around the basket. He can get you a layup. He can supplement minutes. He can supplement minutes for Cat. he could supplement minutes for Mitchell Robinson. Only for 3 minutes, only for 5 minutes, as opposed to him being out there for 20, 25 minutes. I'm not asking you to be out there that long. He can be out there long enough where Mitchell Robinson, who doesn't need that much of a breather, just let him sit down for a couple of minutes and he'll be fine.
I don't think
but
so.
especially like if you're doing it before a media timeout, doing it before the end of the quarter, that's when
to maximize the break.
Yeah, I think Tibbs could be a little more strategic with things like that. Mm-hmm. But I mean, besides that though, I mean, the Pacers play good though. Like, you know what I'm saying? Rick Carlisle's coaching his ass off. His team's playing their asses off. I don't think it's only the fact that Tibbs can't coach out of a wet paper bag that they lost. I think it's the fact that Rick Carlisle's doing some top-notch coaching right now.
You know what I mean? He was getting Landry Shamet minutes though. He was trying stuff. I feel like people just,
okay,
but it's so late for that though. Swipe,
no, they won the game. He did that.
Why not do that in January?
Yeah, well, no. Oh, right. And that's I feel you, Swipe.
No, because that's no, Max, you don't get to do that. And I'm obviously
I don't get to do
I'm obviously joking. I'm obviously joking. But
I'm just saying, like, I think
that's who he's been. He's never been a deep bench guy, but this has been. And I'm saying that not as a good asset. I don't like. I have, and again, remember y'all brought Cowboy Bob up on the Chill with Chill at 12 p.m. on Eastern Standard Time every Saturday and 4 p.m. on Thursdays. Is that what it is?
Yes.
Hey, we'll bring him up on Monday.
No, but
11:30 p.m. Eastern Time.
Okay, that's fine. But you don't really have to. Let's please just stay with what we're doing right now.
Hey,
no doubt.
But that was the whole criticism.
I'll bring another Cowboy up here
since the 2010 era. Like, that's always been his issue. He overplays these kind of players, his star players. He doesn't go into his bench. He's not a young guy personally. Like, he doesn't play like a bevy of young players. That's never been his MO. And I think the issue is like, how do you get someone, Ox, who's been the way they've been? You've been married to them for 15 years. They've never cleaned the dishes. They've never wanted to do the dishes in the house. They've always expected you to do the dishes. And then all of a sudden, because you're busier than you used to be, you expected them to, hey, the dishes was full. You expect them to go downstairs, clean the dishes, come back up. That's not their bag. I
believe in counseling. I believe in changing. I believe in loving somebody and loving your job and loving what you do, your career, your profession, loving it enough to change yourself. I've never subscribed. Even as a youngster, it always irritated me when people said, that's just who I am. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, but is that's good who he is, though. But is that good for you? Is that good for your loved ones? Don't you want to be better? I think Rick Carlisle has adjusted to the times. He's been a coach for a long time.
But he's always been kind of modern in his approach, though.
Yeah, but don't you think Rick Carlisle's been changing? Don't you think he's adjusted? Don't you think he's
which is why he's adapted to the game? There was somebody that didn't want to
adjust. I agree with everything you said. All I'm saying is, if you're an NBA coach, don't you have to adjust to NBA times? I'm not saying play like everybody else, but you gotta switch up a little bit. You can't keep doing the same shit that shortened Derrick Rose's career. You know what I'm saying? You can't keep killing dudes like
you gotta remember, outcome is not always process. We might disagree with the process, but the outcome is they just won Coach of the Year 4 years ago. Like,
that's something people vote on that.
No. But hear what I'm saying though. He is among the league regarded as one of the top minds. He does have the respect of his peers. He obviously got the Coach of the Year award. So did Monty Williams. A lot of these people don't change because they believe that their process.
Monty didn't even want to be there. He went to Detroit and almost tanked that franchise.
But a lot of coaches believe their process is what got them there. So for them, changing their process would be changing who they are, what's made them elite. And I think Tibbs, he's so beholden to the way he does things. And on top of that, Ox, if I told you this right now, Penn, Ron, Chill, Mars, the Knicks have been more successful under his tenure than they've been since the 1990s. Chill.
What about the personnel, Swiper? First of all, Swiper. Let me say,
Mike Wilson's the only one that could comp that in 2012.
I think he's a good hoop mind too. Like you said, you could be a good basketball mind and still understand, like, my rotations are ruining everything I got going on. All my X's and O's, any defensive scheme I can come up with, every single thing that I do positive, there's a part of my brain that just ruins it all. I am self-sabotaging myself. If you refuse to change, then you are cutting off your nose to spite your face. Swipe, I understand what you're saying, but we got to hold Tibbs accountable. Like you can't have Mitchell Robinson out there with 2 minutes left in the first quarter, grabbing his knees, wheezing, walking up the court. Sorry, but that's unacceptable for any level of coach. That's unacceptable. It's the first quarter, bro. Come on.
We've also seen coaches change with the times. So when college basketball is a prime example of it. When why am I drawing a blank on his name? Coach Calipari, when he came in with the one and done, guys like Bob Knight, those guys faded out because they wouldn't change.
That was Coach K before
Mike Krzyzewski recognized this is the way of the future. If I'm going to be around, this is what I have to do. If I'm going to stick around, guys like Roy Williams were able to survive the times, but plenty of other coaches recognize that this is the wave of the future. Well, Coach Tibbs, who's always been a guy who's played guys into the ground, he has to recognize that when I'm going up against a team, and he tried to do it. He tried to do it with Indiana. He saw that Indiana was going to have an 8-9 at minimum 10-man rotation.
11.
He saw that, right? He saw that, and he tried to do it. I just think it was too late. To Penn's point, this is something that should have been going on in January, which goes back to my original logic. I think that this New York Knicks team was built to beat the Boston Celtics. I don't think that they were built to win the NBA championship, and I think that had a lot to do with their coach. I don't think that it was about personnel. I'm sorry.
So to question and then respond to this. Now he has changed his offense over the years. Like he is 100% like grown into the time. Because even the Knicks, their 3-point volume has steadily increased throughout his tenure there as well.
Sure.
But I think the personnel, do you think Tibbs was and look, the elephant in the room here is Brunson. To me, it's not even Cat. Brunson was so bad defensively this whole series that I think they were throwing everything against the wall in terms of their defensive personnel with Josh Hart, with Mitchell Robinson, with whoever was on the floor. Even more so than Carl. They were doing everything they can to protect him as often as possible. That's why Josh Hart, who I didn't think had a good series at all relative to last year versus the 76ers, but he couldn't miss. Like he remember the game winning 3 that he had at the top of the key when he was wide open. I can't remember what game that was. He was full of confidence. I think he averaged 16 rebounds a game in that series. Like he was everywhere.
Mars, he's talking about the series where he outplayed.
Where you said Josh Hart was better than Shea. Yeah.
No, I didn't say it was better. He was playing.
You said he was playing better in the playoffs than Shea. That's what he said.
I do remember that. But don't you think though, Chill, that like, but do you think it possible that he was just so overly concerned with protecting his 2-star, but especially his main star, that he was trying everything he could to salvage those minutes defensively, and then if he felt like if you put pressure to Chua in instead of Mitchell Robinson with that kind of personnel, that they were going to be exposed even more so than they were being exposed because of their defensive issues.
Well, here's the difference though, Swiper, and you make a valid point with that he was concerned with that, but he knew about that in January. He knew about that in November. He knew what kind of defender Jalen Brunson was. He knew the kind of player he was going to be once the playoffs came. I'm going to deal with coaches who recognize exactly what you're not good at. And a guy like Jalen Brunson, Rick Carlisle did a fantastic job, not only in speeding the game up, but specifically going after your primary ball handler. I think that, and you guys are going to roast me for this, I think that they really miss Julius Randle as a playmaker. I do. I think that they miss Julius Randle as a playmaker, as a passer, because the ball was dominated by Jalen Brunson. And the fact that the ball was dominated by Jalen Brunson.
They got a better version of Julius and Carl though. Like Carl was way better.
When you say a better version, I think
you don't pass better than Julius.
They wouldn't have had Cat though. Like they would have, you know.
Maybe I'd rather have Randle and Hart
no,
DiVincenzo over Cat. I don't know. Maybe.
Chill, they have the same problem that I believe that the Wolves had.
And Hart.
Wolves only had the Wolves had 2 playmakers. Like I would say 1.5 with Julius, even though you just brought him up. But like other than those 2, they didn't have anybody that could get in the key consistently.
Right.
No other guards.
Right.
And so like that's the same problem that New York has. They're like, yes, Cat is a hub for offense, but his offense has to come in a roundabout way.
But can we make an argument, Ron, that this was Cat's? And I say this even with respect to the Denver series. I could make an argument this was his best series he's ever played.
It was his best series ever. It was,
but that's what I'm saying, Penn. Do you think he's carrying? I think this was his best series all the way around.
No,
even in the Denver series, y'all got to remember.
What about against Denver?
Everybody remembers them winning the series, but Cat had some true struggles over the course of that series. Right. I think Cat had a bad game But for the most part, he was a 24 and 12 player relatively consistently, and I think
And
he
a
was
criminal in defense.
yeah. But I'm saying, but like that, but he also
he wasn't a criminal in defense against Denver.
But
exactly, not at all. Matter of
but
fact, a positive.
But I think the issue is that
That's true.
That in that situation, and this is where I think everything in the context matters. Of like, I don't know how much better he played relative to. I think Rudy Gobert and Jaden
series.
Yeah, he looked better because of the personnel around him.
Right,
absolutely.
right.
But he wasn't killing.
But
his
he
team
also
defense.
looks better against Indiana because of their defensive personnel.
Well,
that also matters too.
Well, Mitchell Robinson made it work though. You know, Mars, they were cooking for a little bit. You know, they just
have any of y'all played soccer? I'm just curious. Yeah, you have. Sure. Okay, perfect. So soccer is.
Do we have an all-star?
When I say I play basketball, I get looks, but now.
Okay, cool. So
really good at
soccer is a weak link sport, right? Specifically, like you make 8 good.
Get her off the floor, chill.
You make 8 good passes, and you have a player who can't extend that. You turn the ball over, right? So soccer has always come down to who is your weakest link. You just can't play players who are really bad. With basketball, historically, you've been able to get away with players who are bad, right? If you have the best player, you could usually get away with it. So basketball used to be a strong link sport. And I think with how complicated offenses have gotten and how advanced defenses have gotten, it is now transitioned to a weak link sport. To the point where what I'm trying to say to anybody who thinks that I'm yapping right now, it used to come down to who had the best player. I think it's now come down to who doesn't have the worst player.
Yeah, this was trending on Twitter over the weekend. I agree with you.
Yeah, I feel like cool. We're having such revisionist history.
It's nice to catch up to what I said a month ago, but you know.
But even like that's, I don't agree with that. I don't think that it's ever been about just strictly who's had the best player, because we've seen LeBron lose a multitude of times. He was the best player on the court.
Okay, but
I think LeBron throughout our timeline proves that point. To be
how many times did LeBron lose a series? How many times did LeBron lose a series where he was the best player on the court?
Every time.
No, 07,
anytime he lost to
07,
Golden State,
San Antonio.
Yeah, don't you lie.
Okay, and then
anytime he lost to Golden State,
and then the second part,
San Antonio,
how many
lost
times?
to Dallas.
How many? The second, but he wasn't the best player on the court against Dallas.
No.
How many?
Real talk. No, he wasn't. It was clearly better. Don't do that. And Wade was
no. Dirk Wade
was better.
Yes.
Dwayne Wade played better.
The series isn't played on paper. It's about who's the best performing player within the series.
So actually, who performed the best?
I can argue you the fourth best player in that series.
I'm gonna be honest. I thought that was just a logical understanding. I thought it
is a logical understanding, Mars.
Yeah, if I say when was LeBron the best player on the court?
James is better than Wade.
I'm not saying on paper LeBron's the best player, even though he doesn't play like it.
A team did win.
I thought that was just logical to understand.
Wade played better than him.
But hang on, the team did get to the finals with Kendrick Perkins as the starting center. That's not happening anymore. A team did play. A team did play Jason Capono. Hold on, Joel Anthony. Joel Anthony is a starting center. That happened, right? Tristan Thompson.
Y'all just look at scoring.
Look, I'm not.
Well, no. Wait, to Penn's point though, what big? To Penn's point, Ron, what big that is that much of an offensive liability that can make the finals as a starting center and not be an elite defender.
We haven't seen it.
But even then,
no.
Because Rudy Gobert ain't been in no finals.
Okay, you brought
up to play with Ray Allen.
He's way better.
With the answer,
I think I can make a legit argument that Rudy
Kevon Looney.
Well,
if you have an elite big three outside of that, you can get away with it.
What I will say is to push back on
Perkins can start for the Thunder right now, and they will make the finals.
No, wait, no.
The Thunder.
He's lying.
I'm not lying. If Kendrick Perkins played for the Thunder right now, they would still. They would have lost.
Ron, I'm trying not to yell like this.
I mean, maybe it's like maybe you're starting out of respect.
I think they wouldn't have got out of the Denver series with Kendrick Perkins starting. I think they would not have gotten out of that series.
I promise
they wouldn't have been all right.
They
literally would have.
You take Hartenstein out that lineup and put Kendrick Perkins in that lineup.
But chill.
Better, Ron.
If they were in
that,
wait. I never said they were better. I said
but they don't get out of the series. But Ron,
remember? Who's the better defender though,
say,
Perkins or Hartenstein
in the modern NBA?
Who's just the better defender?
I think y'all doing Perk wrong.
I think Kendrick Perkins is a better defender for the late 2000s.
Hold on.
But we're asking him to
so
play in 2025.
disrespectful to put
Kendrick Perkins
Kevon
played in
Looney
an
and Kendrick
early.
Perkins
He
tops.
played in the mid.
He's so much
mid
better.
2010s.
Kendrick
though.
Perkins was done by the time.
Who did Isaiah
But he-
Hartenstein
but-
turn?
So the Thunder just didn't have a center. They just were.
He was by the time the early 2010s was over. Kendrick Perkins was done. By the time we got to 2013, 2014, Kendrick Perkins was done.
Yeah, but he started for the Thunder
13
when they made
years
finals
ago.
runs.
13 years ago.
I understand
The league is
that. We're talking about his career.
Yeah,
He
and I'm
started
saying-
for the
and you said
Thunder.
you could put him on the Thunder today.
He started
2025.
for the.
Wait,
I'm talking
we
about
remember
him
that he
when
was in the
started
league
for the
in
Thunder.
2016, right?
So
You-
2012 Kendrick
For the
Perkins.
Pelicans. We remember this.
Hey,
Like, we saw him.
2012 Kendrick Perkins.
2012,
You understand how
bad Kendrick Perkins was?
This is Kendrick Perkins, who had been in the league. If I'm not
No,
mistaken,
Pen, I don't.
For like 10 years at that
I
point. No,
do.
not 10. Like 8 or 9 years at that point in 2012 that he had been in the league. Because I think he showed up in like 2000.
But hold on,
He
but
came
chill.
in like
But I guess
he came
because I don't. Ron has kind of moved us to a separate point. Chill. I want to. The main point is Mars brought up another example in Kevon Looney, but Mars, I think the counter pushback to that, which is not it's an educational counter of like further conversation, not like dumb point. But 22, I also think they ran into an extremely favorable schedule through the West, and then once he came to the finals, he was basically virtually off the court. Even Rob Will was an even much better version of Kevon Looney. He struggled massively,
but yeah,
in that series. So don't
you
you think
even Hartenstein, we saw his
please-
minutes diminish against the Timberwolves.
Okay.
Hartenstein was playing like what 20 minutes a game, maybe. Like his minutes are going down. Like,
Isaiah Hartenstein, Kevon Looney, Kendrick Perkins. Don't compare these players, please, for the love of God. People who weren't around might believe you and think Kendrick Perkins is a really good player. He's not.
Hold on for a second, Pen. Ron, tell me right here, right now, what is Kendrick Perkins doing on his 24-25 team that they still rolling? Go.
I just want to know, and I know you guys are obviously going to say, "Oh, murder in NBA."
No,
He's a masseuse. He would be a masseuse. He would be the ball boy.
And they extend defenses and do this.
What the
I
hell
just
are we
want to
doing?
know how come every single year that Kendrick Perkins was in the NBA and he started as a center, they went deep into the playoffs.
in the 2000s
Finals,
and early
Western
2010s.
conferences. I acknowledge that, Swiper. I just want to know if he was such a dinosaur and he was so bad. Why did every team?
I just said
deep
Kendrick
into the
Perkins was
playoffs?
good for the era he played in.
I know, and what I'm trying to, and I acknowledge that with the first thing I said when I did the hand with what you guys are saying. I don't think it's that hard to be as a center to be a dirty work, rebounding, and defense guy. That's
100%.
That's what these guys are, and we see them in the NBA today.
It may not be, Ron. Sure, it may not be. But what happens when there's other stuff that comes in? Because we're talking about a starting center here. We ain't talking about a rotation.
And we're talking about the Oklahoma City Thunder, who are elite
100%.
on the perimeter.
Yes, they
have
are.
All right,
four
chill. Wait,
perimeter
real quick,
defenders.
because chill. I want to know.
I didn't say he could play for everybody. I said the Thunder.
This is the
So-
Same reason you could
NBA.
start Andre Roberson.
Wait, chill. What?
He's
I'm
not
asking
Andre
you
Roberson,
specifically,
though.
chill. I'm asking chill specifically. What is it that Isaiah Hartenstein does that Kendrick Perkins in 2009, 2010 couldn't do?
Shoot the
number one, I
basketball,
think-
score.
No,
I'm asking chill.
defensively.
I'm asking chill.
Ignore
Hey, wait. And Isaiah Hartenstein's got a banger now. Where'd that come from?
He shot some threes. He's missed all of them I've seen, but he shot some threes.
I'm not
Okay,
even
well,
talking
Spin,
about
what are
it.
you talking about, bro?
I'm
What are
not
you
even
talking about?
talking
Shooting the
about
ball.
it. He
Like
has
Isaiah
touch
I don't care what he
from
can
15
do. He ain't shooting shit.
Hold on, he has touch from 15 feet, which means he can actually space the floor.
He has a
You actually
6
have to
foot
guard
floater.
him.
He has a 6 foot floater that I love.
6
I
foot?
love that 6 foot
No.
floater.
12. It's
He's
about-
shooting from the free throw
All right,
line.
it's
6
about
foot.
15 feet.
So chill.
To
What
answer
is
your
it? What
question-
is it that he could do that he can't do?
To answer your question, I think Hartenstein shifts defenses a lot more. I think Hartenstein is better on the perimeter. I think Hartenstein is better in switches. I think Hartenstein is better on the glass as a gang rebounder, even as an individual rebounder. I think he's better on the glass.
I don't think he's definitely not better on the glass.
I think he's a better passer. I think he's better in transition. I definitely think he's a better connector in terms of a passer.
How don't he be doing that in
That's
transition?
going on, Ron. I don't know what.
Well, I'm trying not to interrupt. Chill. I'm just adding to his point.
100%.
Shit, I think you just naming a lot of things, and I don't see where he's actually better at these things. I think
Well, he
like,
those things.
hold on, Swiper. Let me.
I know, but
let's
I want him to
get to
answer
the bottom of this
question because
before we change.
But I was being quiet respectfully for a reason. But I want to add.
Okay, so why you can't keep being quiet?
You hush. So what I was saying
talking
is,
and you want to butt in and change the conversation.
Now because they said blanketly put him on OKC.
Go ahead.
They said blankly put him on OKC, Chill. Now, they just played Memphis, Denver, Wolves. Chill. Now put Perk in for Hart in the Denver series. That went 7, mind you. What changes in that series? Because that's the series they played in.
Didn't y'all lose in 7?
I'm gonna be honest. I actually like Perkins against Denver more than I like.
Then y'all lose earlier than 7. Y'all don't make it to
that
7
zone
games.
they were playing.
Especially with AG hurt, and they put Kendrick Perkins instead of Hart. See, this backfired, Swiper. You thought you was on to something. Y'all damn near losing 5. Y'all damn near losing 5.
A zone defense with Perkins in the middle of it.
I'm talking about prime Kendrick Perkins. I'm talking about 23, 24-year-old Kendrick Perkins.
I think he.
I'm not talking about old slow Kendrick Perkins. I'm talking about younger 2007, 2008, 2009, 2011.
I think he lunch against Joker. I do. I think he's lunch against Joker.
ACL.
But it's their offense goes
right.
Their offense falls apart though.
He's the one that got hurt in 09, right?
Yes, it don't revolve around Hart.
It falls off.
Cliff.
Do you realize what they're doing? They're trapping and you're short rolling with Kendrick Perkins. Are you crazy?
You just cooked yourself on some shit you didn't.
No, I did it. That's what
you interrupted our conversation.
No, that's literally why Hart is so good.
Sometimes
directly because of that.
You
couldn't do that with Kendrick Perkins. That's just facts. Respectfully,
but they do it without Hart. Hart's not the only one that plays in the short roll. I'm not saying he can't play in the short roll, but
the short roll is extra utility, but they don't need Isaiah Hartenstein in the short roll because, quite frankly, that means Isaiah Hartenstein is really only effective in the middle of the floor. We saw that against Denver. Like when he's on the baseline, them floaters don't go in. So like he's only effective in one area of the court. So like that spacing he provides.
That's not true though, Mars, because he can supplement that.
How many of them baseline floaters you see him make?
Okay, the floaters aren't the only thing because he's a lob threat too. Let's take that.
I'm talking about spacing. That was Penn's point about out to 50.
He shot 46% from 3 for a year.
It's only, that spacing is only provided from the middle of the court. That's it. The rebounds and the offensive like those things like that's cool, but that's not spacing.
It's true. He shot 14 for 30. What the hell do you want from him? He shot 14 threes. That's 14 more than
what that got to do with today?
I'm trying to tell you, he has really good touch.
Well, I don't care what he got. If you don't use it, you lose it. If you don't use it, you lose it. I don't care what you're not doing on the basketball court. I can do this. Do it.
You didn't make one of them.
Man, this is why PG's a special player. You can argue,
but they look nice when he shot.
2025. This is why it's a great place, man.
Yes, if we're talking about Isaiah Hartenstein, you act like who's Isaiah Hartenstein? You want to put him up?
This conversation
this level, he's not. Isaiah is dope, but we're not going to.
I still think he's better than Kendrick Perkins. I just think in the Denver series,
this conversation.
I think they lost that series pretty handily.
This conversation went left because we're talking about what team can have this deep of a playoff run and go to the NBA Finals without a big man that does something elite. Kevon Looney, we
was actually talking about the weak link thing. Remember,
right? And
we were
right. And the weak link is the 5-man. So can we not?
Would he make the Lakers better?
Can we not forget that? Can we not forget that we were talking about? We call it Kevon Looney. Would he make the Lakers better?
I remember. Conference Finals MVP,
right?
Conference Finals MVP,
right? That was going on when he was doing that. Now
he does do better too.
I think that he does do that at an elite level. Now Kendrick Perkins, for all intents and purposes, is a damn good defender. But if we're gonna fast forward him into 2025 and we're gonna drop him into 2025, how much spacing there is, how much now he has to move those puppies, how he's gonna get mismatch hunted. Way more than he did.
Bro, I'm not gonna hold it, bro.
Way more than he did back then when he was only relegated to covering the 5 or the 4. He didn't have to cover in space nearly as much as he had to back then as he would have to today. And Kendrick Perkins ain't exactly the most fleet of foot big. So let's make sure that we clear on that, right? So with that being said, if he's playing today, Ron, and he's on that Oklahoma City team, they are not the same. They are not better. They they're not rolling the way that they're rolling, as opposed to when Hartenstein is in the
I bet they in the finals.
Here's the thing, man.
They in the finals.
No,
I know
I
that.
don't think so.
I know that.
Yeah, he's the water boy.
Hey, shave off a couple points off that historic defense. If you want to.
But their
off a couple
offense is
points.
worse though.
Cool.
That matters.
Ron, swipe in pin are upset because KP said, because Kendrick Perkins said that Joker wouldn't want to see him young, so they can't forgive him for that.
What he says about
these dudes are mad about Kendrick.
They've already played.
He talking about he'll be the water boy and shit. Come on, bro.
They
Let's
played
move on.
against each other.
Not
Why would
in the
I
NBA
care about that?
today.
They were in the
He
league.
was a
Pelicans Perkins.
Yeah,
Look, man,
they played together.
I hate to tell people who have favorable memories of guys like Jason Capono.
No,
Andre
I just know basketball. I just know basketball. You don't have to have a floater to be good. You don't have to be able to shoot threes to be good.
You clearly don't.
No, hey, the traditional big can still play today. And we've seen it with people running double big lineups. Just a few months ago, you guys were telling me that two teams can't play big. You were just telling me that can't happen.
Bro,
I've seen the Knicks run and Cat and Mitchell Robinson in the same lineup.
But who said that you can't play Mitchell Robinson?
Yeah,
I just said they should.
I don't know if I'm on Penn's side or Sniper's side, but my argument is Isaiah Hartenstein is already his minutes are going.
I'm not wait, but
I think Hartenstein's better than Perkins in the
water boy. I'm just saying it would be.
And he's becoming less valuable as the playoffs go on.
Which means
that's my argument.
But
my argument is I think Isaiah Hartenstein is better in the modern NBA than Kendrick Perkins. I think Kendrick Perkins was really good for his time. An elite post defender, a bruising big, good on the glass, both sides of the ball, and he could protect the rim. I think he was really good for his time. Now in the modern NBA, I think he's asked to do different things, and I don't think that's his skill set. And I don't care because he was in his prime 17 years ago. I think I'd be stupid to say, oh well, he's not as good today. That means he's not that good. I think that's a stupid point to make. But in today's game, I think Isaiah Hartenstein, yes, is more valuable, and for OKC, I think he's more valuable. But his minutes are going down as the playoffs go on. So if Isaiah Hartenstein is becoming less valuable as the playoffs go on, this series against the Pacers, I expect his minutes to go down even further. Then yes, I think Kendrick Perkins' minutes have to go down.
I think our Hart's minutes are gonna go up.
No, I think that defense is gonna be a problem. I think they're gonna run with the Caruso lineup a lot more than they're gonna go with Hartenstein. I understand the value he brings on the offensive glass. I understand that value. I just don't think that offsets the fact that you don't want to have Chet and Hartenstein having to defend in space as much as they're gonna have to against the Pacers. So I think you go with Shea, J-Dub, Caruso, Dort, and Chet. That's your majority lineup. You probably still start Hartenstein because that's what they do. But like I expect Hartenstein 17, 18 minutes a game. That's what I expect. But Kendrick Perkins would be like, what, 12 minutes a game? Like, you could still start him if you want, I guess. Like, have him starting out of like, yeah, you're starting. But like, he's not going to be their heavy minute big. But Hartenstein's not the heavy minute big. That's my point. So,
I mean, part of that's because they got checked too.
Exactly.
I mean,
exactly.
I agree with that, Mars. I'm just saying, like, just to say that he will be, and once again, I'm not even making an argument that he would be that they would be better with Perkins instead of iHeart. I'm just saying you can put Perkins next to Chet Holmgren, might I add, where Chet can guard centers, or you can flip-flop it the same way that they do with iHeart, where they mismatch on defense to put these guys in favorable. They put these guys in favorable situations. So you guard this guy over here who's not a floor spacer, and you're able to roam a little bit.
Bro,
so they can do
am
that.
I in the Twilight Zone? What are we doing here? Kendrick Perkins minutes in 2025.
So y'all come up here and argue that this is the best defense that we've ever seen, but you can't put a defender like Kendrick Perkins out there. So how are they? So how are they the best defense you've ever seen? But you can't.
Oh my God, he's not a good decision maker. He is not a good scorer. He does not have good touch. I'm sorry.
On defense, we're
talking
on
defense alone,
defense, and I'm just going to scheme him off the court. Okay, I'm going to put you.
How you got Casey Wallace? You got Lou Dort. You got all these guys that you've been arguing are the best defenders in the league. You got Shea. You said Shea should make all defense.
So why
right?
am I taking an offensive liability? Why do I need an offensive liability at this
time? The reason why
nastiest part of this
who's the offensive liability
is you are trying to Kendrick Perkins.
Okay.
No, the nastiest part of this conversation is you are comparing him to Isaiah Hartenstein.
I'm not comparing him. I said you can put him over there in place of iHeart. I'm not comparing nobody. No, I'm not.
Okay,
I said this team.
No.
I
can replace you with a host.
This is how the debate started.
This is
how this started.
Come on, man.
Penn said you can't win with weak links. He was saying that the weakest link would get played off the floor and all of that good stuff, right?
It's
And
hard.
then he
That's
went,
why pressure
and
can
then
still
he
can't
went,
play.
to, and then he brought up Kendrick Perkins. You can't win with Kendrick Perkins.
Oh my
I
goodness.
simply said that you can put Kendrick Perkins on this Thunder team. He can start. And once again, I'm not saying he has to play all 48 minutes. He could play 15 to 22 minutes, the same exact minutes that iHeart's playing, and this team will still be in the NBA Finals.
So,
They
Ron,
would
Why?
never do
Because their
that.
defense and their team is that good
Yeah.
Ron.
outside of iHeart.
Ron,
Right.
I got news for you. They could play you 3 minutes and probably still win a championship. It doesn't mean
Because
you're
I
an
play
NBA
defense.
player. It
Because
doesn't
I
mean
play
you're an NBA
deep.
player.
You damn right they
Like,
would.
based on
So,
what I've
first
seen
of all,
against
Isaiah Hartenstein
Jermaine,
is
I
the
don't
top
know.
Hey, well,
15
Pete, if that's the
top
case,
15
you just
center.
prove Ron's point. If he could play, then Perkins could play. Can we move on?
That is not the
If
point.
the,
The-
that
the-
is, I mean,
the
if that
point that I
if
was
they're that
saying is
good
that
that
that's
anybody up here could play a couple minutes, then
Well,
Kendrick
not
Perkins could play
anybody
a
up
couple
here.
minutes
No,
too.
no, no
All
disrespect
right.
to myself and Mars. We are a little bit too small to be
I
playing in
got
the NBA.
bars.
Shit,
got
I done
Muggsy
got buckets. I done got
had a
buckets
plus
with
10-year
Mars.
career. Muggsy Bogues had a plus 10-year career.
Ron,
I'm
Ron, to counter your point when you talk
He's
about
I'm
how,
full of
so
Muggsy.
if you got Kendrick Perkins in this lineup with Kendrick Perkins, Wallace, let's say Dort, Caruso, Kendrick Perkins, Dort, Caruso, Wallace, and SGA, right? That's the lineup that you
That's a
have.
criminal.
Get
lineup
Chet out
right
there. Get Chet out there.
You're right. So what I'm gonna do if I'm Rick Carlisle, okay, because I want to play fast, I want to speed the game up, right? So I got Pascal Siakam on the floor, I got Bryant on the floor, I got Tyrese Halliburton on the floor, I got Mathurin on the floor. So that's the five that I have on the floor, and I'm doing everything that I can to run. And like I just told you, Kendrick Perkins is not exactly the most fleet of foot. And this is in 2012. Right, this is in 2000. I didn't say Miles Turner. Miles Turner is off the floor. No, I don't have Miles
Okay,
Turner.
well, if Miles Turner's off the floor,
Yeah.
we take
You
him
are
off the
not.
floor.
Stop putting Kendrick Perkins in conversations with guys who are legit starters in today's NBA. It's crazy. First of all, Isaiah Hartenstein is really good, so I don't like that comparison. I would like to ask y'all a real question. I don't want to drag too much time on this, but I just need to understand: is Kendrick Perkins today better than? Not today. Is Kendrick Perkins in his prime better today than Luka Garza?
Ron, come on, bro. Move on.
No.
Luka Garza, my
do
goat.
today,
Luka
bro.
Garza,
Come
my
on,
goat.
man.
Luka
He's
clear.
not even being serious.
Is he better than?
I told you he's mad. He's mad at
Hold on.
Kendrick Perkins takes because he's
I
not
don't
talking
give a shit about
basketball
Kendrick
right now.
Perkins takes.
Ron,
The
please.
joke on you,
I'm
Ox, is you think
begging
I
you,
care
bro.
about Kendrick
I'm
Perkins?
begging
Luka Garza is one
begging
of the
you,
worst
Ron.
defensive players. I've
Pin,
ever seen.
you know how early you got to wake up to make me the butt of one of your corny ass jokes? Ron, please. I'm begging you.
I didn't make you, but
I cannot
it's-
handle
it's-
this, dog.
it's-
I cannot handle
Luka
this.
Garza
right now.
clears on offense.
We
but
don't
he's so
got
bad
to keep talking about
defensively,
Kendrick
I don't know.
Perkins. We don't got to keep
All right.
talking about Kendrick
All right,
Perkins. bro.
fellas,
Come on.
right quick, before we talk more about Kendrick Perkins, I want to talk more about Prize Picks and how when you play $5, you will instantly get 50 back in promo funds, but only when you use promo code PANEL. Yes, it's so quick, it's so easy, it's so simple that we did it right here and right now for you guys. This is how we rocking for game one of the NBA Finals, y'all. Hey, we're going to have a gang of contests, and we are going to show you guys every day. But this is the first one we got. We got J-Dub and Nimhart going less than 9.5 assists. We got iHeart and Pascal Siakam going more than 13 rebounds. And if that was Kendrick Perkins, that'd probably be like 18 instead of iHeart. But that's neither here nor there. We got Lou Dort and we got Neesmith combining for more than 4 threes. And then we got Obi Toppin just getting a dunk. It's that easy. It's that simple. That's how we rock it for game one. Y'all let us know how y'all feel about that. But make sure that you download the PrizePicks app and make sure you use promo code PANEL. Oh, and also, it's the playoffs. And these two fellas right here are trying to figure out, how do I get in the game? It's the NBA Finals. We got 2 superstar point guards, one who obviously clears, but 2 superstar point guards. And then we also have the best offense versus the best defense. How do I get in the stadium to watch this game? Well, it's really kind of actually easy. You got to download the Gametime app because, well, Gametime makes getting tickets faster and easier, even for NBA Finals games that are hard to get in. The prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer you get to tip off. They have killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seats before you buy them, and they have the lowest prices guaranteed. The Gametime app really just takes the guesswork out of buying NBA playoff tickets. So you take the guesswork out of buying NBA playoff tickets and download the Gametime app. Create an account, use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but y'all already know In the words of my man Big Ox, who gives a damn about a goddamn term? Get $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. We'll see you guys in Indiana. Now, back to what we were saying about.
I do want to ask. I
make
want to
sure people
ask
read the terms, by the way.
Pen, and Mars. I know he like talked about this sentiment also. Like this weakest link, or like the importance of not having the best player, but I suppose the meaning is what, a better team?
No,
what does it mean?
It's about the consequence of having an actual weak link that you cannot hide. So I'll give you plenty of evidence for this, and it's happening more and more every year. Your Lakers refusing to play a single bench player. Jackson Hayes could certainly play 15 years ago and be perfectly hidden and be perfectly fine. But right now, he's so much of an offensive liability, so much sometimes of an overrated defender at times in certain switches, that he just does not make sense for your offense. The impact is too hard. Look at Jalen Brunson. Every round, his minutes went down. We can all agree Jalen Brunson is the best offensive player on the Knicks, but defensively, they couldn't hide him. And they had plenty of personnel to do it. Josh Hart's a decent defender. Mikal Bridges is a decent defender. OG's a great defender. They couldn't hide him. They could not hide him because Indiana was just picking him apart. So they had to stagger his minutes with Cat. I mean, Karl-Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson getting played off the floor 15, 20 years ago, unheard of. Unheard of. What offense could have done that to them? Very few. So I'm just saying, when you look at it from that perspective, you simply cannot play bad decision makers who turn the basketball over, non-shooters, non-spacers who aren't playing. You look at a guy like Ben Simmons. I swear to God, there's so many examples of guys who are teetering on edge of out of the league that could start 25 years ago. People don't want to hear that. People really don't want to hear that. But you can't be one-dimensional anymore. Look at a guy like Lou Dort shooting 40% from three. What do? They run him off the line. Now what? No midi pull-up? Not a great decision maker in those situations. Not a great playmaker. Not, the great floater range. So they're playing him to his weaknesses. I just think coaching has gotten to a new level.
But he's playing, though, and he's on the team.
He is playing because the defensive impact and the shooting is enough.
Yeah,
right. That's why I'm confused, because for the Knicks, you brought up Jalen Brunson, and I'm like, Jalen Brunson is considered a weak link for the Knicks.
Of course, absolutely. He's the worst. He was the worst. He was the worst. Yeah.
Same reason why Luke was a weak link on defense for the Lakers.
But you know what? Real talk, I think the point that he's making is that you being a weak link
in the regular season,
you being a weak link, your floor doesn't outlast whatever you do good. And as good as Jalen Brunson is, as a distributor, I mean, as a scorer, as good as he is that he's worse as a defender, and we can exploit that way more than him being a bucket getter. We can, that's
but he's not though.
Well, I'm not saying Brunson wasn't hurting the Brunsons didn't have the Knicks don't have a better chance of winning without Brunson as opposed to with Brunson. But Brunson being out there, and because he has to be out there for 36, 37 minutes a game. That's 37 minutes a game where you can exploit him defensively.
And also, Mars, so it also leads into the Josh Hart minutes. Josh Hart's on the floor too much, as people are saying. Well, he kind of has to be. You know what I mean? Like Mitchell Robinson's on the floor a lot more than
I would have just played Deuce.
He kind of has to be. Now, some people, that's what you would go to, but I think that's the problem. It's like when you have a limited defensive skill set, not even skill set, he can't defend. He's not Trae Young. But he really can't defend, not at this level, not in the playoff, not versus the Pacers. So I think that functionally changed the rest of the roster too. They had to play certain guys they felt like because they couldn't do it.
Some people you got to put different lines.
What you guys just said really quickly, Penn. But what you guys just said. Okay, so he can't defend. As good as he is as a bucket getter, he can't defend, which makes him worse.
So he's not worse, Chill.
The longer
he is. He'd be better if he was a good defender.
The longer he's out there, the longer he's out there, the more we have an advantage because the more we can go after him, and that affects his offense.
Well, it just depends on the team. Like not every
team.
Yeah,
but the Knicks wouldn't. But for example, the Knicks wouldn't be in a better spot if they just took all of Brunson's minutes and gave them to DeLon Wright.
No, I'm not saying that.
No, so he's still overwhelmingly helping the team. It's just he's giving back some of that value on defense. Luka gives back some of the value he brings on offense on defense. Jokic in the regular season in particular gave back what he was bringing on offense on defense. In the postseason, I actually think he upped the level of defensive intensity to where he wasn't just the overwhelming weak link. I think MPJ became the weak link on the Nuggets, but that's besides the point. So when you look at it, like that's where I'm at. It's like even the best player on the team can be the weak link
Right.
for the opposing team on defense or offense. Like Rudy Gobert is the perfect example. He's a tremendous defensive player, but his offense is so bad that he becomes the weak link sometimes because he's so bad offensively, and that's why his minutes tend to go down. That he gets to hurting the team, or the team can't perform at optimal levels because of how bad he is offensively. I think it's easier to recognize when it's a great defender who's limited offensively, a Rudy Gobert or Andre Roberson, as opposed to the great offensive player who's limited defensively because the offense is like, oh my God, it's offense. So it's easier to say Rudy Gobert can get played off the court as opposed to Trae Young can get played off the court. So I'll use the defender as an example, but Rudy Gobert is an example of that, where if you're a weak link, no matter how great you are,
that's because we've established that individual defense isn't as valuable as individual.
Of course, but and I agree with that. But what I'm saying is, even though I think individual offense is more valuable than individual defense, the individual offensive player who's a bad defender is giving back a lot more of that value today than I think they would have 10, 15 years ago. An example, and real talk, you might like this, because you know I'm the Steve Nash glazer up here.
Yes, sir.
Steve Nash in today's game would be a lot better offensively than he was in the 2000s. Because I think he would just be given more freedom. However, defensively, he would be the worst defender in the NBA. And that would get exploited so badly that in terms of cumulative value, it might be somewhere similar to what he was 15, 20 years ago. Because defensively, even though he was terrible back then, the mismatch hunting wasn't as prevalent. The fact that you could hide Steve Nash on a weaker offensive, like he played the Spurs, he's guarding Bruce Bowen. Like you live with that. They're not going to run guard to guard screens to get switches on Ginobili. That's not really going to happen. So the defensive liability that he wasn't as exploited as it would be today. In today's game, Steve Nash would get brought into every single action and would just get fried into oblivion. So the fact that he would be a better offensive player in today's game wouldn't ultimately make him a better player because of how damaging he'd be defensively. And I think that's a perfect example of what today's game entails.
Which it is 100%, Mars. So with that also being said, a guy like Rudy Gobert, when he is as bad as he is offensively, okay, he comes off the floor and you can supplement him with that. Well, Brunson is still on the floor as bad as he is defensively.
Because he has to because of his offense.
100%. And that and with him getting hunted, that affects his offense because now he's getting worn down. Now he's not shooting the ball as good as he can. Now he's not distributing as well as he can. And the reason why he's not doing that because we're constantly after him.
Well, they don't allow him to get. Well, I think it's my framework's actually even distinctively different than that, though. Chill.
Sure.
In this era, being the weak link to Penn's point, and defensively, especially for the Brunson case, it's not even about attacking Brunson. It's about overcompensating for not allowing them to attack Brunson and what that then does to the rest of the team. It gets everybody else off balance. So when you're showing, for instance, SGA is very similar. Honestly, they do similar things for SGA defensively, but they do it for different reasons. SGA, keep him out of the action because we just don't want him to get exhausted because he's our primary ball handler and our primary scorer. We have other players that can do it, but they'll show and recover with him. But the difference is with Brunson, you're showing and recovering with a much worse defensive personnel, and he's not as good. And he's not as good at showing and helping and then getting back to a spot as SGA is. So it's not a negative with SGA because it just doesn't matter. Brunson, the team is worse. He's worse at it, and he's smaller. So now when Brunson goes to step up, they're throwing the ball to the middle. They're throwing the ball to the wing. Now we got your entire backline defense on rotation. Or now Brunson settle one-on-one. Okay, but then now I can kind of go at him and do whatever. But honestly, Chill, for me in this era, it's a bigger issue that when you're trying to protect a player defensively, that you can't protect around that player behind them. And I think that's where the Luka conversation for me actually becomes one. Real talk, when the Mavericks, he got blown by last year in the finals. All right, there's Derek Lively sitting right here. It looks bad. It looks horrible. But the reason why our defense can survive because we're throwing P.J. Washington and Derek Lively and Gafford and this year Najee Marshall. Whereas when you got the Lakers, now you're trying to protect, but the best rim protector behind him is LeBron. And LeBron can't do that no more. And so that's why the defense looks horrible. So I think you have to have the infrastructure defensively to protect those players. I don't think the Knicks have that.
I'm confused because I don't feel like this is anything new. I don't feel like we're discovering something like, oh my goodness, you need versatility on your roster to make it through deep playoff runs. I think we've already all known this. I think one thing to me that's been shown is more matchup dependent than anything. I feel like there are a lot of really good teams in the league, It's just depending on who you run into. I think that the Knicks, for example, beating the Celtics, who everybody had at least coming out the East, if not repeating.
Sure.
Right? And then losing to the Pacers, to me, doesn't show like, oh, the Knicks have like this exploitable roster. It's like, no, they just ran into a bad matchup.
Why is Dwight Howard not in the
Well,
NBA?
both. I think it's both.
He's old,
No.
but I think
Yes, he's old.
I think
He's
real
old.
talk. I think real talk's right. The playoffs is all about matchups. Something again I've been saying for a while. Swiper I know has been saying it, so I agree with that point as well. And I don't. My point about the weak link thing is not about this is a new revelation of the NBA. Someone said it in the chat that it's not new. It's been underrated. Yes, I think maybe now more than ever people are understanding how detrimental having a weak link on either
Why
side of the
though?
ball is.
There's a difference though. But why though, Mars? Because you just brought up the point where
Because they're seeing teams without the best player beat teams with the best player routinely.
and the reason why is
a lot of
routinely.
people can't seem
And
a lot of people can't seem to fathom that concept.
Yeah.
It's like
I know it's crazy.
Routinely.
so, but I
Knicks
think
is one of them.
people
He's
are trying to find a reason for it, which sometimes it leads to people thinking outside the box, which is quick.
Me
But like
as one
the
of them.
weak link stuff, I do think is real. But
The
go ahead.
Knicks series is the perfect example of this. If you look at a player like Landry Shamet, right? Not spectacular, very unassuming. You know, a lot of people think he's washed. He's not very good. We've never talked about Landry Shamet as a star, but what does he do? He establishes a solid floor offensively and defensively. He's not a complete pylon on defense, and he can shoot on offense, and he can put the ball on the floor, and he can do a lot of stuff. He's not a complete liability with passing the ball. He doesn't have tunnel vision. So he's just a solid player. So I think the argument is way back when you could have a player who was maybe 80th percentile offense and 30th percentile defense, and they could be fine. Today, you prefer a player who might be 65th percentile as offensively and defensively, as opposed to that more one-way player because you can't get schemed. And I think I used to call it the Titanic theory when it came to defense and offense, which is, you know, in Titanic, there was that scene where they say like, oh, if 4 compartments flood, she can stay afloat. But if the 5th compartment, she capsizes, right? So that's the point. When you look at offense and defense, I look at Jalen Brunson. I saw last year, he was a bit of a liability. But now you add Karl-Anthony Towns to that. Boom. There goes your boat.
Well, still the point. I still think when y'all talking about it though, like how at the beginning it was like you said typically back in the day or whatever, the best player won. And I still think regardless, it's always been the better team. Like sometimes I think having the best player can make you have a better team. But even with Jordan, like he wasn't winning until Scotty got better. And then when in that third repeat, when they had Dennis, they had Tony, you know what I'm saying, all those dudes. So it wasn't just like it was that's what I'm saying. Like that team was better than Utah. You know what I'm saying? Like it wasn't just the best player. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, Shaq was better than J Kidd, better than Reggie, better than AI, but he had Kobe too. He had fish sticks. He had five. You know what I'm saying? They had their team was better. You know what I'm saying? Like all I think. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I think more often than not, it's still the best team. It just happens to be that the best player is also on the best team.
But
you know what I mean? So the better team always wins. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's what I was getting confused.
My point. No, Chill's been waiting to go. Go ahead, Chill, and then I'll respond to what.
Well, to what you were saying, Mars, when you were talking about being able to hide Jalen Brunson, I just think we live in a different space when it comes to players because a lot of these players are so much more advanced in terms of their skill set. So in terms of hiding Jalen Brunson on Bruce Bowen, well, as a defender, my first job is to do my job. Like I can't help you do your job until I do my job. So now if we got a bunch of other offensive players out here who are really good, it's going to be even more difficult for me to help you do your job because I got my hands full with this guy over here, right? So when we get to the point where I'm helping you, when you already a liability, now I feel like we're in an even bigger hole. And then to Penn's point, I've always lived in the ideology of my best player is better than your best player. And the reason why I felt like that is because if you can keep the game close, I'll close it. Dirk proved that in 2011. Dirk wasn't awesome throughout the course of games, but once we got to the end of the game, I'll end it. I got you covered
because of his team, though, Chill.
100%. That part I'm not going to argue. But I still need my best player to be my best player. And if I got my best player, I still need my best player to be my best player. And when he's doing that at the end of games, that's ending games.
A team full of Derek Whites isn't winning a championship.
They're not,
I
Mars.
think
That's
we
not
can agree.
happening.
I think we can agree with that.
Well, they won't be the best team.
Yeah, but my point, and to Ox's point about the best players had the best teams back in the day, I agree. I wasn't trying to say, oh well, nowadays having the best player means nothing. Well, I'm going to say some numbers. Imagine building a championship team is trying to build from 0 to 100, right? Like that's 100 is a championship, 0 is the Wizards. I think maybe 20, 25 years ago, having the best player in the league, probably got you 50% of the building from 0 to 100. Now, I think it maybe gets you 40% of the way to 0 to 100, where it still gets you somewhere. You're still better. You're better with Jokic than you would be without Jokic. But you need more outside of the best player now than I think you needed 25, 30 years ago. I think back then when you had Michael Jordan and Hakeem, you were 50% of the way to building a championship team. Then you needed the other 50% to come from your secondary players, your secondary stars, your role players, your coaching. Whereas now I think you need 60%. Evidence, I don't know. This is me thinking. This is what I think. The evidence I have. The evidence I guess I have is looking at who I think are probably the 2 best players in the world. Maybe the 3 with Giannis, Jokic, and Luka. I think they might be the 3 best players in the world. Maybe. If not 3 of the top 5. The Lakers roster is inherently flawed, even though they have maybe 2 top 10 players in the world. But them having 2 top 10 players in the world with an inherently flawed roster equals first round exit in a series that quite frankly wasn't that close. The Nuggets, it is a team that all year long, me and Ron were preaching, this team is not good enough. They have what I might deem the best player in the world, what I deem maybe the best offensive peak of all time, what I deem maybe a top 10 peak of all time, maybe, I don't know, top 10, 15, whatever. And their ceiling, in my opinion, was probably going to be the conference finals in terms of level of team. Now, matchups, I understand, like they might have been a better matchup in certain situations. Like maybe if they played the Timberwolves in round 2 instead of the OKC, maybe they're in the conference finals. That doesn't mean they're a better team. That's the Rotor's point about matchups. But I don't think there was a world in which the Nuggets were good enough to win a championship this year. I don't think that world existed, and they have the best player on the planet. The Bucks is a team that I think everyone knew this team weren't doing anything. Ron notwithstanding, because Ron believed in Giannis. But this was a team that before the playoffs started, once again, myself, Swiper, Penn might have been on this side. Brook Lopez is just not viable in the playoffs with his defensive shortcomings. Kyle Kuzma. I don't know what to tell you. Kyle Kuzma. Like, even with having Dame, who I deem as one of the 20 best players on the planet, we'll say 20, 25. Giannis, who I deem as one of the 3-4 best players on the planet. Even with that, what they have around them is still not good enough to get them, even for two of those teams, past the first round. Whereas I think maybe 25, 30 years ago, you have Giannis and Dame. The rest of the pieces don't matter as much. That doesn't mean they're going to win a championship. But maybe they are actually competitive in the first round against a team like the Pacers. Maybe with the Lakers, you have Luka and LeBron. Maybe the team isn't good enough to get to the championship. So not every team with the best player is good enough to get to the championship every year. I'm not saying that. But normally they're better than being destroyed, quite frankly, in the first round, which these teams have, which is where I'm like, maybe that's my evidence. I don't know.
Fair, but I'm looking back and I'm like, okay, in the 80s, the 2 teams that always got to the finals were the Celtics and the Lakers, and it was because Larry Bird and Magic had the best teams. They were the best players, but they also had the best teams. Mike, when it comes to the 90s, had the best team, especially that second 3P. But for example, Mike, before he got support, like I've said, he was getting bounced. He was the best player. He was getting bounced in the first round.
Yeah, you've always needed a team. I thought I just addressed that with what I just said. I'm not saying you can just have Michael Jordan in 1988, put a bunch of bums around him, and then you'll go into the conference finals. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, I think a bigger part, I think the superstar, the best player, was a bigger part of the equation back then than it is now. I'm not saying that you have MJ automatic conference finals. I don't think that's ever been the case in any era ever, because you still need a team. It's a team game. It's like I think I preached that for 3 years since I've been on here. It's a team sport. It's more than just one person. I just think 30 years ago, that one person was more of the equation than they can be today because of the fact of this weak link theory and the fact that I think there's more versatile role players, and like even the best player can be exploited now in a way that I don't think they were routinely back in the day. Like the only like real example you have of that is like Shaq's pick and roll defense from the late 90s. He was the best player on the team, best player on the court, but it was his flaws that were being exploited, and it was a big reason why his teams were losing. outside of that, you never really saw the best. Like you never really saw Magic's defense get exploited, and it was why the Lakers couldn't overcome. Or like Larry Bird's lack of foot speed. Like that wasn't really a big deal. Like that's not to say that you have Larry Bird, you win instantly. But I do think it led to it. It gave you a better shot now back then than it does now. Even if it's marginal, even if it is 40 to 50%. Like that, the margins are a big deal. I think we're seeing that with OKC. They dominate the margins. The Pacers dominate the margins. So if the best player gives you a slightly lesser chance than they did 30 years ago, that's a big deal because the margins make up everything when it comes to winning at the highest level. It's not just big picture. Oh, well, we have the best player. You don't. Blah blah blah. Like the margins is where winning happens, and the margins is where dominance happens. That's why OKC are the second best net rating ever, all-time dominant team, even in the postseason, because they dominate the margins. It's like.
But real talk,
the margins make the difference, and more often than not, the role players make up the margins, especially in an era where I think the best player accounts for slightly less than they did 30 years ago. So the margins mean even more.
Even if Bird did have the best team, I feel like I'm repeating myself, but I still needed my best player to be my best player. I still needed Bryant at the end of games to deliver. I still needed Shaq at the end of games to deliver. I still needed Jordan, who averaged 10 points a game in the fourth quarter during that finals run. Not that finals, that playoff run from 1991 to 1993. I still need my best player to be my best player.
Hold up right quick,
because I want Penn to fully hammer his point home about
I know what
exactly he's trying to say.
Okay, so I think Mars was really onto something when he said it accounts for 40% instead of 50%. Right? I would push it. Counts for maybe even less, but maybe you didn't want.
Yeah, I was just giving spitballing numbers.
Yeah, like I think it's probably, if it used to be 50%, maybe it's now 30, 35%. I think you need the second star. Why? To take pressure off your first star. More so, I think that's very important. I also think the other part of this that's very important is how detrimental is having a weak link.
Why today, Penn? Why do I need my second star to take pressure off because I needed that 25 years ago.
Everybody had a second star.
So let's just no. I'm not saying.
I don't think it's new. What?
No, hang on.
Let him go. Real talk. Let him go.
You want to push back just to push back, but the reality is we're not saying nobody up here is saying you didn't need stars back then or you don't need stars now. No one's saying you didn't need second stars back then. You don't need. I'm saying the importance of it has gone up. I think the other part of this is that the importance of not having a weak link has gone up as well. So it's both things pushing at the same middle, right? Like Devin George is an example of a player who didn't have a lot beyond his role player tendencies. Bruce Bowen is another example of a player who couldn't do much outside of being a corner shooter. Well, now if you're a corner shooter who can't shoot from above the break, I'm running you off the line. Good luck, right? I think the other part of this that's very, very important is the pace. The pace at which we play. It really does sort of complicate like how hard it is to play a poor decision maker or a poor defender, because now I look at what the Indiana Pacers did to this New York Knicks team, and I try to think about teams that have won championships that probably could not stop this Indiana offense. They run on everything. They have the personnel to do it. They have spacing. They have a great decision maker in Halliburton. If this exact Pacers team played in the 80s, they would be champions. I'm not trying to disrespect anyone's past or anything, but what they do is impossible to stop for that personnel back then. So that's all I'm saying is the number of possessions in a game and the speed of those possessions, the number of rotations you have to go into is going to exploit slow-footed defenders. It's going to exploit poor decision makers more so than it has in previous eras.
Because the Lakers play as fast as the Lakers play. Indiana plays fast because I saw the 76ers smoke the Lakers as fast as they played, off the strength of one guy and one guy only. Moses Malone destroyed Jabbar. I can't imagine what he would do to Turner. I think he would eat Turner's lunch, completely destroy him. No question about that. And then you got the Celtics in '84, who they very much know what it looks like. And again, Penn, we got to talk about rules too, because we live in a different space, right? So you're not able to clothesline guys and slam guys to the floor. We're not going to be able to do that. But how are you going to slow down that Laker team? You're going to slow down that Laker team by being rougher with them, by being a little bit more playground with them. That's how you're going to be able to slow them down. And if that physicality is allowed against this Indiana team, well, then you get into more of a half-court space. And I'm trying to imagine Indiana trying to defend in half-court against Bird or McHale or Parrish. I think that they'll also be put in space where they're going to have to defend too, right? Like Kevin McHale's going to be mismatch hunted. Robert Parrish is going to be mismatch hunted. I get that part. But in terms of making them play fast, I think that the Celtics would be able to slow that down with some sort of physicality. That's number 2. Number 3, when I think about the rest of the teams, I mean, the Lakers are just going to match what Indiana does. The Lakers are just going to play as fast as they do. And then with them playing as fast as they do, they got better athletes. I'm trying to imagine Pascal Siakam trying to slow down James Worthy. Holy shit.
Oh, James Worthy's having his way. But chill without the only issue I'm having is just like there's a lot of Christopher Columbus shit going on right now. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm just saying, real talk. We discovering shit that's already here. Like it's people here already. Like we ain't discovering shit.
Like to me,
you know what I'm saying? Like oh yeah, fast.
Hold on.
Well, hold on. Fast teams are fast. Pick on the weak link. Best best player. You know helps a team be better. Like we know this shit already. Like this isn't. You know we're not discovering nothing right now.
This conversation has gotten so far away from like I think the original point that it was supposed to be. But I feel like I've been saying this for over a year now that this is the way the league is now. I think the CBA.
Oh, now you're Christopher Columbus.
And the way. No, I don't. First off, Christopher Columbus is a terrorist, and he is a domestic terrorist and killed thousands of people for no reason. So now I'm in no way near am I anything like that genocider. So no, absolutely not. But I am saying though is that this is in this era, it does matter that you do develop differently than you have in previous eras. I think the issue is that yes, having the best player has always been important, but on the other side of this equation is you have to have multiple players that do multiple things in ways that I don't know. I don't know if like years ago, who's the Tyrese Halliburton approximation in their era, Ron, that like was able to make back-to-back conference finals or maybe even make a title or win a title, maybe win a title with the best player on the team. Chauncey is Chauncey the closest to like in terms of a player that like wasn't necessarily known as a
Jason Kidd.
I
think Jason Kidd was but Jason Kidd closer, Chauncey closer, sure. But I even think like some of this now though
Nash.
is
Nash.
he didn't go as far, but you can make that comparison too. I'll say Jason Kidd went further, but you know, Nash didn't go as far, but it was still the same.
Well, he was in the conference finals twice in 3 years.
Well, I think those. So I guess what I'm saying, like those players were better in their era than I think Hali is right now. And I think, but to your point though, they also had really good teams around them. But I do think that it does mean something to me that last year, one of the things that made the Mavericks so tantalizing, they had so many players that they were able to play in the Wolves series. Now they really struggled in the Celtics series, like I said they would for multiple reasons. The Celtics. They had a really strong. One of the reasons Shield thought they were going back to back 1 through 8. Their 1 through 8 was insane. Like they were blitzing people in that 1 through 8. I think the Nuggets, Ron, we would say that Bruce Brown, Jeff Green, Christian Brown. You've always had to have really good players. But I do think now more than ever, if you don't have a very specific kind of thing built around your players, as good as the top 2 are in the NBA, I still think Giannis and Jokic are better than like SGA, but again, that's up for debate. I think that like SGA getting where he's gone now, Hali in back-to-back years getting where he's gone, Anthony Edwards in back-to-back years getting the conference finals. I think if you look at the structure of those teams, Ron, I would say those teams are just more well-built around their star, even if they're not as good. And they're getting further than the other players, even if they're not as good one-on-one, like or not one-on-one, but individual basketball players as the other two. So, Ron, do you think that there's just some credence to the fact that with this CBA, with the fact that you don't want to have multiple players, more than 2, making $35 million on the roster, you need to have high-end level role players that are between $20 and $10 million that you're paying. And then you also need to have players off the bench that are draft picks and or free agent additions like Caruso or iHeart that you start. You have to have players like that now.
When has this not been the case, though?
Well, I would argue this, real talk.
Before you say this one, because I want to address the people in the chat too. The creative bobbies and shit like that. Them in the chat. Look, we're not arguing just to argue because I disagree with the sentiment that the percentages has changed. I think it's the same, bro. It's not anything new. Yes, you can have the best player on the court. If you don't have a good enough supporting cast around them, you're going to lose.
LeBron
That's what
James.
The history of the sport says. Forever, it said this. This is nothing new. You need a good team.
But
the team you just used as far as a good player, that a good team that had good players and a good roster and all of that, and they had so many players that could play against the Timberwolves. Last year's Mavs, Penn would have said, because earlier he said, oh, well, if you're limited, then I mean, let's say you're a corner 3-point shooter. If we make you shoot above the break, I mean, what are you going to do? That's exactly what Boston did to Dallas with Derrick Jones and PJ Washington. But you just used them as a roster that was complete and full and versatile and all that. And Penn
every team is exploitable. Every team is exploitable. Even OKC have exploitable players. Every team. It comes down to how can teams exploit said weaknesses, and not every team can exploit those weaknesses.
Bro, you trying to cook? You better get into it. You better get a kitchen
before we get sidebar. Wait, hold on. Before you sit. Don't worry. I want to ask you a direct question. Real talk. That 2011 Mavericks. Because I thought about this. I've been watching back every one of those games, every single one, because I'm free now. I ain't got to worry about watching night games no more. Real talk. That 2011 Mavericks team.
Mm-hmm.
I would make an argument that team would be better now in this era than maybe even some of those Heat teams that won, like the 12-13 teams and then the 13-14 teams that won. I would make an argument that because of 1 through 9 with that Mavs team and what they had, and they didn't have a high level number 2. Real talk, they had. I mean, Terry
Barea in today's game.
Terry was good. I think Terry was good. Jason Kidd was good, but Tyson Chandler really was also the difference maker for that team for many different ways. I would make an argument, real talk, that I think that team would be better now, even more so than it was in 2011, because of what they had on the roster. I think they had the modern formula that they just traded away.
The 14 Spurs are another example of that too.
Yeah, but then people just
great decision makers
and pick and roll.
But yeah, I don't agree. I don't agree with that sentiment at all.
But don't you?
What you think? You think everybody out here just playing like the 14 Spurs?
Tyson Chandler being a big who can only play drop would get exploited. Dirk Nowitzki not being able to move in space would definitely be exploited. JJ Barea being 5'10" would be exploited. Jason Terry being 6'2" and not being able to defend would be exploited.
I mean, he was good. He could defend.
In 2011, no. JJ Barea would be Jason Terry would be exploited in today's game. They would be switching him onto wings. They'd be mismatched. That's what they would do. Like, I don't agree with that sentiment at all. The 2014 Spurs, yeah, I'm more inclined to agree. But the 2011 Mavs, no, I don't agree. I think you didn't see their weaknesses exploited, which kind of goes to my point, because teams weren't mismatch hunting Dirk in space as they would today. That wasn't happening as much. Like, I don't agree with that. I think you say that because you didn't see their weaknesses get exploited.
I think my counter to that would be, like I said, I didn't even expect this. So this is also me admitting, me learning, and then adjusting to what I've seen. Like, I would say this Nuggets team was worse than that team regular season defensively for obvious reasons. But I think this Nuggets team was able to put together very elite defensive stretches, in part because of the zone that they did commit to. And I think perhaps like in this era, because of the way you respond. Now, I think this goes to Real Talk Chill's point about using the size. The Nuggets, they don't have the speed, but they used their size. And their size was used advantageously in man-to-man with the load-ups or with zone and packing the paint, and then basically trying to deter you from taking like high-efficient rim looks. And I think the Mavericks would be able to do something similar, but on the offensive end, I think they would actually have the formula to be able to score at a pretty high level.
They'd be unstoppable offensively, Swiper.
Miles, I'm going to
all those shooters, J Kidd, you got a guy that has to get doubled. You have a lob threat and a rim roller and an offensive rebounder.
Right.
Like they would be you have now on Mars. I know you're saying JJ Barea get played off the floor, but I can also argue he'll play himself onto the floor because those 3 to 5 minute bursts from him would be insane. JJ Barea be like
I'm not saying they would
go crazy.
I think their weaknesses would be more exploited. I'm just saying that weaknesses. I don't think they'd be better in today's game. That doesn't mean they'd be bad. They'd be a playoff team. They'd be competing. Absolutely. I just think their weaknesses that weren't exploited back then could be exploited today.
Which is
but
fair.
then they also have strengths that they could improve upon.
That's where I was going with it.
So like, I agree there's two sides to it. I just think
we
we were only looking at the positives. So I had to come in and be negative.
Of course.
And bring up the negatives to it.
Because it's not like Dirk has never seen pick and roll, pick and pop, because Dirk being a big at 6'10", 6'11", or 7 foot, he's had to play pick and roll defense before, just like JJ Barea. JJ Barea being small, he knows he's got to get around screens. Now, don't get me wrong, Miles. I think that the fact
JJ Barea,
I think the fact that the long ball is so prevalent today, and that much space, and you got to cover more space, I think that's going to be a problem. But I think guys are more inclined to play their role, and not just play their role, play their position. I think the idea, and I've said this in the past, and I still stand on it, the idea of positionless basketball has caused guys on the perimeter to get let off the hook. These guys like Jason Terry, these guys like J.J. Barrera, they are more inclined to get around screens. They're more inclined to play defense because they're guards and not allow Dirk Nowitzki to get switched on to Alex Caruso, or allow Dirk Nowitzki to get switched on to SGA, because this is my job, as opposed to today, because we play in an era of positionless basketball. Well, you should be able to cover a 4-man if you're 6'2". You should be able to cover a point guard if you're 7 foot, because it's positionless basketball. I don't think that those guys would allow that sort of thing. They would do whatever they could to protect Dirk Nowitzki in the sense of getting around screens, in the sense of blowing up plays in that aspect. Now, don't get me wrong, J.J. Barrera being smaller, he's going to be picked on a little bit more today, but I also think that he's going to be more of a pest too.
We just don't have guards coming out of the draft that are sub 6 feet tall. Very rare does it happen. Rob Dillingham last year, but typically it's a death sentence for most college guards. You have a player like Ryan Nembhard, Andrew Nembhard's brother, who's 5'11", 6 feet in shoes. Shoot, that's bigger than TJ Ford was. That's about as big as Allen Iverson was. Why is he not a surefire second-round pick? He's a great decision maker, great collegiate player. Mark Sears is another one. He's a really good player. Probably not going to get drafted. Probably going to be a second-round pick. Probably going to be G League guys. So I'm just saying the consequence, and what Swiper brought up earlier, which was very fair, is what happens to the rest of your defense when the other team starts exploiting your weak link, your small guard, in a cross match. Cross matches happen more often when you pick up the pace. So the likelihood that you end up Pascal Siakam on Ryan Nembhard, now you got to send a double. Pascal is very skilled compared to the modern four versus previous iteration of the four. Think, your Horace Grants. Pascal Siakam's talent level as a playmaker is so high up here that he can actually exploit those mismatches. Julius Randle, skill is so high, pace is so high, space is so high. How has the game not changed? How are we talking about the game not changing? Dwight Howard, 30 years ago, man, this guy could have played into his 40s. He's a freak athlete, can still rebound, still block shots, still do a lot of stuff. But today, too much of a liability.
And people forget he played in 21-22 after the bubble.
Yes,
he was getting cooked consistently. And I think that the league, because of his athleticism, obviously, Prime Howard would be a monster right now. But as he got older and wasn't able to do some of that stuff. So I think some of this, y'all, is maybe the best thing, Ox, from a basketball standpoint. It just maybe what this era requires more now, as Ox always tries to lean into, more consistent and potent coaching, knowing your personnel, utilizing your personnel, and being more creative with how you're dealing with matchups. I just think now you cannot, and to your point, Penn, and real talk, I'm here, I'm right here. You get Luka on the switch, real talk, go ahead and cook him. I'm not finna send multiple bodies at you all game so you can just get wide open 3-pointers, wide open layups. At this point, if I have a player that sucks and you're just gonna spend half the game hunting said player, just go ahead and get after it, bro. Because I just don't want to keep wasting energy trying to protect this player. And then on the other end, I'm still chill playing versus the Celtics, getting beat in the corner consistently on threes, or you're driving and you're kicking back out and getting even better looks. Go ahead and cook my worst defender. Go ahead. We're just gonna have to look at that. What is this Indiana Pacers team? Because since we're on the subject of personnel and matchups, in your estimation, and this is a question for the panel, what is this Indiana team? What is their identity? Because you can't just run around in the league and nobody knows who you are. Nobody knows what you do. Who are the Indiana Pacers?
They are the ultimate. They're like the opposite of what the OKC Thunder are, right? The OKC Thunder poke holes. They're like oil and water. These two teams are like very oil and water. The Indiana Pacers are basically consistently putting you into a position where you have to make as many decisions as early as possible. Yes. And they have the perfect playmaking personnel between Nembhard and Halliburton and Pascal that they will exploit one or two or three of those mistakes that you make. You have to be damn near perfect against this team, because if you have a big who has a tendency to be, I don't know, a little bit floppy underneath the basket and try to extend contact and try to, sell a foul, boom, Pascal Siakam already down the other end.
Mhm.
And you know what? If Pascal runs and Halliburton can't throw that pass, nothing matters. But because those two players are so able to connect, it's like this team is the epitome of pace in the NBA, because it's not just how fast they get up the court, it's when they get up the court, it's how fast they move into their offense, how fast they get into their first action, second action, third action.
They had a 4-second play in the last game. A 4-second play. The Knicks scored.
They did that twice, by the way. Not once, Swipe, but they did it twice.
They scored. It's not like the Knicks just stopped playing. They pinned. They turned around. They just literally went like this. Threw the ball in Hali. Pascal was already at the free throw line.
Gone.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Randy.
Gone.
4 seconds.
Gone.
4 seconds. That's how much it took.
Yes.
I mean, this is not new. We've seen, Jason Kidd, Magic Johnson. We have certainly seen some great point guards Steve Nash run some very high-paced offenses. I think those offenses were typically like the first action, like the first, get to the paint, spray it out to a shooter. This is just like a relentless attack on your discipline. Oh, Karl-Anthony Towns doesn't want to be there? Good luck. There's an open three. They get down, they get into the paint, they get a paint touch with either TJ McConnell or Tyrese Halliburton, one of those guys, or Pascal Siakam. They get a post up, but it's a quick hit, quick 0.5 basketball. So I think in a lot of ways they have taken the 7 seconds or less Suns and the beautiful game Spurs and a little bit of that Magic Johnson stuff and they've just piled it all together. And I think Rick Carlisle's a freaking genius, man. I think he's so good.
The reason why I'm asking that, Penn, really quickly, Ron. The reason why I'm asking that, Penn, and that's really interesting that you bring that up, because I think about the championship teams, and I just keep hearing how the Pacers kind of just snuck up on everybody, and I'm thinking to myself, how are you this good? Because the Pacers have been really good. I mean, basically the best team in the NBA since January 1. How do you sneak up on the NBA when you don't have an identity? They clearly have something, right? And I'm trying to figure out.
They have two very slept-on superstars, or stars. I'm not gonna call them superstars, but stars.
A superstar and a star.
A superstar and a
Ron,
star.
you think Halliburton is a superstar?
Yeah. Chill. You think I just be up here? You think it's a gimmick? You think I just chose Hali? You think I just played roulette and chose Hali and said, you know what?
I think that you chose this gimmick, so now you have to stick with it, and now you have to say that Hali was a superstar.
I was saying, so chill. No, don't do that, because you were with me last year, Chill, when he went on that run, that historical run where he was averaging like 28 and 13. And he was going crazy.
I think it was 2 or 3 years ago when I said I think.
No, it was 2 years ago. During the regular season.
When I said that Halliburton's going to be in the conversation as the best league guard in the game.
Yeah, Chill, you were with me. We both watched that. And from that moment, you backpedaled. Chill, see, y'all want to call me a front runner, but I praised Hali, glazed Hali, stuck with Hali through the highs and the lows. Now, Chill, obviously that was a high. And then you go 2 years, they still go to the Eastern Conference Finals. People still feel how they feel about him. Even throughout last year, I still felt the way I felt about Hali. The second best passer. I got Trae Young as the best passer in the league. Yep. Hali, second best passer in the league. I said this all through and through. And now to this moment, you got 2 Eastern Conference Finals appearances. 2 years averaging 20 and 10. I know this year was like 19 and 9, but over the last 3 years, he's averaging 20 and 10. True. I feel like that's superstar caliber things. Over a 3 to 4 year span to average 10 assists in the NBA, I think that's superstar numbers. You guys love scoring. But if I told you, SGA, Luka, that these guys averaged 30 points for 3 straight seasons, you guys would say they're superstars.
That's a lot.
Hold on, wait, right quick. I feel the way that you guys feel about scoring. I hold passing and assist in that same regard.
Why are you not higher on Steve Nash then?
If you what?
Why are you not higher on Steve Nash then?
I feel like Steve Nash was a lot of hype, but Steve Nash was great. Yes, hype. Now, but we don't.
How is he hype, but Hallie's not hype?
What do you mean?
Look, so
exactly what he just said.
Yeah, do you think Hallie's better than Steve Nash?
I do. Personally, I do. Shit. But here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. First off, I'm higher on Halliburton's defense than Steve Nash's. Second off, Halliburton's a better scorer than Steve Nash, too.
Steve Nash wasn't blocking OG Anunoby, I'll tell you
what
that.
What are you talking about? Steve Nash was the best playoff scorer on the team going away. He was an elite playoff scorer and damn near every single one of those runs with the Phoenix Suns. In the elite and a consistently elite. Consistently elite. So I think, but Ron, this is what I'm saying. You obviously you're allowed to have your bag because you are a Giannis Hali person and you're a fan of those players. So therefore, we don't treat you like Real Talk treats me about being a Denver fan. Okay, we're not held to the same standard because we're not expected to have the same level of greatness.
What that got to do with anything?
Ron, what I'm saying is
like take the yap out. Let's talk.
Yeah, I'm not taking the yap. I'm just giving the context.
Let's get rid of the yap. Let's cut all the fat.
I'm giving the context behind why nobody tomatoed you when you said that. Because people don't expect you to stand on business. But
I've been standing on business. I just told you I've been standing on business for the last 3 years.
What you cannot do is say you think Tyrese Halliburton is a superstar. And then when I
never said Steve Nash wasn't a superstar.
No, I'm not done.
Say that?
I'm not done.
See now you're just yapping.
Ron, when you're wrong, you talk over people. I'm not talking over you. Ron, you said that you believe Tyrese Halliburton is a superstar.
Yes, I'm trying to find the inconsistency. Where's the inconsistency?
He's trying to give it to you, as you were saying, Swiper.
And then when I say, what are your thoughts? Why are you not higher on Steve Nash? And
how high am I supposed to be on Steve Nash? No, you asked your question, I believe it was a lot of. I never said that Steve Nash wasn't great. I never said Steve Nash wasn't the better offensive point guards at that time.
What were his exact words, Chill, about when I brought up Steve Nash and his playmaking and passing? What did he say?
It's a lot of hype.
I said it's a lot of hype, but how high am I on Steve Nash? Do you know how high I am on Steve Nash? Do you know? Like you don't even know that.
You're clearly not very high on Steve Nash.
Well, hold on, though. The reason why I say this about Steve Nash is because he won. See, you guys jump to a conclusion that you don't even know where I am where I'm at with Steve Nash. The reason why I'm not as high as Steve Nash, because a lot of people put Steve Nash in Kobe conversations. He's not in Kobe conversations. So ask me how I feel about Halliburton relative to Kobe, and Halliburton to get put in his place as well.
I hear what Ron is saying.
That's all I'm saying.
He's saying I didn't
ask Nash relative to Kobe though.
It's because he's in Kobe. So you think Halli's a better player than?
I do. Like that. That doesn't change anything. If you put Halliburton on the Suns teams, it's the same thing.
I just asked Nash.
It's the same thing.
Hang on one second, because Steve Nash and Kobe Bryant were both drafted in 1996, part of that historic draft. They were drafted 2 picks apart. I think it was like 15 and 13, right? And they went on to have a career where both of them played in the West. So it's very interesting that as their careers played out, one of these players won 5 championships, scored a bucket more points, and had a way better career than the other one, and only won 1 MVP. Whereas the other guy, who had a very late bloom in his career where he won MVP, he won back-to-back MVPs. And so when you rank out MVPs, I hear Ron's point where he's like, wait a second, these 2 players played in the same conference. They played against the same people. One of them had a way better career. How come the other one, who didn't have a better career, had 2 MVPs, and the one who had a better career had 1?
And Steve Nash.
I think when you say he's a lot of hype, you're saying hype relative to where he was. So he's not saying
I believe Steve Nash was a lot of hype, but all of y'all almost fell out of your chairs. I thought we would have to call him.
You gotta understand he's glazing Hali. He just said he's better than Steve Nash.
He does understand. He said he praises and glazes him.
Y'all might not feel that when we put these 2 together.
Hang on.
I don't see where the inconsistency is. I don't see why it's crazy.
I implore every single person up here who wants to say that this take is crazy, Hali, whatever, Nash. I'm not talking about careers. Go point to a single series that Steve Nash had that was more impactful than the series that Halliburton just had. No. Before you start yapping, and just turn off your camera, because I could see the yap coming, right?
You're yapping right now. You're yapping. I'm not even talking.
No. So you've just tried to argue that Halliburton against the Knicks is more impactful than any Steve Nash series.
I didn't argue that. I said go find a series where Nash was as
2007 Western Conference semifinals against San Antonio.
Okay.
2005 Western Conference semifinals against Dallas.
What is the argument for more impactful? No, I'm asking, man.
I'm asking too. He pushed pace at the same level, if not, well, way better than Tyrese Haliburton does. That's the best thing he does. His pick and roll playmaking obliterated the Dallas Mavericks defense. The fact that he was able to elevate his scoring consistently throughout that series, when they tried to make him a scorer, I believe he averaged like 30 points per game for the last 3 games of that series. He was by
averaged 30 over the series.
I don't know what he averaged for the series. I know the last 3 games.
30.
Oh, he averaged 30 for the
30
series?
and 12. 30 and 12.
30 and 12, okay. And then the fact that he was a way more consistent outside shooter, so the fact that his on-ball creation cleared, he's a
I think you said San Antonio,
way
not
more
Dallas.
consistent?
Yeah, he was a way more consistent outside shooter. Way more consistent.
Yes, yeah. I mean, but you said San Antonio or Dallas?
Way more consistent.
Not way, no, not way, no.
Ali in the Knicks series, way more consistent.
Oh, in that series? Okay, in that series.
He was
Okay, I thought you were just talking about
also
general.
more turnover
Okay.
prone. Hang on. He was also
He
more
has the
turnover
ball more.
prone.
Yes, he has the ball more. Yes.
He has the ball more. What is that? Like, come on, man.
What do you mean? What is that? You have the ball more. You're probably more likely to turn the ball over.
But relative to points generated, he turned the ball over at a higher pace. So if I want to make an argument for Haliburton, I'm starting number one. I think he's a better defender. I think he's a considerably better defender.
Yes.
Number two, I think he makes fewer mistakes. I think Nash is the better passer, but I think also Nash is the high risk passer. And I think sometimes Haliburton does not get enough credit for going through so many possessions where he handles the basketball and he does not really turn the basketball over. I have never seen a passer who passes at this level just be this error free when it comes to turnovers, and turnovers fuel, transition. And I think that those are the two, and I'll also argue, I think he's better earlier in his career. Nash was not the MVP Nash.
Well, the question you asked was about series.
I mean, when people show you who they are, believe them, right? The Tyrese Haliburton went from a 0-star, 3-star, whatever recruit to an overlooked lottery pick to now, a back-to-back conference finals MVP. Who's to say he's not going to get better? I mean, Steve Nash was the epitome of keep grinding, keep getting better, and he peaks. I was looking it up the other day. How many players do you know that have won MVP past 31? There's 5. There's 5 in NBA history, and Nash is one of them. So that's the persistence of getting better.
But you asked about series.
You asked about an impactful series. Who was better early is literally means nothing. That's not what you asked.
Well, I'm saying if you can list out the series that he was better, I would like to talk about it.
Okay, Dallas, San Antonio, LA, Dallas, San Antonio, LA, Dallas, and the very next season. I think the very next season versus Dallas. I think, and then he had the series versus San Antonio again in 2000. What was that 7?
Stop acting like you ain't pull it up like it ain't right in front of you.
I'm not looking.
Yeah, you can just read it. It's right there.
I'm literally.
You guys do know what you're doing right now, and why this is
I'm literally watching. No.
Can I tell you guys
why
why
I'm answering the question that was asked?
No, I get it, but it's
I'm literally
nasty
watching this
still.
series right now.
You have 2 years. First off, you have 2 years from Haliburton playing in the playoffs, which is 6 series, which means in 2 years, in his first 2 years going to the playoffs, he's went to the conference finals twice. Now we're going to see a 7th series, obviously in the finals. Steve Nash has a whole career, and you guys went to 2 or 3 series over a whole 15 years. I get that. I get that. I'm telling you, and you guys are answering the question. Okay, I understand that. What I'm trying to say is that's cool. What I'm saying is we're comparing a 2-year sample size to a 15-year sample size. So,
but you said he was better though.
And I agree. I still stand on that. I'm not.
But if he's worse at if Hallie's best asset is creating, go ahead.
No. Go ahead.
If Hallie's best asset is creating offense and creating advantages, how is he better at that than Steve Nash?
So first off, Steve Nash, you could say that Steve Nash is a better passer. I'll give it to him slightly. I do think he was a maestro off of those pick and rolls, and he's just
a what?
Maestro, whatever. He was a master. Whatever y'all know.
Keep
going, Ron.
He was a masturbator at the pick and roll. I agree.
Yes. But his ability.
I think you're. Come on, Ron.
Well, I think I'm
in the pick and roll. Steve Nash is finding passes, finding angles, doing things. Tyrese Haliburton is not doing. Come on, bro.
He's not, Ron.
The passer playmaker. Ron, don't just yell no at me.
No, I'm about to tell you why. I'm about to tell you why. I'm about to tell you why. Because you're the type of guy, and chill. He says this all the time. You were just in a group chat. saying, "Oh, I'm not here for the glitz and the glam. I'm not here for the sparks and the shimmers and the diamonds."
Glitz and glam. See, that's what I'm saying, Ron. Talk ball.
No,
I didn't say glitz
I'm
and glam.
about to talk ball. I'm about to talk ball. I'm about to talk ball.
Just like you told Swipe,
look at
cut
these
the
passes,
yak.
dog.
Get
I'm
to
about
it.
to, you see what I'm saying? That's what I'm talking about right there. Steve Nash's passes look better than Halliburton's. My guy just gave y'all 32. I'm telling you right now. My guy
gave you
gave y'all
8, 6, and 2 the
32
next game.
points. He gave you 15 assists and he gave you 0 turnovers.
He gave you
and
8, 6, and 2 the next game.
Single one of you guys come up here and praise him to the
What are you
level.
talking about?
To the level. Let me finish my sentence.
What are you, that's
Let
not
me
true.
finish my sentence.
Keep
To
going,
the level
Ron,
that
this
you
isn't
would have
true.
praised Steve Nash if he would have done it, because
What
it
are
would have
you
been
talking
alley-oops.
about?
It would have been
We
no
literally
looks.
talked
It
about
would
it
have been behind the
afterwards.
back passes.
Ron,
See, no,
this is
because
what I
I'm
appreciate.
on
No, I don't
Playback
like
doing
this
the
about Ron.
game. I'm
Ron,
on
not
Playback
behind
doing
the
the game.
back pass.
Ron
I'm
literally
on
came
Playback
up here the
doing the
next day
game.
after the
And my
8,
man
6, and
throws
2
a no-look
game
pass,
and
and
didn't want to
everybody in the chat
address it.
talking about it's no aura.
Ron,
Everybody
you
in the
were
chat
arguing
talking
with
about it's
the
no aura.
topic
about
I watched
the very
I
next
watched
day
him
on the 8,
pass
6, and
somebody
2
open,
game.
and you guys say, "Oh, that's not hard to do. That's easy." I watched him look off 2 defenders. With
Who
his
is saying
eyes,
these
with
things,
his
Ron? Who is
eyes,
saying
he
these
looked.
Yeah, who
I'm
said it?
watching
Who
the game on
specifically?
Playback. We're
Who
up there,
specifically?
and y'all
But
hating on him.
who is y'all? Who's saying it specifically?
I don't remember who was up there with me during the game. I don't remember who was up there with me during the game. I just remember the whole chat and everybody else up there.
It was
Real
you.
talk.
It was you
Straight
and
it up.
Penn on stage. I watched you.
And
Okay.
you was in the chat
I don't remember
hating.
who said
You
it,
was
but
one
I
of the
remember
people in the
somebody
chat
said it,
hating.
though.
Goddamn lie.
You was one of the, hey, I'm up there with Jordan. I'm up there with Jordan and Penn. I watched him in transition, stop, look this way, 2 people go that way, and he throws the pass to I believe it was Pascal Siakam for the layup. Now, what I'm trying to say is when Magic Johnson does it, people drop dead. When Steve Nash does it, people say, "Oh my God, it's the craziest thing I ever seen." Halliburton does it for some reason. It's just not that big of a
But
deal.
who said that?
I'm saying,
hold on.
I just told you, nigga.
It's not. No, you didn't, because you're not talking
I said
about me.
I was up there with Jordan and Penn and a bunch of people in the chat going crazy.
So Jordan,
I know Jordan. I know Jordan doesn't know what he's talking about, and Penn just be yapping.
No, but
okay, cool.
Is that what
You said y'all. You said y'all. And Penn
The
the only one
only
up here
point
that
I'm
was
trying
up
to make,
there.
they're y'all. The chat is y'all. They're here, and you was in the chat, so you're part of the chat. The point I'm trying to make is that when Halliburton gives you 15 assists in zero turnovers, we act like it's not that big of a deal.
Who is
when
we?
Steve Nash does it,
Who is we?
all of a sudden it's
He talking to the chat.
The reason why I'm adding you guys into it because we're up here talking about it. Yes, the reason why you're in it now. The reason why you're in it now. The reason why you're in it now is because you just looked at a Steve Nash pass and said, "Oh my God, these passes." But Halliburton does the same thing now and doesn't get no type of love or credit for it.
Ron,
that's why.
Okay.
If Jokic does it, when Jokic does it, he's the best passer ever.
Okay,
so that's why you are getting put in that conversation.
I hate to go to the numbers on this one, but
no, go to the numbers. Let's go to the numbers. Let's cook them full circle.
No, these don't favor you, Ron.
No. These numbers do favor him, actually.
Thank you.
Okay, so
I was just guessing. Thought I might
like right. Throughout their career as playoff players, right? I don't think enough credit is given to how much of a riser Halliburton is in the playoffs, right? Y'all said that Nash had the ball more. Their usage is identical. And their usage is identical because while Nash took more, but in terms of like how much you're controlling possession, Halliburton is getting off of it quicker. But I think that actually is to his team's benefit that he plays like that. Nash is the better shooter, but yo, like from 2, there's no competition who's more efficient inside the arc. Halliburton is 14% more efficient shooting from 2. 14%. What about the turnovers? Now, I just briefly glossed over the fact that he's less error prone. I didn't realize how less error prone. Nash turns the ball over at almost 2 times the rate. And
how many is that?
Almost 2 times the rate. So if we're looking
Nash was averaging like 3.5 turnovers a game.
So one more turnover.
No, hang on, because Nash also played in a slightly slower era. So
one more turnover. You make when you say double the rate, you make it seem like
that's bullshit. No,
bullshit.
It's not bullshit, right? You know it's bullshit. You know what he was doing.
My bad.
Double the rate.
That's not shit.
If we adjust for pace, it's 2.9 versus 4.6. that is a lot more. Okay,
2.9.
especially when you
If we
consider the
adjust the
fact.
pace, one more
Hold
time.
on,
One more
we
time.
talked about assist to turnover ratio, right? Do you realize Halliburton actually gets more assists per 100 possessions than Steve Nash?
See, here we go with this.
12.9 versus 12.8. So the turnover ratio, like the turnover to assist, like
That's the same
Halliburton is
number.
breaking the mold.
That's the same number.
What do you mean?
Because
Yeah,
12.9, 12.8.
Okay, so cool. It's the same number.
That's the same number.
So when you break it down as a ratio of assists to turnovers, Halliburton is the considerably less error-prone player. Why? Partially because he's the bigger playmaker. He sees angles that Nash simply could not see. I think that matters.
Also wider angles today.
There's
way
more
wider
shooting.
angles.
Honestly, the only
Are you saying he's a better passer playmaker than Nash? I mean, what's the crux of that? I guess what I'm saying.
32 and
the
12
crux-
from
the
Nash.
God, bro, he's no
32
swipe
and
it,
13.
swipe it. He said swipe
Nash
it, swipe it.
is a better
Look,
shooter.
look. Let me
That's
tell you what.
No,
this
because
happens.
it's obvious
He's
that
telling you
the
this.
passing
and it's
angles
just
today are
not
wider
true.
than they were 16 years ago. Like, that's just common sense. So yes,
Right.
Halliburton does have access to different angles than Nash does. Absolutely. Nash was 6'2", maybe 6'3". Halliburton's like 6'5". Cool. Nash definitely puts more pressure on the defense with ever that's him pushing the pace, which he did at an elite level. The Suns were one of the fastest paced teams in the NBA for their time. Relative to error, I guess pace, I don't know. They were faster than the Pacers today. I don't know. Nash is a way better ball handler. Nash is getting into the teeth for the defense more consistently. Nash is by far and away the better shooter. I don't know what Ron was talking about saying Halliburton's a better scorer. That was nonsense. And then when we look at the shot quality being created, the Suns were generating the most efficient shots in the NBA routinely. And that's because of Steve Nash. Steve Nash was the only decision maker on that roster. The Pacers have 3 high-level decision makers. 3. Nembhard, McConnell, and Halliburton. All really good decision makers. Halliburton is able to get off the ball more because he has guys who are able
Norris,
to.
don't do that.
Which is
Don't
a
do not
test-
do that. Don't
No,
don't try to downplay
wrong.
the rest of the talent that was on that roster. Do
No,
not try to
I'm
do
not.
that.
See,
Do not
if you
try to
let
do
me
that.
finish, I
No,
will explain.
because Sean
I'm
Marion
not
was a
saying-
hell of a playmaker.
What? He was a playmaker because
Leandro Barbosa was a playmaker too. Like,
Ron,
don't
he
do
was
that.
because of
Hey,
Steve Nash.
drag-
That's why. Because don't forget, Ron, he did play for the Miami Heat. I don't know if you remember that. He was in Toronto. Do you remember that, Ron? He
Who?
was in Cleveland. Do you
Who?
remember
Sean
that?
Marion?
Yes. Do you remember that?
So
Yeah,
for the
he wasn't
Mavericks,
those cities. He
Sean Marion
doing
wasn't
none of
good.
that stuff that he
So
was
Sean
doing
Marion wasn't
when
good for the
he was Steve
Mavericks. For the
Nash.
Mavericks,
He wasn't doing none of that stuff.
he wasn't good.
Let's let the words Sean Marion was a playmaker leave his mouth. I never said the Pacers team is better than the Suns. I never said that. I said
Because they're not.
I agree.
Offensively, they're not.
I agree. I think the Suns were better. But when I'm talking about playmaking, and Penn brings up the ability that Halliburton has to get off the ball, yes, I think Halliburton has that ability. I think the reason Nash wasn't able to do that as much.
Steve Nash got off the ball. What are you?
Not
What?
as much.
But he got off the ball. It don't gotta be as much. He still got off the ball. No, you're trying to minimize. You are trying to minimize the Suns roster to make your point, and I refuse to let you act like Dunk Champ wasn't over there.
Ron, just so
Jason
you know,
Richardson.
Ron,
I refuse to
they went to the
act.
Western Conference.
You refuse. Quiet, old nigga. Quiet. Because I refuse to let y'all act like Quentin Richardson wasn't over there.
They
I
went to the
refuse
Western
for y'all to act
Championship.
like Amari
This is bullshit.
Stoudemire
They went to
wasn't the
Western
best
Conference
player
Championship in
on
2006
both
without
teams.
Amari
Amari
They
Stoudemire
went to Western
was the
Conference
best
Championship
player
without
on both
Amari
teams.
Stoudemire in 2006.
It's not close.
They went to
It's
Western
not.
Conference
It's
Championship
not
without
fucking
Amari
close.
Stoudemire.
Best
This
player
nigga
on
had
what
Amari
team?
Stoudemire.
He didn't have Amari
He had Amari Stoudemire.
Wait, he was the best player on whose team?
Chill. He had Amari
And he didn't
Stoudemire.
have the whole
What
season.
would Halliburton look like with Amari Stoudemire?
Wait.
Quiet.
Wait,
He had Amari
What
Stoudemire.
Mars? What team was he the best player on?
What are we talking about?
What
They got
team?
come off the pick and roll and throw the ball up to the rim. Does Halliburton have that? He got Pascal Siakam.
Pascal Siakam just won Eastern Conference Finals MVP, by the way.
Yeah, let's talk about
Steve
that.
Nash
Let's
had
talk about
Amari
Ron,
Stoudemire.
Ron,
Please.
rechannel your
Please.
frustration towards the voters.
Please. He had Amari Stoudemire, dog.
Finals MVP.
Yeah, let him know, Swipe. Hey, Halliburton got Siakam, the Eastern Conference MVP. Talk about that.
Stoudemire.
Hey, why
Amari
didn't he win the MVP,
Stoudemire.
Ron?
I'm talking about off a pick and roll. I'm talking about off a pick and roll.
Because the voters are
Amari
stupid.
Stoudemire,
I
Pascal
think
Siakam.
he's well deserved.
Come on,
I'm trying
dog.
to understand why that's why Ron's
Come
not
on.
bringing that up. Ron did the same thing when it came to JT.
You know what?
No,
Let me tell
Ron,
you.
Pin,
Come
don't
on,
get
dog.
I'm just saying, Ron said this last year with JTJB, so I'm trying to figure out why the energy is not the same. Pascal
No.
Siakam just
The
won
same
Eastern Conference MVP.
The voters are stupid. I'm gonna say this: these voters are attention whores. All they want is for everyone to be like, "Oh, how'd they come up with this? Oh, we're so cute. Oh, Andre Iguodala over Steph Curry. We're so smart." Nah, they're stupid.
That's disingenuous.
He was
I don't want to get
good.
sidetracked.
He was really good. Don't even get me started.
Chill. Did he say Amari was the best player on the Suns team? I mean, I don't know. That what he said. I don't know what he was talking about.
That is.
Yes, that's what
Bro,
he said.
Overrated.
Okay, all right. He was the second best player.
No, you just
hold on, bro. You go back. Go. What? Stand on that.
You gotta stand on that.
Why do certain people get to do this and you don't get made fun of?
Sniper, all right. All right. He was the second best player, but you know what he would be? You know what he would be on the Pacers? But by far and wide, the second best player. By far and wide.
Like Hali was in the conference finals? Like Hali was in the conference finals, Ron?
The point I'm trying to make. Indianapolis, if Amari Stoudemire is on that Pacer team, which, by the way, I want to make sure I backtrack. Ron, in the 05-06 season, when Steve Nash won the league MVP, you know how many games Amari Stoudemire played? 3. He didn't have him the entire season. He was gone. Do you understand that, Ron? So the point about him having Amari Stoudemire is a moot point. That's
not
number
a moot
one.
Point. It's
number
not
two.
Because what did he do the other seasons he had him?
Can you imagine Amari Stoudemire on that Indiana team
with Halliburton? Now,
Halliburton.
Okay, what does that look like?
Is that better than Amari with Nash?
I'm not. I don't want to argue who would be the best player. That's not the argument to make. The argument to make is how much better would this team be, and how much more effective would Tyrese Halliburton be?
100%.
But Pascal does different things for this team that they need for them to win, though.
The problem with your logic is that Steve Nash. We saw how much effect. We saw how much more effective he could be without Stoudemire. He won the league MVP without him. That happened. Can we say that about Halliburton? Even if he did have a player to that level, what he would look like without a player? He doesn't have a player like that.
He doesn't have a player like that.
Wait, chill.
He doesn't have a player like that. How does he look?
Chill. Who was in the league when Steve Nash and their prime when Steve Nash won those MVPs?
Bryant, Duncan, Dirk,
Kevin Garnett,
Rasheed Wallace. Who else am I leaving? I'm talking.
Shaq made first team All NBA in 04, but wasn't in his prime no more.
Tracy McGrady.
Yes. Trace McGrady was there.
Yes.
Ox's favorite.
Ray Allen.
LeBron was All NBA first team by that point.
Yes,
D-Wade. I mean, don't you think that's Ron? D-Wade knows yet. Ron, don't you think that's awfully impressive though for Steve Nash to be able to do that amongst giants?
I mean, first off, he didn't deserve those MVPs. But second off, yes, it is impressive.
Like, he's telling the truth. I don't know why
y'all. No, he's not.
Which part? Which MVP didn't he deserve? Exactly.
But hey,
he did not deserve the 05.
Don't worry, we're dealing with the resident Kobe hater up here. So obviously he doesn't believe Kobe deserved those MVPs.
Well, I have a hard time thinking you believe he deserved 05, but I mean,
okay.
Sure.
First of all, Ron, why are we talking about him?
I don't know when you would ever say a player who missed the playoffs should have been the MVP.
Why are we talking about Bryant jumping Nash when he still has to jump both Dirk and
LeBron
James to get to Nash?
Yeah, why is Nash the one? They both
became fourth in MVP.
That's all we clear, Ron.
Yeah, but then
I think that was wrong.
Ron would just be saying that's wrong as well. Like that's
but he said both the MVPs. So I just want to know 05 how he didn't deserve 05.
We've had this conversation before about Dirk, though. We just had this 2 months ago. I don't even think Kobe was better than Dirk in the regular season that year. But we already did this.
05, 06.
We're revisiting a conversation that already took place months ago. We had a long.
No, you said that about 07.
No. I said this in the regular season of 2005-06. We did the 5-6. We did 6-7.
Yeah, Brian averaged 35 a game. Was
yes, but in points per game stuff, I don't. But I'm saying this, y'all do that with point. Ron,
I just want to know why Nash didn't deserve 05.
But you just said you don't look at points per game. Real talk. Did Ron just not say he doesn't look at points per game?
Bro, I'm not with you.
I know, but I'm saying, but he said that though. He said he didn't look at points per game. He just said that.
He did.
He brought up 35 points per game for Kobe.
No, I did not say that. See, you take your words and try to.
You say you don't look at points per game.
No, I said I value assists per game just as much as points per game. Now I know you're gonna go and say, okay, Steve Nash averaged 11.5 assists that year. That may be true. But he averaged 15 points.
That no,
So
no,
who
it-
deserved
it-
the MVP?
I know
It,
we're
it
not
was
doing
it was
the
19
points
that year. It was
argument.
19.
No, he 06 it was 19. 05 it was like 15 and a half or something. Who
Hey.
deserved the MVP?
All I'm saying is,
Well, no, who deserved the MVP?
and this is the thing. It was a different era and it was a different time. At that moment in time, they were if you were number one in your conference and you were the best player,
Who deserved the
I'm about to
MVP?
get to it. Damn,
Still,
untighten your
just
goddamn
name.
hoodie, untighten your do-rag. I'm getting to it. At that
One
moment in
name
time,
and
if
you
you're the
go on
best
Hali
player
Liverpool.
on the best team in your conference, they are going to give you MVP. Fast forward 10 years later, Russell Westbrook does something phenomenal. And he's what, the 6th seed? He averaged a triple-double? He's a 6th seed? He
Yes.
does something phenomenal. He got it. A lot of people argued that maybe he shouldn't have got it because his team wasn't as good. Cool. Fast forward a couple years later, Jokic gets the MVP, and they were what, the 7th seed?
6.
6? Okay. Say what you want. Averaging 35 points. I don't
Kobe,
wait.
did,
I
Kobe
don't
didn't
care.
do that in 05. So once again, in 05, who should have been the MVP?
Give it to Shaq then.
No, we're
Give
not.
it to Shaq. Give it to Shaq then.
Okay, so
I don't
you're on
think
the
I don't think
anybody
that
but
has
Nash.
average
Okay,
23
anybody
and
but
10.
Nash.
I don't
Okay,
believe
anybody
Nash
but
deserved
Nash.
it.
Shaq
Okay,
averaged
so then
23
okay,
and
so you're
10.
just on anybody but Nash. So okay, cool, whatever. You don't even know what was going on in 05.
No.
Just anybody but Nash.
No.
Alright,
Hang on.
Anybody but Nash.
That is a valid point. Shaquille O'Neal did deserve that MVP.
Yeah,
I thought he was going to win the MVP
Uh-huh.
that year.
Of course he did. Yeah.
He
Okay,
100% deserved it.
Yeah.
And
of
Are we kidding me?
Kevin
Of
course he did.
over Garnett? That same
KG missed the playoffs too.
In 05.
But I'm here with you. No, see, that's what I'm saying. We're getting lost. But Ron, what I don't understand is you're saying this and you think that Hali is better than Steve Nash. Right now, Hallie's better than prime Steve Nash. Why do you think it is? Or do you just think that the players in the league that are above Hali are so much better than the players that were above Steve Nash at that point? Why do you think that he is not in those conversations at the end of the year?
If you transported Steve Nash to this league right now,
That
he
15 would be 24, Ron, 25.
look, Steve Nash.
Well,
Steve Nash does get busy.
21, 19.
I mean, he could average 20. It wouldn't make a difference. He's still better, but like
Steve Nash
it's
does
not
get
about
busy.
it's not about the numbers. The same reason why with Halliburton, it's not about the numbers. Halliburton's better than 19 and 10.
Yes.
Like his numbers don't illustrate how good he is. Same thing with Steve Nash. I just find it hard to believe that Steve Nash joins a team that won like 25 games. It's him and Quentin Richardson, I think, are their additions. And then they have the best offense in the NBA the year after having a bad offense and win 62 games. And apparently, MVP, how dare he? Oh my God, he should have never been the MVP. How? In what world is that type of turnaround with Steve Nash being the only major addition leading to the best offense in the NBA, the best offense maybe of all time to that point, second best offense of all time to that point. And it's just, oh my God, how could he be the MVP? It's unfathomable. How?
Look,
Which,
man,
by the way, Mars, to your point, Mars, that's the same argument that they used for Jason Kidd in 2002 when the same crew out, Stephon Marbury in, Jason Kidd, they go, and instead of winning 24 games, I think they win 54 games that year. And Jason Kidd, why didn't he win the league MVP? Meanwhile, Steve Nash, with that kind of turnaround in 05 with that Phoenix team, 62, they go from what, 23 or
29 wins. I had to
29 wins to
wins.
62 wins. That's almost double, Ron.
It was just
That's almost
so
double.
many more bet. I'm gonna read my man Super Duper DB GOAT super chat because there was just so many much more better players in the league in 2005 than Steve Nash. Y'all can
more?
agree or disagree.
So many
many
more?
I
But
don't
you have to
think
go, but Ron, to
I
be
mean,
fair,
top five player.
you have to go to that specific season because I do remember Kobe didn't make the playoffs that year, so he wasn't.
Neither
gonna
did
win.
Kevin Garnett.
Kevin
And
Garnett
those two
didn't,
were better.
didn't make
Still
the
were better.
playoffs, so he wasn't.
That's fine.
Yeah, they're better.
That's fine.
I'm
When
with you,
I've
they're
been of
better.
the belief that the MVP should be
But
who
they're not
plays the
gonna
best
win
in the
the
regular
MVP.
season,
Well, we
I've been
gotta
getting
play.
pushback because these guys don't
Who
win
said
enough.
that, Mars?
Now all of a sudden it's Steve Nash, and all of a sudden you're on who plays the best friend. Since when did that happen? Because every time I've been making that argument for years,
I well, some years are outlier years. Like that Russell Westbrook year, I believe he wholeheartedly deserved that MVP that year. Some years are outlier
You're a
years.
Russell Westbrook guy, that's fine.
But I just don't believe that Steve Nash year was an outlier year. I don't believe
I just don't
15
understand
and
how that
11
level of
any
impact
year
can get
is an
ignored.
outlier year.
I
Like,
just don't, it's not about the numbers. The same, like if it's not about the numbers with Halliburton. I'm trying to make that point abundantly clear. I think Ron, you agree. Halliburton is a better player than 19 and 10 seasons,
yes,
right?
Yes.
Okay.
Why is
I
Nash
believe,
not?
I believe Steve Nash is a better player than whatever he averaged, 15 and 11, whatever he averaged.
Sure.
And then in 06, he averaged 19 and 10 or something.
You know what they both
And
have
in
in common?
07, he averaged
Neither
like
one of them is better than
18 and
Shaq.
In 05,
Thank you.
in 05, I would actually, why did Steve Nash not play better than Shaq in the 05 regular season?
Why did he not?
No, not why. How didn't he? Why
didn't he?
Why not? Yeah, how didn't he play better than Shaq in the 05?
Literally every single person who has watched those two players would say, if
I've
I'm a
watched
defense,
both.
okay, so if you're a defense, who you rather face? I think that's one part of it. If you want to make the numbers argument, there is not a single number.
The Suns the way better offensive team.
But it's not just
Coaching?
offense, though. You just
How
you
many?
can't bring
How
up
many-
offense
they
like-
had
Mars,
They had
how many
D'Antoni-
people are we going to
D'Antoni
credit for that
and
Suns
D'Antoni
offense? Is it Nash? Is it D'Antoni? Is it Brian
It's
Colangelo
a
for being the
multitude of
architect?
things. It's a multitude of things. D'Antoni's a contributor. Amari's obviously a contributor. Steve Nash is a contributor. The fact that they had elite spacing is contributing. They had Mike D'Antoni the year before. They had Amari Stoudemire the year before. They were 21st in offense. They were 5th in pace. They were 21st.
Wasn't
in
Amari
offense.
a
Steve
rookie?
Nash can,
No, he was second year.
can
Second
take
year
that
player?
can take
I think
that
so.
MVP trophy and ship it off to Ron Artest. Okay.
Okay, that's fine. So I'm just curious. So who are you more fearful of is a different question to who was more impactful. You can fear someone more
the
than someone else.
numbers
who's actually
suggest that
more
Shaq was
impactful.
more impactful.
Okay, so then I'm curious when you say who's more fearful for a
Efficiency, defense. Does defense not count for MVP?
defense.
Yes.
Does it
Defense
not matter?
absolutely counts. Shaq was a
Okay.
way better defender. I agree. Offensively, I have a hard time seeing how the catalyst of the number one offense in the NBA, an offense that was bad before he arrived, with the same coach, the same core of players. The only major difference was Quentin Richardson, who, unless you guys think he was the world beater,
But
okay.
don't
Quentin
just,
Richardson,
like Q Richardson
and
was
Steve
for that
Nash.
team. at
Yeah,
that
I
moment in
agree.
time.
I
Stop-
agree.
stop
I'm
running
not
gun
saying
off.
the Suns were bad. Quentin Richardson was good. Steve Nash was amazing.
Yes, he was.
Steve Nash is the main addition to a team that just won 29 games with the same coach who we are meant to give credit for this offense, which I agree with. Everyone who watches the show knows how I feel about Mike D'Antoni. I think he's an offensive genius. I agree with that. But when we look at the difference made between Steve Nash being added to that team, what they were before, and with him, and then we look at the production of offense that the Suns were able to produce, and then you look at how the offense looked when Steve Nash wasn't on the floor, and you look at the efficiency of scoring that Steve Nash provided. I don't know if his true shooting was higher than Shaq's. I don't know what his true shooting was. And then we look at his playmaking value, the fact that he was the best pick and roll player in the sport, the fact that the offense was the best in the league by a significant margin.
Yep.
I don't understand how he just has no claim to being the most.
Well, he
valuable player in
100%
the
has a
season.
claim.
I just
Mars.
don't understand.
That part I'm not going to argue. He 100% has a claim. But what you're not going to do is you're not going to completely leave out the fact that the Miami Heat, the year before that, barely won 40 games. And then
Thank
the
you,
next year,
Chill.
they win almost
42?
60 games.
Hang on.
Yes, one team went from 29 to 62. One team went from like 38
Wait,
to 60.
No.
There's a big difference here because the Miami Heat that won 42 games had to trade away 3 of their very good core players in Caron Butler
Yes,
and Brian
they got
Grant
Shaq.
and Lamar Odom to get Shaquille O'Neal. And
Yes.
Shaq came in, replaced those 3 guys,
Yes, sir.
and they won 17 games more.
Thank
Whereas
you.
Nash did not replace anybody. He was signed outright as a free agent.
Yes, he was
That's
added
different.
to a 29 win team. Yes, he was
Sure.
added to
Okay,
a 29
cool.
win team.
So,
And
so,
they won
so,
60.
so, what's harder, replacing nothing or replacing 3 really good starters? Brian Grant was a really good starter at that time. Lamar Odom went on to become a champion.
Okay,
Like
so
years
okay,
later.
so if we look at what was replaced, I'll ask you this: the players that were traded for Shaq, if you take them off the previous year's Heat team, how many wins did they have in your estimation?
Take those 3 guys off. We're not putting Shaq on that team.
Yeah,
We're not
you
putting
just take them
anything
off
back.
They're worse than
Yeah.
29
Boom.
wins.
But
Everybody
they don't
moves up.
exist. They don't
They're,
exist. How
they're
many
worse
wins
than
did they have?
29 wins. I promise you that.
Sure, I'm
Yeah.
fine with that. I'm
They're
fine.
worse than-
Where are they
they
at?
are-
22
they
wins,
are
24
like-
wins.
20 wins.
I think that they're at
20
the bottom
wins.
of the league.
Okay,
They'd
so
be
there
a
are 20.
20-win
So in
team.
your estimation, there are 20-win team. We'll say 20-win team. They go up to 59 with Shaq. Okay. Then I look at the Suns, a 29-win team that goes up to 62, while having the best offense in the NBA, a historic offense to that point, with Steve Nash as the catalyst. I'm not and I want to make this abundantly clear. None of my arguments have been that Steve Nash ran away with the MVP, and it's not even a question. My argument is pushing back to Penn's point that Steve Nash had no claim to the MVP, and he's saying it should have been Shaq. The argument that you're making is that Shaq had a claim, which I agree with. I've said the 05 MVP season, in my opinion, is one of the weakest in NBA history because of the level of players that were missing the playoffs, like KG, like Kobe. The fact that Tim Duncan didn't have his greatest year. I think 05 is one of the weaker MVP years of all time. My argument is not that Shaq didn't deserve the MVP. My argument is that Steve Nash absolutely had a claim to the MVP award, which is what I'm pushing back on.
He was a top 5 player.
If you think Shaq deserved it, fine. I don't care. I think they were 1 and 2 for a reason. What I don't like is the
did
idea
Penn
that
say?
Nash is stealing
He was
MVPs
the top
and
5
didn't
player.
deserve any.
Oh,
I think Nash. I
So
think
that's
Nash,
what I'm pushing back on.
I think
That's what I'm
That
Nash-
boy
pushing
pulled off a double heist.
I think Nash.
And the second year was even
06,
crazier.
06, I understand why people are very angry with 06. I think I've already said the reason Nash won 05 is very obvious. The 29-win team, he was the main addition. They turned the season around. They became a 62-win team, number 1 seed in the West. They were the best offense in the NBA. Steve Nash is going to get a lot of credit for that. 06, if he did the exact same thing in 06 he did in 05, he wouldn't have come close to the MVP. The reason he won the MVP is because Amari Stoudemire went down and they were still a 54-win team. They were still a top 5 offense. So any doubters of, oh, well, Steve Nash is doing this because he has Amari, blah, 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 was put to rest because Amari wasn't there. Steve Nash won 06 because, quite frankly, he was put in a fortunate circumstance to win the awards. If he just ran it back in 05, the same exact roster, no injuries, no nothing, and they produced another 60-win season, I can assure you, Steve Nash wouldn't have come close to the awards. And that's not because he would have played worse or anything. It's because the narrative was on his side in 06 because Amari was hurt. I'm fine with the pushback on the 06 MVP award. I'm fine with that. I understand it. I think Kobe had a hell of a year. I don't agree with Swiper that Dirk played better. I think Kobe was the second best player, best or second best player in that regular season that year. I'm fine with that. What I don't like is the idea that 05 was just blasphemous. I don't agree with that. I just don't. I don't come close to it.
We're on opposite sides of the fence.
LeBron was better in the 06.
Like,
Man,
it's
too bad we got sidetracked on so many of these things because we had to talk about Pascal Siakam winning MVP. We had to talk about
we
OKC.
got 3 days, man. The finals don't start till Thursday. We got 3 days to talk.
That's true.
But Penn, I know you feel strong about that, so I do want to get into that. I just want to say I don't want to discredit Nash's 11.5 assists. That's amazing. And if you air attacks it now, it's probably like 12.5. Like that's incredible.
No, it's
that's
more
incredible.
than that.
It's more than so. What air attacks? What Nash should probably be averaging like 19 and 14.
No,
13,
he would probably
14.
be about he'd probably be about 12 or 13, but he'd just be getting it in a
19
different
and
way.
13.
Yeah,
If
he'll just be
they
getting
were
it
the
in a different
fastest
way.
team in the league, they would still be the fastest team in the league. They'd just be way faster than they were. I mean, I have to believe that to some extent.
The Pacers are the fastest team in the league.
But that team is one team that I believe you can pick up and drop in this era, and it will be seamless for them.
Yes.
Like we forget that year, 2005, a young Joe Johnson was on that team.
Mhm.
In a second year or third year, Leandro Barbosa. Like that team was incredible. Quentin Richardson was a pure sniper. You like the 4 and 5 combination of Sean Marion and Amari Stoudemire, that would be one of the better 4 or 5 combos in the league today. I would like to think it would be the best combination.
I just don't think
Joe
that
Johnson shot 48% from 3 in that 05 year.
Joe Johnson was a maniac. That's why
they led the league. I
4.5%.
think the Suns may have led the league in 3-point percentage in 05. I think,
and they only shot
and volume maybe.
It's at the height of
maybe like
7 seconds or less offense. They averaged 25 threes a game.
Yeah, they were number 1 in 3. They were number 1 in 3-point attempts and number 1 in 3-point percentage.
today, right?
Well,
Yeah,
today,
24.7 is definitely lost today.
Yeah,
But I think another part, funny enough, the Heat were 3rd in 3-point percentage. But I also think a part of that is that Steve Nash was creating the best quality threes in the NBA. But then you can also factor in the fact that the Suns had just a unique offense for the time, which organically created elite offensive looks from 3 because of early pushing and transition and stuff. So like that, I'm not like, I want to make it because Pirate was talking to me in the chat. I'm not saying that Steve Nash is entirely responsible for everything. I don't think any player ever is ever responsible for everything. But what I do think is that having the best player in the league to that point, either him or Jason Kidd, at pushing pace in the NBA was a direct contributor to what the Suns were able to achieve. I do think having the best passer in the NBA, once again, him or Jason Kidd, is a direct contributor to what the Suns were able to achieve. I do think having someone with an elite handle like Steve Nash and someone who's able to probe and pick and roll and keep his dribble alive and get into the paint at will is something that was pivotal to what the Suns were able to achieve. And the Suns did have a lot of really, really good players, particularly in 05. In 06, I think the roster was slightly worse, but in 05, they had a bunch of great players. Joe Johnson, a great player, someone who could get his own bucket. Sean Marion, a great player, not a playmaker like Ron tried to say, but a great player nonetheless, especially defensively, elite in transition. Amari Stoudemire goes without saying. Quentin Richardson was huge that year. He was launching threes, launching them. I agree with all of that. But once again, all of those guys were limited to the fact that they weren't playmakers. They weren't guys who could initiate offense for you. That was pretty much entirely on Steve Nash's shoulders. So even though they were really good scorers, like Sean Marion was an elite play finisher, elite in transition, he could attack a closeout and get some weird floater off that he released from his chest. But he could do that. And Amari Stoudemire was a really good scorer, really good in pick and roll, really good around the rim, and he could face you up and get to the rim on his own. He could do that. Joe Johnson was someone who could score by himself, and he could make some basic reads as well. But Steve Nash was all of their playmaking. He was all of it. All of their creation came from Steve Nash. You can look at what the offense produced without Steve Nash on the. Yeah, you can look at what Steve Nash. You can look at what the offense produced. All of those players. I think Quentin Richardson spoke about it. You can look at what that offense produced when Steve Nash wasn't on the floor. They fell off a cliff with all of that talent, which I agree was very talented. But you need someone to maximize that talent, and that was Steve Nash's playmaking. So that's why I say when I think he deserved the MVP, or I think he was in the running for that MVP, is because what he brought to the table is what maximized those pieces. You put scorers around Steve Nash, you get the best offense in the NBA. You put scorers around Tyrese Halliburton, you get one of the best offenses in the NBA. Once again, I don't agree with the idea that the MVP was just blasphemous that he won in 05. In 06, I understand the pushback more. 05, once again, a weak MVP year.
Who had a better supporting cast?
Year, I think
Shaq
05
or
was
Steve Nash? Who had a better supporting cast? Shaq or Steve Nash that year?
To your point,
but you didn't even agree with that segment. Like Penn, that's even against your own logic right there. Because you don't think Jokic should have won MVP this year, and he had a worse supporting cast than SGA did.
Offensively or defensively?
Period. Just
well, if we're gonna go period, then the Heat had
man. If the MVP and conference finals MVP, god damn it, if that MVP award actually means what they say it means, and not top scorer, not most fashionable, not most jaw-dropping box score line, if it actually means most valuable, then I don't think it matters if you make the playoffs or not. I don't think it matters if you have the number 1 seed or not.
I agree.
So yeah, I'm fine with that.
It does matter.
Welcome to the party. Well, I've already said no. Wait, hold on, Mars. I've already said Kareem won in '67 when he did make the playoffs.
76.
So yeah, so if it means
that was different. That was division stuff.
But then Jordan also won at the 7th best record. We already talked about the 7th record in the league.
LeBron should have
that's still making the playoffs though.
No, but but you're more than likely going to make the playoff. But if there are extenuating circumstances around why your team doesn't because of crazy injuries or something, could typically chill. I think you would agree. If you're of that caliber of player and you don't make the playoffs, that means you must have had some insane level of injury luck that just did not go your way that season, and you had to floor raise to 41, 42.
A bad team like Jabbar was in '76 because he basically got on the.
If you're on a bad team, if your team is bad, should that exclude you from being the MVP? Why? If it's an individual award, why should they exclude you?
They do that in baseball. In baseball, they don't care. Whoever's the best. That's that. And
well, why should it not? Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani are projected.
It sounds like I agree with baseball. But before we carry on with it, I just want to illustrate a point.
When the league MVP and Texas Rangers was at the bottom of the league of the American.
In 05, the Heat had a plus 9.4 net rating with Shaq on the court, which is elite. Yep. They had a plus 2.49 with Shaq off the court, which is okay. They were a solid team with Shaq off the court.
Meanwhile,
in 05, the Suns had a plus 12.4 net rating with Steve Nash on the court and a negative 2.09 with Steve Nash off the court.
Right.
His impact is directly illustrated there. And with Steve Nash on the court, they had a 119.96 offensive rating, which is historic for the time. With him off the court, they had a 102.8.
That's because of the style of play, Mars. Because you can say, and so what's the offensive rating for Shaq? Because remember that offense
with Shaq on the court. With Shaq on the court, they had a 113 offensive rating, so 6 short, 113.3, so 6 short of the Suns. And with him off the court, they had a 104, which is still better than the Suns without Nash. They're worse with Shaq on the court offensively than the Suns with Nash, and they're better with Shaq off the court offensively than the Suns without Nash. And then defensively, funny enough, their defense actually got slightly better with Shaq off the court. But like, there's context to these numbers. I'm not saying they're better without Shaq. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that the impact is illustrated there. Like Steve 100%. Nash is the focal point of this 62-win Suns team, whether we like it or not, whether he does it in a typical way or not, whether he does it with high volume scoring or not, or whether he turns the ball over too much or not. There's a direct correlation between what Steve Nash brings to the team and the team's results. Like there's a direct correlation between that. You can see that with Jokic this year. Well, I don't know what their stuff was with Jokic.
You can say the same thing.
Off the court. Like you see that with AG historically in Minnesota. With him on the court, they perform like an elite team. With him off the floor, they play like the worst team in the NBA. Like Steve Nash was that in 05. The Suns were a 62-win team in large part because of what Steve Nash brought. Whether we like it or not, whether the box score reflects it or not, whether the box plus minus is high enough or not, I don't care. You can see it. You go back and watch those 05 Suns teams. You go listen to anyone who played with Steve Nash on those 05 Suns teams. They know what he brought to the table. Like he was a very valid MVP candidate for 100%. That year.
I'm not going to argue that. And I'm not going to argue that point because he definitely was a MVP caliber player. When Shaq got to the Miami Heat, they went from being a playoff team to we're going to win the NBA championship. That's what's
Yes,
gonna
and I
happen.
think they would have. I
Right.
think they would have won if D-Wade doesn't get hurt in the conference final.
Not only would they have not won if D-Wade not got hurt, just so you know, Mars, they had ran through the playoffs before they got to the Eastern Conference Final. They hadn't lost. They hadn't lost one game before they got into the Eastern Conference Finals. And then you got a guy in Shaq as big as he was.
Well, maybe not one. They might have lost to the Spurs, but that's who the Suns lost to. The Suns lost to the Spurs as well. So
what I'm saying is the offense was ran through Shaq and he produced. Even an older Shaq, even a less dominant Shaq, he still was leading the league. He still was leading the league in field goal percentage. He still was leading the league in twos. He still was commanding double and triple teams, and he still was passing out of these double teams, and that produced 59 wins. That enhanced Dwayne Wade's game, even in year 2. That enhanced all of those guys. That enhanced Eddie Jones's game. That enhanced all of those guys' game, as opposed to if Shaq wasn't on the floor because they had to change.
But that was an elite basketball team. We all agree with that. I don't think anybody's taking away from that. They were an elite basketball team. They had the number 1 and number 2 in Shaq and Wade. Eddie Jones was still really good at this point.
Well, wait a minute, Swipe, but we don't know. We know that Wade is good, right? We know that Wade is good. We don't know that he's that good. When he gets with Shaq, Shaq definitely enhances.
Yeah, but but I think that's the point. Who doesn't need that to win at that level, though? Every player, especially guards, need that to win at that level. But why? But that's just the way teams work, though. Shaq gets credit for adding to that.
Just like Halliburton needs Siakam to play the way that Siakam plays in order for him to be successful. This thing doesn't work if Siakam isn't running in transition. If
the Suns went 2 and 5 without Nash. I think the Heat went 6 and 4 without Shaq. So small samples on both sides, or 6 and 3 without Shaq. So small samples on both sides, but even that illustrates the Suns couldn't really win without Nash. The Heat, once again, small samples. They both played a lot of games. The Heat were winning without Shaq.
Okay, but when you construct,
so like everything is illustrating that Nash was that impactful. That's what I'm saying.
When you construct a roster, what Pin? Let me hear this.
When you construct a roster which is so overly dependent on one player, and that player's backup is not very good, you're gonna have these crazy on-off splits, right? Steve Nash did not have mini Steve Nash behind him. I will argue
I agree. That was my point. That
that's LeBron's team for like that too, though.
That was my point.
How do you replace LeBron?
But hang on.
It's like directly correlated to that.
But LeBron and Luka, these heliocentric hubs, like, you know, these guys who suck up so much possessions, like even Jalen Brunson. Like, what does the Knicks offense look like without Jalen Brunson? It craters a little bit because he's very ball dominant, right? So I'm saying the quality of your backup is always going to impact these on-off splits. You look at Swipe it. You cover the Denver Nuggets. How bad is Jokic's backup? Right.
The Knicks actually performed.
I think the question comes up: who the hell is Jokic's backup? And so, yeah, when Jokic gets off the court,
because this doesn't make sense to me, don't Pin.
But of course it does, because the way you've structured your offense is we dump the ball into Jokic, he gets that first advantage, then he sprays it out to shooters, and when he goes off the court, you go to something completely different. It's not.
Yeah, but every great player is that. Every one of them. Who
was Shaq's backup in 05?
I don't even remember.
That's not Alonzo that year.
Yeah,
it Grant still?
Alonzo
Brian Grant still,
right? No, Brian Grant got traded for Shaq. What are you talking about?
Because he was in New Jersey and then he had that kidney issue. So it wasn't
he got traded to Toronto and then he refused to show up.
But to your
point being is that Shaq's backup wasn't exactly a world beater.
No, he wasn't.
No, I understand that, but I guess what I'm saying is if you structure an offense with a bunch of transition play finishers who are overly dependent on a player to feed them on offense.
Isn't that Indiana, Pin? Isn't that what Indiana has? I mean, they are dependent on Tyrese Halliburton.
They are dependent on, but look at the quality of his backup. I mean, Ox would definitely be the first person to tell you. They could, yes, right. Yes, so they can replicate 65 to 70% of what Halliburton can do to some extent, right? You're not going to completely have to change your offensive structure. Like if Halliburton misses a game, it's not like, oh, now we got to be Pascal Siakam offensive ISO team.
I remember that.
You know, so
but this sounds like you're defining value and then holding it against someone.
No, what I'm saying is there are certain players that are your scarcity on one hand does not define value to me.
Jordan, LeBron,
right?
Kareem.
Like my high school gym socks. They're
very rare. Teams were all
right. They can be rare, but they're not valuable
because that's just their skill set. Like are they too dependent on their skill set? And like that's why the teams are so bad when they're not on the floor. Like I guess I'm confused. I'm legitimately confused. Like that,
when your skill set isn't easy to replace, like that sounds like value to me.
No, because the value is only dependent on the archetype, right?
I get what Pin is true.
Like I have to use an example from college basketball today. Danny Wolf, right? You have a 7-foot center I think we've all seen him play. It's very unique. Turns the ball over at a high rate. I don't think they have a single player. I don't think there's a player in the country that could have replaced what he did. But then the question is, how valuable is what he does when you can't win a championship with a player playing like that, turning the ball over like that, right? Nash's high volume possessions are a lot like James Harden's high volume everything that he did. D'Antoni liked to do that. If you look at the various examples, Nash is not the only player who's benefited from D'Antoni. Harden benefited from D'Antoni. For a limited time, Jeremy Lin benefited from D'Antoni. That sort of run everything through one guy stuff.
Is this LeBron?
I think that actually does not work.
Is this LeBron criticism then? Because I think the same can be said of LeBron. The teams they had the number 1 overall pick as soon as he left. And then like they bottomed out as soon as he would leave these teams. Like, and they weren't good when he was off the floor. Unless even with like Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh on the floor, they weren't near as good of a team. Is LeBron is his gravity so much within the organization that like he's actually hurting the team in retrospect because you're doing too much to build around him? Because that's, comparing by your definition, that's literally what happened to them when he left the team or he left the floor. The team falls apart. They have no identity. They're not the same.
Just like that too.
But I'm saying, is that a criticism though, or is that just like when you have a player that's that good?
I don't think it's a criticism or a compliment. I think it's a choice. It's a choice you make as an organization that we are going to be very dependent on one person to do this one specific thing, and we're going to double down, triple down, quadruple down on that player being able to be on the floor to do that specific thing. And I think that can burn you. It can burn you. It has not sustainably produced championship after championship. I think Michael Jordan is a great example, weirdly enough, of a player who was very high usage. But the minute he left, it's not like the Bulls fell apart. Like, they were still a very good team. They were still
because of the system, not because of him.
Exactly. But the system was not one guy. Like, that's what people don't realize. With I was young enough. I watched Michael Jordan play through most of his through most of those 90s. I mean, granted, I was a very small child at the time, but I remember him getting off the ball. I remember Scottie Pippen and Tony Kukoc doing a lot of the playmaking responsibility stuff. Like, it was not all one guy just grabs the ball and, Jalen Brunson's it. Right?
That's how I feel about the Suns.
So Ron, can't we say that? Can't we say that same thing about your Indiana Pacers?
Don't look at that. Yes, we can, Pin, because somebody has to be a play finisher.
But if you want to win championships, if you want to win championships, I believe that you need much more. I don't believe that this archetype, what do Steve Nash and James Harden have in common? 0 championships. Halliburton doesn't have any championships either, and I don't yet. But I
mean, yeah, but I think there's many reasons beyond the play style that those teams didn't win. Like, I mean, James Harden, the obvious elephant in the room is that Game 7 against the Warriors. That Chris Paul goes down. Maybe if he doesn't go down, maybe they do have a championship. Then all of a sudden, James Harden's play style was conducive to winning, or did they just have the circumstances on his side? Maybe. Steve Nash, the Suns' offense was never the reason why they struggled. And Steve Nash was responsible for the offense. The Suns' offense was never the reason they struggled. They couldn't guard anything. Now, Steve Nash is a huge part of that. But we go back to the point of how exploitable was Steve Nash back in 2005 as opposed to how he would be today. He wasn't the biggest reason why their defense struggled. Amara Stoudemire was a bad defender. Sean Marion was their only good defender. We're going to keep it above. Like, the Suns lost because their defense wasn't good enough a lot of the times in the playoffs. Their offense usually always performed. And that was the part of the court that Steve Nash was responsible for. So could you not win with Steve Nash, or did they just not put the right defensive pieces around Steve Nash to where they could win? Could you not win with James Harden, or did he just have bad injury luck at the wrong times? Like, I don't like the idea that you can't win with this or you can win with this. It's like, sometimes winning and losing is dependent on things outside of your control. And I think that's what you see with guys like Steve Nash. You see that with guys like number 32. You see that with guys like James Harden. You see that with guys like Reggie Miller. Like, I think you could win with Reggie Miller, but you just didn't. That doesn't mean you couldn't. I think something not happening doesn't mean it was impossible. That's where I'm kind of.
I don't like to think about it was possible or impossible. I say probable or improbable. If Reggie Miller is your best player, I think winning a championship is improbable. If Jalen Brunson's your best player, I think winning a championship is improbable. It's definitely not impossible. Certainly, a lot of
better chance of others. I agree with that. Better chances.
So my view on this is, if I'm building a team, what I want to do is I want to give myself a 7-year window where winning a championship is probable. Right? That's all I want. And
I think the Suns had a probable chance if they put some better defenders around.
And that's the thing.
07 was their best chance, but
they didn't have the rim protection or the point of
attack. Yeah, I said it, but I'm talking about with Steve Nash's skill set. I'm talking about with Steve Nash's skill set. I think winning a championship is probable. You just got to put, like, you can't have one good defender on the team. Like, I just don't think that's viable in any situation.
Yeah, but
like, that's not a Steve Nash dependent thing. That's anyone. Like, Steph Curry. if you put the Suns around Steph Curry, right? Steph Curry, who is a bad defender, elite offensive engine.
Way better than Nash, though.
I agree.
Way better defender.
Yeah, I'm not saying Steve Nash is Steph Curry. I want to make that abundantly clear. But what I am saying is, even though Steph Curry is still Steph Curry, the championship chances decrease immensely because you only have one good defender on the court. The reason the Warriors were able to build a dynasty, whether we like it or not, and how good Steph Curry is offensively, they were dominant defensively. Every year they won a championship, bar 2018, in which I think they just slacked off in the regular season and then turned into an elite defense in the postseason again. 2015, elite defense, even though they were a really good offense. 2016, elite defense and offense. 2017, elite defense and offense. 2018, elite offense, elite defense in the postseason. 2019, elite offense and defense, especially in the postseason. And then 2022, mediocre offense, elite defense. When the Warriors win, their defense is always elite. And that's not to take back from Steph Curry. But if you build a defense around a guy like Steph Curry, you increase your chances. If you build a defense around Steve Nash, you increase your chances. With Steph Curry on the Suns isn't a worse player because they have no defense. It's just they didn't build the right unit around him. Same thing I think with Steve Nash.
But Penn's point is, well, at least I would
argue, have to make my point.
I would argue that the style of play and what Penn's talking about as far as one player dominating the ball, I think Steph Curry allows for more defensive slanted players to be on the court with him and still have a great offense. Like that's the difference. Like for me, that's also why I don't really get into the team offensive like net rating and stuff like, because let's take another team Steve Nash played for, right, with Dallas Mavericks, and a lot of times they would like slide Dirk to the 5. You know what I'm saying?
They did that in 04 and they lost in the round 1 because of it.
Yeah, but that's what I'm,
but 03 they could have beat the Spurs if Dirk doesn't get hurt.
If you're slanting, but if I have to slant my team like so offensive leaning, you know what I'm saying, to capitalize on us being a great offense, that is minimizing my defense.
To do that. They chose to do that. Don Nelson was notorious for experimenting. He loved to
in the playoffs too, by the way.
But he didn't have to do that because in 03, when they made the conference finals, Dirk was playing the 4, and then I think they were either up 2-1 or down 2-1. I can't remember off the top of my head. Against the Spurs, and Dirk gets hurt, and then they proceed to lose the series. If Dirk doesn't get, this comes back to injury luck. If Dirk doesn't get hurt and they beat the Spurs and they play the Nets in the finals and they win, is Steve Nash now a better player because you can win with Steve Nash? I know he's not the best player on the team, but is Steve Nash now a better player because you can win with Steve Nash, or did fortune just?
Okay, let me go back to the Warriors because you want to bring up the injury luck. My point is, I think a player that plays like Steph Curry allows for Draymond to still be like that viable offensively, allows for an Andre Iguodala to be you know what I'm saying? Like, I think if one player dominates the ball and it's kind of easy to guard as far as like, do we just want to switch these pick and roll coverages, or do we, you know what I'm saying,
like
want to play high drop? You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that's easier to cover because like Steph Curry is allowing for so many back cuts. He's allowing for so many just wide open rim opportunities, or just flat out wide spanking butt naked open corner 3. Like, he's allowing for these.
Switching was the answer to the Warriors for a stretch.
More valuable than Steve Nash.
But switching was how you solved the Warriors for a stretch of time. That was the counter to what the Warriors did before that.
Yeah, but that wasn't. There wasn't a team. There weren't many teams that could just switch like that in the league.
There wasn't many teams. That's why they were better than most teams. But when they came up against teams that could switch, they struggled. And we're talking about winning at the highest level. Those teams exist now.
I mean,
they need to be all 30 teams, but they struggled. Like even with Kevin Durant against the Rockets, who switched everything, they struggled, and Kevin Durant was the game breaker for that. Once again, this is not me holding Steph. Like, I'm not saying Steph Curry isn't an all-time great offensive weapon. He is. But even with Steph Curry's off-ball stuff, switching was the answer to that, and it took away a lot of these advantages that you say Steph Curry creates. With Steve Nash, switching didn't work because of how much of a great mismatch attacker he was for himself individually in isolation, and for the fact that he was just, it's similar to what Halliburton does. You can't switch against the Pacers because Halliburton's going to find the mismatch. It doesn't need to be him isolating. It could be, oh, well, Pascal's got a small on him. I'm going to find him instantly. That wasn't really Steph Curry's game. And also, it wasn't the Warriors' game because they didn't have that post threat. Like,
yeah, they didn't have a player like that.
And once again, this comes down to roster construction. This is it goes back to the point we had 2 hours ago. You have to build a roster. The roster has to be good enough. With Steve Nash, I think offensively, they had good personnel. Defensively, they didn't. I think personally, did they need to go all the way in on the offense to have the best offense in the league and have a bad defense? No. So I think they could have supplemented some of the offense with defensive personnel and still been elite. Yes, but they chose not to do that. That doesn't mean you can't win with Steve Nash. That just means I think they built the roster on.
But what I'm saying is like the fact that like realizing that the roster is so offensively like tilted in the five that he's playing with. That what I'm saying is I then can't objectively to me just look at him and say, oh, well, they're plus 7.2 offensive net rate or whatever. Like, so he gets all of this like benefit.
Well, when that offense offense falls off a cliff without him, I do think that's relevant. I don't think it's the end all be all.
I mean, he's definitely the playmaker.
Yeah, it comes down to skill set. Absolutely, it comes down to skill set. I'm not saying it's only because of Steve Nash. Steve Nash needs guys to pass to. Playmakers in general. Jason Kidd, Chris Paul, Steve Nash, Tyrese Halliburton. You need guys who can finish the plays you're creating. But at the end of the day, Steve Nash did create some of the best shot quality in the NBA. Now, if you're creating shot quality for Russell Westbrook in the corner as opposed to Joe Johnson, all of a sudden the same exact shot is of different value. I agree with that. So I understand that it's more than just Steve Nash, but even with scorers, it's more than just that scorer. All I'm saying, and we can end it here. I don't subscribe to the idea that you can't win with a subsection of players or an archetype of player, because I'll use Steph Curry is a perfect example for this for me, because it used to be you can't win with guys like Steph Curry. You can't win with small guards. You can't win with guys who predominantly shoot the three. You can't win with just predominantly outside scoring players. You can't win with that. And then he won, and all of a sudden now every team needs this level of spacing. And some teams actually ended up ruining their franchise because they were trying to pursue something that quite frankly wasn't pursuable. So I think guys like James Harden, I think you can win with James Harden. I think you have to build a roster correctly. I think you can win with Steve Nash. I think you can win with Reggie Miller. I think you can win with number 32. I think you can win with those guys. Just because you didn't doesn't mean it's possible. I think KG in Minnesota was a good enough player to win with. They were just incompetent. I don't hold that against KG. Now, I think there are some players it's easier to win with. Michael Jordan, I think, is easier to win with when you have a two-way player who's great off the ball, great on the ball, and can shoot. That's like the recipe. That's perfect. LeBron James, someone who can play, make, get downhill, resilient scorer because of his strength and physical imposition. That gives you a better chance, and that's why they're probably better players. But I think when you have someone who, quite frankly, in any sort of situation, is going to guarantee you elite offense when Amari Stoudemire is not there, and you now have Boris Diaw in the lineup, who once again was a really good player, and they're still able to produce elite offense, or when Mike D'Antoni's not there and it's Alvin Gentry and they're still able to put out elite offense. Like, I think Steve Nash, when you have someone who's pretty much a walking top 5 offense, that gives you a chance. Now you have to put the defense around it. You have to have the complementary pieces, just like any other team. But that gives you a chance. That gets you in the door. Same reason with like Rudy Gobert to a lesser extent. If you have someone who pretty much guarantees you a top 5 defense, I think you have a chance of success with that. Now, is his offense so bad that it actually ruins your chances? Maybe, but you get into the door, I think, when you have someone who individually can generate you elite production on one side of the ball. So that's it. But I'm not saying Nash gives you a better chance to step or whatever.
50% of the offense, Ron.
Huh?
Steve Nash was responsible for almost 50% of the offense. Like, who doing that?
Yeah.
When you got a guy that's responsible for almost half our offense, it's not happening.
Chill. I don't want to discredit it. And it's gonna sound like I'm saying what he's doing is easy, and that's not the point I'm making. The point I'm making is when you look at Halliburton and Steve Nash, they both have good players around them. Halliburton does happen to have better playmakers around them with Nembhard, and then he got TJ McConnell.
Nash has better scorers.
And that's the point I'm making. Nash was in a playmaker's dream scenario. I have a dude who will catch anything. 2 guys who will catch anything I throw to the rim. I have 2 guys spacing the floor that would knock down anything. And also, Sean Marion, one of the dudes who would catch any oop, is also a fast break demon. And I think he shot like 37% from 3 that year. Something like that. So he also was stretching the floor. All I'm saying is, as a playmaker, I would rather not have other playmakers around me and substitute them with four guys.
I think there's a big reason why a lot of those guys' efficiency plummeted when Steve Nash wasn't out there. Like plummeted.
No, for sure.
They are good players, but there's Joe Johnson wasn't a 47% 3-point shooter anywhere else. Amari Stoudemire wasn't as efficient without Steve Nash as he was with him. Like, there's a reason why these guys were that efficient, and a big reason for that was Steve Nash. Like, he goes hand in hand. Team game, basically. Team game.
Yeah, I'm just saying, as a player, as a passer, if I can get 4 other, like, just imagine Trae Young with 4 other highly competent offensive players.
I agree.
He's gonna look so much better. And I'm just saying, like, to that point, if Morris, how does Steve Nash's season look in 2005 if you take off, let's say you replace two of the players, spin the wheel, whatever. You replace two of those players with more defensively inclined players. His assists go down a little more. Maybe his score goes up a little more. But now does he win MVP? If you make them a more defensive-oriented team. You see what I'm saying?
I mean, are you saying defensively inclined players who just aren't good on offense? Like,
well,
Roberson?
That's what I'm saying. It's a give or take because you typically now they could get lucky and draft a J-Dub and you put J-Dub in. And it's like, I'm good on both sides. Okay, obviously he's better. But I'm saying if it's just like a trade where we're trading some of our offensive assets for some of our defensive assets. Or for some better defensive assets.
Yeah, I think they might have a better chance of winning a championship, and maybe that does take away Nash's MVPs. I'm sure if you ask him, he chooses a championship over the MVPs any day.
For sure.
So, and you know me, I don't care about the accolades. Nash could have no MVPs, and I'd still say the same things I say about him. But if he won, I think that would put to rest the idea that you can't win with him. But the MVP doesn't make much of a difference to me. I do think he won MVPs, and I say it all the time. The MVP is a narrative-based award. I think Nash won the MVPs because of narratives. Like, he was a great performer. He was amazing in 05 and 06. And I think in 07, it was the best year ever, and he didn't win the MVP. Because the narrative of him winning 3 straight, let's be honest. Steve Nash being the first one since Larry Bird to win 3 straight in a league that had Michael Jordan in it, in a league that had Kobe Bryant in it, in a league that had Shaq in it. That just doesn't sound right. I think everyone can agree. Nash being the first person since Larry Bird, that just doesn't sound right. But I think he played at that level, but I think the narrative is what pushed him over the edge, turning a 29-win team to a 62-win team in the eyes of the voters. That got him the award. Amara Stoudemire then going down and still winning 54 games, that won him that award. Like, people are looking at it like, well, people who thought Amara Stoudemire was the reason the Suns were this good, he's not even there and they're still this good. So that's why Nash won it. So Nash definitely benefited from narratives in the regular season. I just think 20 years later, those narratives are now coming back to bite him, where I think people are underrating him because they don't think he deserved the MVPs. Where even if you don't think he deserved them, let's say Nash has 0 MVPs, that doesn't change how good he is. And how good he was in 05 and 06 and 07 and 08 and 09, 2010. Like, that doesn't change MVPs or not.
You say 3-time MVP would have been crazy, right? But do you realize how few players have actually won back-to-back MVPs? The list is very small. Here's the list. Yeah, Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Steve Nash, Tim Duncan, Steph Curry, LeBron James, Nikola Jokic, Giannis, Michael, Magic, Bird, Moses. He is definitely the worst player on that list.
I don't agree, but that's besides the point.
Who's worse?
Moses Malone.
They think it's Moses. I don't think so, but anyway.
Chill thinks Moses Malone.
I've said this before, and we don't need to rehash it up. We don't need to re-bring it up.
Cool.
Chill thinks Moses Malone is like a top.
Yeah, I think Moses is the worst player.
I got him. I
always say, like, being the worst player of that group, like, even if Nash is the worst player of the group, because I don't care to argue. I think it's Moses, but I don't care. You're the brokest billionaire. Like, doesn't make much difference to me. Like, Nash could be the worst of that group. It doesn't. I don't care.
Yo, we gonna go ahead and move on off of this though. It was a good conversation. Salute to Steve Nash, and salute to all of his proteges and prototypes. Salute to those Suns and Mike D'Antoni. But y'all, I know we got all week, but Penn, you are up here today. You might not be up here tomorrow or the day after. So while you're up here, I know you felt a certain type of way about the voting for the Eastern Conference Finals MVP, and this was as such. Halliburton received 4 votes. And Pascal Siakam received 5. Thoughts on this?
I mean, look, I honestly thought you were going to say, what do you think about the Giannis to Toronto reports?
Yeah,
but, okay.
I wanted to talk about that, but that was supplemented.
We've run out of time. I think Pascal played great. I don't want to be accused of being a Pascal hater. I think Pascal played great. They don't win this series without him. But when you are talking about the most valuable player, you need to go away from the box score and start watching the game. They are not even close in this series without Halliburton. That triple-double that he had, his ability to limit turnovers, his ability to control pace, the shot that he hit in game 1, to send the game to overtime, which, the choke and everything, his control over the pace of the game. I think the Indiana Pacers controlled pace better than they did, better than the Knicks did. The quick hitters, making Pascal so efficient. People just looked at Pascal shooting 50% from 3, probably in the same way we talk about Joe Johnson shooting 44% from 3. Who's responsible for that? Is it Pascal Siakam suddenly turning into Steph Curry, or is it maybe Tyrese Halliburton just always knows where to find him and how to find him? And I think, for all the criticism Hali gets on defense, and all maybe the praise that Siakam gets on offense, I want to remind you that 15 years ago, we would kill a big for averaging 5 rebounds. We would destroy them. We'd be
Jaren
like,
Jackson gets fried in 2025 for that.
he does. But Siakam averaged 5 rebounds in this series, in which, you know,
He's not looked at as a big.
But that's
Well,
that's
he-
because
he
that's
is
why
a
he was
big.
able to score in transition so much, because when the
Because
shots
he
go up,
is a
he's
big.
getting out. But
Because
that's
he is a
why.
big, and
was
I
strategic.
think you know, for the most part, Mitchell Robinson's, you know, insertion into the lineup helped Pascal Siakam a lot, because he could just destroy them in transition, and he was so much faster up the court than those guys. It's a reason why Obi Toppin, you know, was a bit, at least in theory, could have been a cheat code. I just do not think.
And you
I
told
think-
you told us we can't look at basketball like that anymore. You told us that bigs don't have to do traditional big things. You said that bigs that don't protect the rim but do other things it's okay because it's 2025. So now to try to hold Pascal Siakam to standards because he's a big, he has to average over 5 rebounds. When Mars is trying to explain to you that he's getting out, that he's getting out.
I said
Well, you said that we would have killed him, and you insinuated that today right now, and you even tried to hold him accountable in the group chat. So now I'm asking you: is it not okay for Pascal Siakam to have more than 5 rebounds because he's a big, but it's okay for other 7-footers to not protect the rim?
I think
that's unfair double standard.
I don't think it's double standard. I think it's perfectly fine if you want to have 5 rebounds a game, but when you win conference finals MVP over your point guard who averaged 6 rebounds a game and was definitely way more influential and instrumental.
Wasn't a better rebounder than Pascal in the series, by the way. I think that's a results thing. The process thing.
I think you're
Hali
ignoring
goes
the game.
against the basketball. Like Hali his assignment is to go and get the basketball. The other end, the Pascal's assignment is to run out and create cross matches on the other end, and he did that, to which he was dominating. And I think that's a credit to him listening to Rick Carlisle. Hey, you can get a cross match, score, what did you say? 40% of your points in transition, because if we beat them down the floor, they can't get set fast enough, or because you're going to be going against the low man, it's going to be Jalen Brunson or McBride or Hart down there instead of OG Anunoby or Mitchell Robinson.
Yeah, that's bad logic too. Yeah, that's bad logic.
But this is like saying James Worthy deserved an MVP over Magic Johnson because he was great.
He did. He got it in 88, and he was fantastic against the Detroit Pistons in 88. 100%. No doubt about it. No, but
I think
it's also
love to be different.
I told you if you do this, I will mercilessly cook you for this.
No, but it's also
I think Halliburton deserved it. I just think the rebounding point is weird considering it's definitely strategic.
And I think Pascal deserved it because I felt like in terms of his offense, how much in terms of a bucket getter and in terms of how much advantages he created as a bucket getter for other people in addition to Halliburton, how much better they were. I mean, that transition offense doesn't work without him. Not like that. I mean, it works, but it doesn't work without him like that.
Sure.
Their half-court offense, it doesn't work like that without him. It might work it might work to some extent, but it's not working like that without him. Not nearly as much. And in terms of him being 6'9", how many more different advantages does he create on the offensive end than Halliburton? Way more. Because now he's getting in different switches. He's getting in different action. He's playing in the post. He's playing in the mid-post. He's in transition. He's doing so many other things that these other guys can't do that it won't work if he's not on the floor.
Look, I think the Knicks are a bad defense. We agree with that, right? I think if I look at a lot of Pascal's scoring opportunities, a lot of them were in transition. If you just go back, I'll implore anybody who maybe has a little bit of selective amnesia about this, go back and look at how he scored in Game 6 and how many times it was the direct result of Karl-Anthony Towns just being late on a closeout, late on a rotation, and he's just getting wide open to the rim.
If we're taking away
capitalizing on bad defense,
Karl-Anthony Towns, then that takes away from Hali as well.
He's not just late.
We
on,
can agree.
On
Pascal benefited from poor Knicks defensive attention to detail, particularly from Cat, and also in transition. We can agree with that. That doesn't make exploiting clear advantages you have is the definition of being valuable and impactful.
Right, but
if you don't exploit those advantages, you're hurting your team. You have to do that.
I think more what I'm trying to say is that when I think about most valuable, I think about most important. Right?
Okay.
I think about the most important player for their team's success. That's what I'm trying to commemorate with these awards. If I'm a media voting person,
Pippen had won the the Eastern Conference Finals MVP in '93 over Jordan, even though Jordan scored more points than him? You think he should have won it?
I don't know. I don't have a solid take on that, but Scott, you definitely not.
Scottie Pippen was pretty awesome in that series. He
but
was.
how you play offensively is at least
better.
partially a result of how they play you defensively, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if let's just say Tibbs came into this series and said, you know what, we're just going to let Halliburton do whatever he wants, but this Pascal Siakam guy, he's their best player. We need to stop him, right? We're going to put everything we can to get the ball out of his hands. Well, he's not scoring this way anymore. We're going to adjust our game plan to stop Siakam. Well, I'm sorry. If I stop, let's just say it this way. For me, the best player on the team should always get the MVP unless the second best player drastically outplayed him. If it's split even, I have to assume that the best player got more defensive coverage. Now, let's just say, for instance, Shaquille O'Neal is the best player on the 2001 Lakers, right? Mm-hmm. And let's just say the other team decides we're going to triple team Shaq when he gets a half court. And as a result, Robert Horry scores 22 points per game in that series because they just leave him open because they're crazy. Is Robert Horry more impactful than Shaq? Is he more valuable than Shaq because Shaq had to pass the ball out because he was getting triple teamed? If you're
wouldn't Robert Horry be the Aaron Nesmith in this situation?
Yeah, I don't see how this is.
He would be the Siakam or the
that's why we disagree. I don't see how this is Pascal.
I think you're going way too far. I think if you disagree that the play initiator and the main offensive hub should have won. Wait, huh? What'd you say?
I said 7-time NBA champion Robert Horry. Yeah, I definitely agree that Pascal Siakam is a hella talented player. I've never tried to argue he wasn't a top 25, top 20 player. Do I think he's better than Robert Horry? Yeah, I do.
I just think,
but he will be closer to Kobe in this situation. That's the second best player.
Yeah, obviously Halliburton's not Shaq.
Wow.
Siakam's not Kobe.
Right.
Like in this hypothetical, that's where it would be. You're saying Halliburton gets all the attention, a la Shaquille O'Neal, and Kobe is the benefactor of that by
you jumped over Kobe to go to Robert Horry.
But Kobe is not a Shaq merchant. Okay, Kobe
Siakam's not a Halliburton merchant.
I'm sorry. When you are 10% more efficient, relative, like I watch Pascal Siakam for years.
It doesn't make him a merchant, Pen. Don't do that. Okay. No, that does not make him a merchant, Pen.
I watch
I'm more productive with him on the floor. That does
option.
not mean that I'm a merchant because he was 20 a game when he didn't have Tyrese Halliburton.
When you get 40%
doing that in the playoffs,
transition, you are a role player.
Doing that in the playoffs. He was doing that in the regular season.
Because Giannis gets 40% of his points in transition.
What the hell?
Okay.
Why don't he a role player? Does that make him less great?
No, it does not.
Oh my goodness.
No, I'm saying does that genuinely make him less great because he just is way more athletic and way faster than everybody, so therefore he scores more transition points in the league than anybody else for 6 straight years? Does that make him less good?
I think it matters how much of your team's load and creation you handle, right? I also think it matters how much of the other team's defensive attention you garner. Okay. So if I have to put a double on you, and you're splitting my double because you are so physically dominant, like a Jokic or a Giannis, that means I'm creating open pockets of space all over the court.
But Anthony Davis wasn't any of that for the Lakers teams.
I don't look, man. The MVP comes down to this: who generates more advantage? That's it. That's what it comes down to. I don't care what you do with that advantage.
If that's your MVP trope, then how did you vote SGA MVP if he creates less advantages than the other person? Like that's what I'm saying. You at some level,
I voted it. You
have to have your logic is inconsistent based on what you're arguing, though. The issue is
back to SGA versus Jokic, but honestly, I've never debated.
If you're going to go to like advantage creation as the primary thing, then you're always going to have to lean towards the primary advantage creator in any setting, whether it's league wide or whether it's in series. I'm saying I would have given it to Hali too. I would have given it to Tatum. I mean, I think that's pretty clear, but there's reasons why.
On the same side. Why are we arguing?
No, you said Pascal Siakam is the Robert Horry of the situation, and I'm completely disagreeing with you.
If Robert Horry averaged 22 points in a series in which they tripled Shaq, yeah, he would be the Robert Horry in this situation.
There's no Shaq.
Robert Horry.
There isn't. There is no Shaquille O'Neal on the court. Real talk, am I tripping? There's no Shaquille O'Neal on the court.
No.
We way behind, Ron. Superchats, brother. We got to roll.
Yeah, please.
We got to roll.
204. God, leave, Ron. All right, bro.
All right, fellas. All right, Swiper.
Yep.
All right, jumping into the super chat. Salute to everybody that's out here. Let's see what the people have spoken and said. Jalen King sent through a members chat and said, Indiana versus OKC. Casuals will hate, but it is great hoops.
Yes, they will.
Predictions?
I'm taking OKC in 5.
Yeah, I got OKC in 5-6 games.
OKC in 4.
Ron, my best friend. I'm gonna be honest.
5. You know, I give Rick Carlisle 1 win.
Ron, my best
Pacers in
friend.
5.
I was about to say, Ron, my best friend. He got Indiana running these dudes out the arena. He got them smoking OKC.
So we best friends now?
my main man, he got them.
That means you're not gonna fire on me when you see me.
I'm still firing on you when I see you. Ain't no
We
question
best
about
friend.
that. Straight
Best
swinging
friend.
on
That
you.
don't sound like best friends to me, Chad.
No doubt. Oh, I swing on my best friend too. Go ahead.
All right. Dame the Great sent through a members chat and said, on Mars' show, they spoke about the Knicks trading Cat for KD straight up. If you were the Knicks, would you do it?
No.
Duh.
No.
Yeah, I would.
The Knicks.
If I'm the Knicks,
Here
I
go
would-
Chill
why
hating on
wouldn't I
KD
trade
again. Here
KD
he
for
goes.
Cat?
Why would you guys do that?
What?
For
Because
1 or 2
KD's
years.
way better than Cat.
Yeah, I know that, but you gotta look.
You
See,
want
this is what I'm saying.
Cat's $60 million contracts in 2028? You want that?
I want Cat for how old is Cat?
28.
27, maybe 28.
27?
28.
Yeah, I want Cat for 7 for
So you
anywhere
want to
from
pay
5 to 8 years.
you want to pay Cat 60 million 3 years from now?
I'm not necessarily tripping off the money.
Oh yeah, that's why I disagree.
Cat will be 30 next year, just so
I
y'all
think,
are clear.
I think KD
And KD will be 40 in 2 years.
Yeah,
And
KD's
still better.
KD is
It's-
short. KD is definitely short term. Absolutely. Like if we're looking at longevity, absolutely.
But your
I
window's
think-
open right now.
Yeah, I think the Knicks' best chance is now with no Jason Tatum next year. Their best chance is now. So I think short term is probably better than long term. And B, having KD off the books as opposed to having to pay Cat 60 million down the line when you have Brunson on a cheap ass deal makes more sense than having to pay Cat the money that Brunson should be making. Like you're not benefiting from Brunson's cheaper deal by having Cat. Whereas I think you will benefit if you have Brunson on a cheaper deal with space to acquire someone who I think isn't going to hurt your team in the long run defensively because they're a liability. I just think that makes sense. And KD is just better than Cat. Like, so you got a better player, short term, more flexibility down the line in a year where your window is smaller anyway right now. It makes sense on these sides.
Undersized guards don't usually age super well. I was looking this up the other day because I was curious about, people were saying like, oh, the Raptors should trade for Giannis. And I'm like, shit, this is the downside of Giannis. I don't think he's going to be as good as he was a few years ago. So I was looking at when does a player win their average MVP? It's age 27. That's the average MVP age is 27. Jalen Brunson's 28. So your window is right now. He's not going to get markedly better than this. You're not building around a 22-year-old where you're like, oh, well, it matters what's happening 4 years from now. 4 years from now, Jalen Brunson is going to be a 6-foot guard who's 32, 33 years old and nowhere near the level of offensive engine that he is today. So Jalen Brunson plus KD plus Mikal Bridges plus, OG, damn. Plus Mitchell Robinson.
Now it's plus Mikal Bridges and plus. I was just now here. I've been hearing the whole playoffs. Mikal's not worth this, not worth that. I'm just saying. I've seen KD in the last
third or fourth option. He's definitely good.
I've seen KD since he left the Golden State Warriors go to big three after big three after big three, which this essentially be a big two with him and Brunson. I've seen him go to situation after situation and wreck it. And I'm not saying it's all his fault. I'm just saying situations just don't work out for whatever reasons. Maybe KD just isn't as good as you guys think he is. I don't know. All I know is
better player doesn't mean better fit, Mars.
However, he's both. BOFF. He's both.
However, Mars, they still have the same issues when you get down to it. If you get to the Eastern Conference Finals and KD doesn't break down, is Tibbs running KD into the ground? What are they going to do?
Oh, I thought you meant the same issues that they have with Cat. Oh, okay.
No, I'm saying the bench is more important than anything.
However, I think KD gives you that flexibility.
Okay, if he does that, I'm all for it.
That's what I'm saying. I think it just makes sense short term because you get the better player and the better fit because you don't have to worry about KD being a defensive liability. He's also hot take better offensively than Cat. So you got a better offensive, better defensive player, someone who you don't have to worry about being a liability on that side of the ball when you already have one in Jalen Brunson. Then you get the short term, the fact that once again he's the better player, and then long term you get the fact that you're not tied down to KD for the next 3-4 years on a contract that quite frankly is drastically overpaying for a player of that caliber. So I don't see how it doesn't make sense. I just don't know why the Suns would do it, but it makes sense for the Knicks.
You could still get off.
I know why the Suns would do it. D Book and Cat. I would love that.
They were the 28th ranked defense this year.
What's that team doing in the playoffs?
You gotta be a GM.
They were the 28th ranked defense with Kevin Durant, who was probably their best high minute defender. You're gonna lose him and add Cat?
Yeah, well, first off, I'm looking once for me, it's an age thing. I got Cat, who's a top 10 player, arguably, and I got Devin Booker, who's a top 15 player, arguably. All right, you can say they both top 15. However,
Devin
I got
Booker's
two
better
top
than Cat.
I agree, but I'm saying whatever. You can say 15 top 20, but I got two dudes that are smack that in their prime, and I get to build on top of that. Now, as a GM, you gotta go and tinker.
Remember, you still have Bradley Beal's contract just on the team that you can't get rid of. Like, remember that. So you have Book, Bill, and Cat. Like, I'm sorry, that's just bad.
They should just they should buy him.
Well,
out.
the Suns are gonna be in a bad position with KD as well. Like,
That's what I'm saying. Like,
why don't they just buy him out? I would be
it's a
shocked.
lot of money to buy out.
Just so you know, he's on the books.
They got a lot of money.
$54 million. He's on the books for this season.
All right, y'all. Moving along. My man Cheese gifted 10 Players Choice memberships.
Love
if you
Cheese.
got one of those, you already know what to do. Subscribe and
Bill
like the
has
video.
2 more years. Oh my god.
Jeremy Conley also became a YouTube member. Shout out to Jeremy Conley. Mugarbe said Penn looks like a clown now. Talking about Pascal could not lead a team to the NBA Finals.
Wake me up when he leads a team to the NBA Finals. Shut the hell
Wait,
up.
how do we know who's leading the team? We're not in the locker room. Maybe Pascal is the leader. I don't know.
Well, he's definitely participated really, really well. I mean, just he released a 5-6 minute video today on X, about the journey, getting to this finals point, talking about, how he took it for granted the last time he was at the finals and how it's taken, 6 years to get back there. I'm rooting for him, man. I don't think it's going to be good. I don't think it's going to be fun.
Oh, if Pascal Siakam solves this OKC defense.
Oh, God.
Is he top 15?
Is he what?
Is he top 15?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, 100%. If he solves this defense.
But Julius Randle is not.
But Julius Randle didn't solve shit. But
no, he didn't.
Yes, look, I think Pascal he's been multiple time All-NBA, right? Including a second team All-NBA.
So it's Julius Randle.
If he wins a championship here and he plays well, oh my goodness, the conversations that will open up. Because I tell you right now, Raptor fans are already like, I can't believe we gave up Pascal Siakam for this bum, Brandon Miller. They're going crazy right now.
Brandon Ingram.
Sorry, Brandon Ingram. So they're going crazy about that right now. If he goes and wins a championship against this historical level of defense and he doesn't turn the ball over like 15 times a game and he's efficient from the field and he continues to light it up from the outside, and the conversations that will be.
Let's go, Pascal. Let's go. Come on.
And I'm here to tell you right now, Pascal is going to play miles better than Julius Randle. Now, Julius had that game one, but in terms of game to game, Pascal, he's more methodical with his moves, with his dribbling. Getting downhill, he can straight line drives and stuff like, and even in transition. I'm telling you, he's going to be better. Now, with that being said, how much better? I don't know.
We're gonna find out, Ron.
We'll just have to see.
Julius Randle wasn't that bad. I mean, I remember giving him a grade of a B.
It's only because he had that
game one of four.
Yeah.
Game
the series went 5 games. I mean, that's almost half the series.
Yeah, 2 out of 5 games he was good. The other games, and
shout out to S for calling this the series between oil and water. And I was thinking about that a lot. And I was like, who's oil and who's water? Well, clearly it's Indiana's oil. Sorry, Indiana is water because they're very fluid. And OKC is oil. And I started thinking about it. I'm like, have I ever seen an oil company worrying about a water leak? Nope.
I think the workers would probably rather have some water than
exactly. Yeah. What if the building floods?
No water and you die within 3 days?
No oil, you don't make no money.
Can't make no money if you're dead.
You take that water and you bottle it up. Now you start trapping water.
I just think for a team that is predicated their entire.
I mean, people have made money.
Chill. You asked me earlier what was the identity of this Indiana Pacers team. It's like exploiting your mistakes defensively, right? Well, now you're going up against a team that doesn't make a lot of mistakes defensively. You're going to be playing 6 on 5, 7 on 5.
Indiana gonna make a
Well, to see, I am interested because OKC definitely has played will let such and such shoot defense in the playoffs so far, or at least get a late contest. I'm wondering if Indiana can have one of those magnet games. Feel those magnet games.
Have a magnet series, man. I'm trying to tell you.
I don't know, bro. That's the only thing I'm kind of worried about.
Get healthy, Aaron Nesmith. They're going to
2011 Ray Allen incoming. Watch.
All right, y'all. Exclusive Excellence sent through a members chat, and he basically just backed up what Mars said. He said Hali's revenge tour isn't in fact over.
Revenge on who?
The league. Everybody
says overrated.
It was
the haters. All right, chill.
All right,
It was like 10 people who said he was the most overrated player in the league. So he's getting revenge on 10 people?
Maybe one of those people plays on the OKC Thunder.
Maybe.
Matt Miller became a YouTube member. Shout out to Matt Miller.
You hear Mark Dagnall compare Halliburton to Steve Nash?
Sorry, what?
Mark Dagnall compared Halliburton to Steve Nash when talking about the series. So thought you'd like that one. Yeah. Sorry, you can carry on. That was it. Oh my god. Okay, my bad. Yeah. My bad, guys.
The next super please take care of business.
You such a hater. Oh my.
I can't.
Hey, Mars, can you grab a super chat or two? I'll be right back.
Oh, okay.
He needs to make some calls to get some people.
I don't have host controls, so he told me to grab it. I don't have host controls. I can't do it. So I'm gonna read what I can see, but I can't put them on the screen because I don't have host controls. Jalen Kings. Oh no, he read that one already. Cowboy Bob said 25 years later, and the Pacers made it to the finals. Good luck and prove them wrong. You guys earned it. This is going to be a good series. Go New York, go. Shout out to the Pacers. Masenk OG. Oh, this is for Swiper. He said, Swiper, let's make the situation hit home so you'll get it. George Karl was a great mind, but horrible adapting to the new age of managing his team. Who's that alluding to?
No idea.
Okay, so yes. This happens when we read super chats. What's that? 2.5 hours late. NY Smooth said Timothy Mozgov is the worst one, the worst starting center on like a finals team. You guys agree? Is he the worst one in recent memory?
Kendrick Perkins is worse.
Yeah, but that's like 13 years ago. It's kind of long. But, I mean, Mozgov.
Yeah, I'm sure Timothy's the worst.
MP13 said, I've never heard in my life Nash's and Kobe talks. Yeah, you haven't listened to me. That's why. Red Hood
offensively
said, Red Hood said he got screwed against the Spurs. Please stop saying Hali is better than Nash. He scored 7 points 2 times and still won. Stop. He's not a superstar.
Ron, you want to flash Red Hood?
Yeah, Ron, I can't put your super chats on the screen, so I had to read them. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Oops. Yeah. All right. Did you read this one from Cowboy?
Yep.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
He went down in chronological order.
I got to Red Hood super chat. I got to Red Hood.
Red Hood.
Yeah, that's the last one I read.
So basically, he reads super chats at the same pace that Tyrese Halliburton processes the game. It's like would have taken you 8 hours to get to this.
Hey, I'm more a scorer than a passer. But either way it goes,
we know.
Super Duper DB Goat became a YouTube member. Shout out to Super Duper DB Goat. Creative Bobby said, "Can you praise a player without slandering another?"
I agree. But when you say Halliburton's better than Steve Nash, I'm sorry. I don't think I actually slandered Halliburton, to be fair. But like, I feel like there's a line, and we have to just chill out.
I don't think I slandered Steve Nash. What did I say that was slandering to Steve Nash? Besides, he didn't deserve an MVP.
Steve Nash is hype.
Compared to the so you think when I say that Halliburton's on Steve Nash's level, you think I'm hyping Steve Nash or Halliburton, right?
No, I think you're just wrong.
You think I'm hyping Halliburton?
But you know what's so funny?
I think you're hating on Steve Nash.
I'm not. See, you guys think I'm hyping Halliburton to push him into this level. The same reason I think that you guys are hyping Steve Nash to push him into the level.
But it's so interesting. It's so interesting to me, Ron, that you're such a big Halliburton fan because you host like you're Jalen Brunson.
Damn.
You pound the rock, you ISO, you call your own number, and then you drive and you be flopping left and right all over the place.
He admires what he can't do. So
that's so interesting. Yeah.
The irony of a Tyrese Halliburton fan not liking Steve Nash is just I don't know what Ron on, bro.
I'll say I think I understand why people think I glaze Steve Nash. I'm higher on Steve Nash than by far the consensus. Like I said in passing 30 minutes ago, I think Steve Nash is better than Moses Malone. That's like a ridiculous take anywhere but here. Even here, you guys disagree with me. I understand that. Like, I know I'm higher on Steve Nash than most, but I refuse to believe anyone else other than Ron thinks Tyrese Halliburton is better. I refuse to believe anyone else thinks that. I'm sorry.
I don't need nobody to agree with me. I feel how I feel.
Bro,
like,
Mars is, just exposing the truth about who Moses Malone was. Angel Reese.
MP13 said, "Is Hali the new Tatum where we put him in conversations he doesn't belong? And then we'll spend 2 years wondering why he has these inconsistencies."
The only thing they have in common is they both got snubbed for Eastern Conference Finals MVP.
Well, they also play on the two most spaced teams in the NBA.
I think being consistent is harder than people give it credit for. Like being as consistent as Giannis. Like even Shai's had bad games in his playoffs. Being as consistent as Jokic, who's had bad games in these playoffs. Like that's tough. Like it's tough to be that level of consistent. I think Nash and Halliburton and Tatum, like they're regular stars, regular superstars. Well, in Tatum's case, I don't think Halliburton's a superstar. Like they're gonna be inconsistent. Then 10 games, they're gonna have like 2 or 3 like bad or mid games. Like that's gonna happen. Like I just think it's the life of a basketball player. You look on the average, and I think on the average, Tatum plays like a top 5, 6, 7 player. Halliburton plays like a top 15 player, and I think that's where they both probably rank.
LeVar B. Ballin said, "This is why we have trouble giving players props because people like Ron and Penn will discredit other players saying stupid shit. Shawn Marion was a playmaker. Y'all both been a disgrace to this convo."
I just want to be very clear. I did not say that. That was 100% wrong.
Yeah.
When I said Shawn Marion's a
playmaker,
no, but here's my thing though. I'm not saying that. I'm not comparing Shawn Marion to Steve Nash or anybody else. I'm saying Shawn Marion was good with the ball in his hands. Shawn Marion could pass. Shawn Marion could score. Shawn Marion can
he could score.
He can make plays.
Who's an NBA player who can't pass?
Cam Whitmore can pass the ball.
I'm not saying literally can pass.
No, he can physically pass the ball.
I'm saying Shawn Marion was a good distributor. Like
he was a good,
and when I say a good
distributor,
I'm not. That's
player.
what I'm saying. He had good feel. I'm not saying like when I throw the playmaker tag on him. I'm not saying that he's Jason Kidd. I'm saying Shawn Marion could do shit with the ball.
You just wanted to yell for no reason because what I was saying had nothing to do with that. But it's cool. It's what it is. Yeah. I respect it. You had to go off what you wanted to go off. It's cool. I respect it.
Masinko said, "I think 06 Nash is pretty underrated. Lost Amari and Joe Johnson and replaced them with young Barbosa and Boris Diaw, who got MIP that year, by the way, and still led them to 54 wins. I also understand picking someone else for MVP."
So this is why, like, I'm the weirdest like Nash fan, I guess, on the planet because making the Nash all-time case would be so much easier if I just used the MVPs. Like if I was an accolade guy, like 2 MVPs, like speaks for itself. But because I'm anti-accolades, but also pro Steve Nash, I end up making the Steve Nash case without bringing up the MVPs because I don't care about them. I just think Nash is that good. It's why I also think 07 is like by far Steve Nash's best season of his career, and he didn't win the MVP. He came second, but he didn't win the MVP. I think he was one made free throw away from being 50, 40, 90 again. But yeah, I just think MVPs or not, Steve Nash is that good. I think Steve Nash was a top 5 player for half a decade. Like that's how good I think he was. So I'm just high on him.
LaFlame said, "Ox turned the most basic KP take into Jokic hate."
Kendrick Perkins take?
It has to be Kendrick Perkins.
Yeah.
I forgot about our Perkins conversation.
Yeah. Had a good healthy
Perkins.
Kendrick Perkins conversation.
MP13 said, "If you were a player at LeBron or Jokic's level, it would be wrong to not bottom out the distribution of the responsibility to the one player because they are more reliable in the playoffs compared to the Halliburton archetype of player."
I agree somewhat. Oh, I'm going to say why. Oh, no, yeah. I agree somewhat because I think when you have someone who can do that, like there's many reasons beyond this, but I think a reason why the Russ and LeBron pairing didn't work, one reason, not the only reason. One reason was because Russ, your value comes from what you bring to the table. And Russ being one of the better playmakers in the league at the time in which they signed him, it was less valuable in the Lakers because A, the way in which he did it, and B, because the Lakers already had LeBron doing that role. Like an A+ playmaker, which I think Russ was, an A grade playmaker, being added onto a team that already has an A+ playmaker makes his playmaking less valuable than if he was to replace a team, if he was to go to a team that had no playmaking. All of a sudden, that same Russell Westbrook appears more valuable because he's replacing a skill set that was the roster lacked. Whereas he was being added onto his skill set was being added onto a roster that didn't need his skill set. So I think when you have Jokic or LeBron, you don't need additional playmaking to the same degree as you would on a team that is lacking of playmaking, which is why I think you don't need an Andrew, you don't need a TJ McConnell if you have LeBron James. Does that make sense?
I don't think playmaking talent is ever a bad thing, ever.
I mean, it depends on how you do it. If you do it like Russ, I think they can become
number one, that, but number two, like when I think about teams that have 4 or 5 good passers, even if they're not necessarily initiative passers, like more connective passers,
Yeah,
that's
fine. There's never enough of that. But Russ like
exactly.
playmaking, TJ McConnell type playmaking, I do think that becomes redundant.
Change one variable, which is to say Russell Westbrook goes from a shaky shooter to a 40% 3-point shooter. Now it's very valuable because he can do stuff off the ball, right? It like when I look at a player, even like Brandon Ingram, right, coming to the Raptors, the one thing about him is very ball dominant, doesn't cut without the basketball enough. He's a great playmaker, but you need play finishers next to playmakers. You already have a lot of playmakers, so now it's like about optimizing that. I think this comes down to coaching, but I'll never. So many good championship teams have had 3-4 really good decision makers, and you think about that Lakers team with Kobe, Lamar Odom, great playmaker, Pau Gasol, great playmaker. Like the triangle was predicated on this idea that you had smart playmakers. Even Marc Gasol, when the Raptors won a championship, Marc Gasol, Pascal Siakam, Kawhi might have been Kawhi and Danny might have been the worst playmakers in that group, right? So that's where I look at it, is like you need to have someone who can just extend that advantage. It's very important.
I agree. Connective playmaking is valuable. Always.
Trayvon Ray said, to add on to Mars's point, black hole players are considered the unwinningest archetypes, but Moses Malone was the best player on a super team, and Adrian Dantley was a bad foul call away from Finals MVP.
Yeah, in 88, right? Yeah, I think circumstances determine a lot. Like Moses Malone is one of the weirdest archetypes I've ever seen. Maybe that's why I'm lower on Moses Malone, because I don't know how to evaluate his archetype. But he was like the definition of a black hole. But it works because he also just generated so many extra possessions. But a lot of that was off him missing his own layups. So I don't know. But yeah, I think
Angel Reese. What'd I say?
Andre Drummond. But I think winning and losing determines like the narrative on players way too often for what it should. Like, and I'm never going to agree with it. I've been trying to push back on it for 3 years, but it's never going to shake. Like Adrian Dantley, I actually think is a really good one, because he was a ball dominant player. He was someone who, when he got the ball with 16 seconds on the clock, he was going to face you up for 12 seconds and then go get a bucket, and it was going to be a very efficient bucket. But if his on-ball attack didn't work out, your possession was cooked. Like you wasn't going to get anything else because Dantley took so long to do things. But if they win in Detroit in 88, and they then don't trade him for Mark Aguirre, and then they don't win those 2 championships with Mark Aguirre instead of Dantley, all of a sudden you don't hear guys like Chill saying, well, Dantley's a better player, but Mark Aguirre was a better fit. Well, no, they won with Adrian Dantley too. You don't hear those narratives. But because they didn't win on a situation that, in my opinion, wasn't Adrian Dantley's fault, he had nothing to do with that play. Now all of a sudden, Adrian Dantley, you can't win with Adrian Dantley. He was with Kareem and you couldn't win there. And then he goes to the Pistons, you can't win with him. And then he leaves the Pistons and they win. He leaves the Lakers and then they win. So like,
would that
narratives
be
are determined.
If like Julius went to the finals this year with the Wolves?
Kind of, yeah. Like,
even though Julius is more.
Have you heard the Patrick Ewing theory? It's like, apparently, because when the Knicks made the finals in '99 without Ewing, it was like, well, they're better without Ewing. So like a lot of players get that label where the teams get better without them. Like there's a football example. Real quick, Kylian Mbappe. He was renowned as the best player in the world. He played for Paris. He played in Paris. He played for PSG. They couldn't win the Champions League with him. He then joined the team. He did a Kevin Durant. He joined the team that just won the Champions League in Real Madrid. And then Real Madrid didn't win the Champions League with him this year. And PSG just went and won it without him. So now a lot of people are clowning Mbappe. Like, oh, look, you were the problem. They couldn't win with you.
Kylian.
And it's like, I just feel like winning distorts the narrative away from like the reality, I think, a lot. So that's it.
I mean, winning is the goal. I mean, that's kind of, but also I do, find it interesting how we have come to the conclusion that we can contextualize winning for individual players. I'm waiting on the day that we contextualize all statistics as well.
Oh, I'm with you.
Is there a certain statistic right now that you want to throw out there?
No, but it's just like statistics are also due to your environment, just like winning is. So
so like Pascal Siakam's 5 rebounds.
I say this all the time. Like Kevin Durant didn't stop being a 30-point scorer when he went to Golden State. Like your stats are directly correlated to what's around you, just as much as like your box score numbers. Like if you're asked to do a lot, your points, rebounds, and assists will be inflated. Like even in today's game, with the rise of heliocentrism and one person doing a lot for a team's offense, PRA is going up. Like Jokic is averaging a triple-double. I think Jokic would be great in any era. I don't think he averages a triple-double in every era. That doesn't mean he's better or worse. It's just the way you come around getting these types of stats. Giannis averaging 6 assists, 7 assists. I think he's a great passer. I think in a different era, he doesn't average 6, 7 assists. That doesn't mean he's a worse passer. It's just, it comes down to PRA is easier to get now more than ever. Josh Hart, Denny Avdia, like these types of guys can get triple-doubles in today's game. They very rarely ever get a triple-double in the past. That doesn't mean they're worse. It just comes down to how the game is played.
Ricky Davis and Andre Blatch punching air right now. Wrong era.
Hey, I spoke about Andre Blatch, man. That handle. Whew.
Yaya Jallo sent through a super chat and said, "Do you think that Shea gets better from here?"
I think so. I think it's possible. I mean, you things that could be worked on ball defense. There's still the pull-up three is something that could be worked on. And then just continuing to refine yourself as a playmaker. I think he's improved as the playoffs have gone on. But I think continuing to
where does this Indiana team rank in terms of teams that have faced OKC right now? I'm curious.
In the playoffs?
It's been Memphis, Denver, Minnesota, and now Indiana. And I'm curious who's the best team of this bunch. Now, obviously, Ron.
I think Denver's the best team they played.
Who's the second best team?
I think Minnesota's the best team they played.
Are we talking about best team for OKC, like best matchup, or like the best team
best team
or just the best team?
Oh, best team period. Oh, okay. Oh.
I think it's Minnesota, Denver, Indiana, and then
Memphis are the worst team they played.
Yeah.
Best team period. I think it probably is Minnesota. So Minnesota, Denver, Indy, Memphis. That would be my rankings. In terms of matchups for OKC, I think Denver's the best matchup for them. Like the worst, if that makes sense. Like the best at matching up with OKC, I think is Denver.
Is that because they pushed them to 7, or that's how you felt coming in?
Because
their best player
is how I felt coming in, but I did think OKC was going to handle them. I thought OKC was going to walk through the West. But I thought Denver was the best matchup for them because of the size advantage, the rebounding advantage, Jokic being as good as he is. I didn't anticipate Aaron Gordon getting hurt in Game 7, but Aaron Gordon's presence. Then I also liked Jamal Murray. Like I thought they were going to lose. I had them in 6. I think I had OKC in 6. So I thought it was going to lose, but I did think Denver gave them the best shot. But 7 just made it a better case, I guess.
All right. The next super chat from Super Duper DB Goat. Super Duper said Nash winning MVP would equal D Mitch if he won MVP this year. I agree. Also, the numbers say Nash wasn't an elite playoff scorer. I agree. Also, Hali is better than Nash. I guess I'm not the only one that thinks that because my man Super Duper thinks it as well. And also, Hali is top 10. I fucking agree, Super DB.
Yeah, I don't agree with anything he just said.
Hey, real talk.
Any of it, bro.
Hey, I don't agree. I don't agree with one word of that. He made 3 points. I disagreed with all of it.
Hey, real talk. This boy right here just cooked up. That's how you cook up in a super chat.
No, that's how we spot your burner.
Well, he made 4
points. You think Hali's
a
top 10 player, Ron?
I think it could be argued. I think it could easily be argued.
Who's better, Hali or Ant?
That's one of those that could be argued.
Super chats.
That can't be argued.
Super chats.
So I mean, you have him better than Steve Nash.
In the playoffs right now, who had a better run this year? Now I know playoff runs aren't the end all be all. I know we have to look at all other things.
Can we get to the super chat?
I'm asking a question. Who's had the better playoff run?
Did the super chat ask that question?
Let me put my burner up. Hold on. We'll read all these other ones. Don't worry, we'll get there. And y'all will really see my burner today. But in the meantime, Trayvon Ray said, I know this is an old talking point, but I thought Dirk was better than Steve Nash and Shaq in 05. I thought MVP Nash should have won. I thought the MVP Nash should have won. They gave to Dirk.
That's something I can agree with. I think 07 was Nash's best MVP case. And I think, Dirk,
you think he should have won that year? Like if you take everything else out and you just only seen that season and you went to vote on all of that, you would have voted.
If I was a voter, I probably would have gone with Nash, but once again, I overrate Nash. I can understand why Dirk won it, absolutely. But I do think a big reason why Nash didn't win it was because of the narrative of him winning 3 straight. I think that was a big part of it. because what he did in 07 was like, it was like 06 scoring efficiency and like ability with like the 05 playmaking with elite team success. And I think he shot like 45% from three. Like, it was Nash's by far best year of his career, like by far. But it doesn't get recognized as such because obviously he never won the MVP. So people are like, oh, 05 and 06 Nash is better. It was like 07, like he just leveled up. He was the best scoring year of his career, best playmaking year of his career, in my opinion. Just overall best offensive year of his career. The Suns were an elite team again. That was the year where I think the Suns had their best chance of winning a championship. Ultimately, obviously, the suspensions and stuff happens, but yeah.
I do want to say though, like I am, as much as I hate the fact that Steve Nash got those MVPs, and as much as I don't believe he deserved them, I do want to say I am happy to an extent that he did get those MVPs because it really allows us to talk about him and how he was actually one of the best playmakers of that era. Well, just of all time, but especially in that era. Because if he doesn't get those MVPs, I think he's one of those players that we just
for sure
glaze over and we don't talk about him. So it acknowledges his greatness. It acknowledges Mike D'Antoni as being an offensive genius, and it just acknowledges that run and gun 7-second or less offense.
Changed the game.
Dylan Watson said, who wins in this 7-game series? 14-15 Hawks or 25 OKC Thunder?
The Thunder in 3.
Nah, give me them Hawks, man. Give me the Hawks in 7, man. Give me the Hawks in 7, man. I know where this is coming from. So yeah, give me the Hawks in 7.
Al Horford Finals MVP or Paul Millsap?
Kyle Korver. What are you talking about? Kyle Korver. Damari Carroll.
You know what? Matter of fact, Jeff Teague.
Let's go, baby. Shout out 520.
Thunder.
All right. The last super chat of the day we got is from Simon718. Simon said, imagine going to war for a scrub and clown like Kendrick Perkins, who claims Ant is already better than Luka. Well, somebody else does too, but that's neither here nor there. He is a water boy in the 2025.
Kendrick Perkins' basketball takes have nothing to do with his ability to play in the modern NBA. No,
which are worse?
Well, I think he has bad basketball takes, but I also don't watch him religiously, so I only see the bad ones when they show up on my timeline. So I'm judging Kendrick Perkins through a biased lens. I don't watch Kendrick. Maybe he makes a bunch of good takes and I never see him, but I don't think Kendrick Perkins is a better or worse basketball player based on his takes. I think that's the same thing that happened to Paul Pierce. I think Paul Pierce became underrated because everything he's done post-career talking about his own career. So now people just underrate how good Paul Pierce actually was. I think Kendrick Perkins might be falling slight victim to that, even though he's nowhere close to the level of play.
Bro, we need a personalized message.
NBC thing?
You said what?
Oh, no, I'll ask in a second. Go ahead, real talk.
No, we need a personalized message for Luka Doncic, bro. Bro, Luka. Bro, hopefully, I don't know if you watch PC or not, you know what I'm saying? But hopefully you do, bro.
Hi, Luka.
Bro, it's starting to get disrespectful. I'm not gonna lie, it's starting to get disrespectful. I'm seeing people say Ant better than you. You know what I'm saying? I'm seeing people talking about maybe Luka or Devin Booker. I've seen that on the timeline.
Devin Booker better than Luka?
We're here.
What about Tatum, the one that's about to happen?
Tatum clears and all these, like, bro, Luka,
Tyrese. How did he?
I think Luka's a top 5 player. That's where I'm at. I think Luka's a top 5.
That's what I'm saying, bro. Can we, Luka, get in the lab, bro? Hopefully you in the lab this summer, bro. I see a Luka next year that's getting to the rim. I see a Luka that's getting to the rim next year, and he's shooting that step back 3 at 38%. All of a sudden, Luka the best player in the world again. I remember the conversations in 2024. I remember. There's a young man in OKC who just ripped your chain off this year, just completely, just
not chain, whole outfit.
Goodness gracious, bro!
And then put on some fresher shoes and a fly ass fitted cap. Real talk. He took your whole outfit, put on some fresh shoes and a fly ass fitted cap. Now he just fresher than you.
That's crazy, man.
But it's all good.
And he about to win a championship.
Yeah, and he's gonna win a ring. Oh my goodness!
Hell no, Hali coming for that. Right, Ron?
Luka ain't got no MVPs, no championships.
Hali already got it. All right, y'all. But before we get up out of here, Mugarbe said Pascal Siakam averaged 21 points, 6.7 rebounds, 3.4 assists, 51% field goal, and 38% from three in the playoffs. And Halliburton, 18.3 and 9.8 with 5.7 rebounds, 33% from three.
Yo, this person has basically been coming at me for like years. They are some sort of Pascal Siakam super weirdo fan who thinks Pascal is like some MVP caliber, great player.
I mean, he
did not outplay Tyrese Halliburton. I'm sorry to tell you, he did not. And again, I stand by it. If he does really well against this OKC Thunder defense, which I've been praising all year, so I'm not about to switch up now, I'll respect it. I will apologize completely.
Ron, is Pascal Siakam better than Scotty Barnes?
Yes.
Hell no.
Yes. Yes.
If y'all had Scotty, I would actually give you a little bit of a chance against OKC.
All right.
Right.
All right, y'all. We're going to be back tomorrow. You already know what time to find us. Make sure you like the video on the way out. Tomorrow, make sure you like the video on the way in. And I can't wait for you guys to see the title that is going to be in place for tomorrow. Until then, take it light, I guess.
Y'all have a good one.